One Piece, Alucard the Immortal. Chapter 51, I Recognize You. Chapter 51, I Recognize You. D. Roger, the clueless man, much like the future Luffy, had a habit of never reading newspapers. But when Nascent uttered the letter D, Roger's expression instantly changed. Meanwhile, the second round of battle between Alucard and Rayleigh had officially begun. Rayleigh's right eye bore a deep scar, blood constantly dripping from the wound. His glasses had long since been cut in half, but for a master of observation haki like Rayleigh, whether his eyes could see clearly was irrelevant. His observation haki was more than enough to compensate. At such close range, even without his eyes, he could clearly see the bloodied hole in Alucard's face rapidly healing. What in the world is this guy? What's wrong? It's just a scratched eyelid. You can still attack, can't you? Alucard suddenly spoke, his body seemingly unharmed. He raised his white pistol, casual. If you won't make a move, I'll go first. No sooner had he spoken than Alucard shot forward like an arrow released from a bow. Although his eye injury significantly impacted Rayleigh, for a man like him, it wasn't enough to diminish his combat prowess. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strange sound vibrated in Rayleigh's ears, and he felt an eerie ripple emanate from beneath his feet. Looking down, he saw countless shadowy arms, condensed from the ground's shadow, darting out. Each, like Alucard, wore white gloves and reached out to grasp him. The ability to control shadows. Rayleigh wondered aloud. His right hand's long sword slashed violently, bisecting all the shadow hands. The next second, they melted like ice, remerging into the shadow. But they didn't stop. An unending stream of new hands reached out. Does it have the same immortality as its master? What kind of monstrous kid is this? Rayleigh scoffed, suddenly increasing his sword speed. In an instant, he swung dozens of times, slicing all of Alucard's shadow hands into ribbons. Yet, they remained undying, continuously regenerating and reaching out. If it were a typical opponent, they would have likely lost their will to fight, terrified by this grotesque regeneration. Then, only by defeating the master will they disappear. Rayleigh surmised, engaging Alucard once more. Both became blurs, continuously clashing. Apprentice pirates like Buggy couldn't clearly discern the fight, but from appearances, it seemed evenly matched. Buggy couldn't resist pretending to understand. Oh, that kid's pretty good, he's holding his own against Rayleigh-san. Buggy, did you actually see that clearly? Gaban interjected, dispelling Buggy's false bravado without mercy. Rayleigh has the upper hand. That kid, despite being a freak, is ultimately young, and his strength is still quite limited. No, that's not right, Roger interjected. On the surface, Rayleigh has the upper hand, but look more closely. Everyone in the pirate crew immediately doubled their focus, and the movements of Rayleigh and Alucard in battle became clearer. They saw it. Indeed, in terms of technique, Rayleigh had the upper hand, constantly landing successful attacks on Alucard. Many times, Rayleigh's attacks would hit Alucard 10 times before Alucard might land even one hit on Rayleigh. However, every single time Alucard landed a hit, it caused damage to Rayleigh. Conversely, no matter how many times Rayleigh successfully attacked or how severely he wounded Alucard, Alucard's wounds would heal and regenerate. Alucard the Immortal, now I understand why the newspapers comment on him that way. Nasdin gritted his teeth. Rayleigh, as the second in command of the pirate crew, was rarely pushed to such a degree even by marine admirals. Or rather, Alucard's fight was completely a cross-tier battle. Even if Rayleigh's level was indeed higher than his, perhaps by several tiers, what did it matter? You couldn't kill him, you couldn't fatally wound him. On the contrary, he could do all of that to you, it would just take a bit longer. Captain Roger, let's go help? Rayleigh-san is already heavily injured, that guy is a monster, a monster. Hours later, the west coast of Water 7 was left in ruins. As Alucard and Rayleigh exchanged over 1,000 blows, a shot from Casual struck Rayleigh's right leg, causing him to stumble. Seeing Rayleigh battered and bruised while Alucard remained completely unharmed, Buggy finally couldn't hold back his panic and yelled at Roger. Roger had a strange rule in battle: if his opponent was alone, he would never take advantage of them. He insisted on resolving the issue through a one-on-one fight. This was why no other member of the Roger pirates had intervened during Rayleigh and Alucard's extended battle. But seeing Rayleigh gradually showing signs of defeat, Buggy was the first to panic, shouting with snot running down his face. Roger chuckled confidently, "What's the rush? My partner won't lose that easily." On the heavily battered coastline, Alucard stood atop a large boulder, looking down at Rayleigh, and said, "I recognize you. Roger Pirates, Vice Captain Rayleigh." Chapter 52, Roger makes his move. Oh, what an honor. Rayleigh smiled calmly. They had long been famous pirates throughout the Grand Line, not just its first half, but also the New World. However, due to Roger's incurable illness, he had given up adventuring a few years ago to search for renowned doctors to treat him. He eventually found Crocus, who managed to sustain Roger for a period. During this time of seeking treatment, Shiki the Golden Lion and Whitebeard had surpassed Roger, establishing a firm foothold in the world. Now, the returned Roger pirates were making a comeback, and to head to the New World, they needed a good ship. Though Roger had only a few years left, he intended to use his remaining time to conquer the Grand Line. Alucard had been in this world for so long that he almost forgot he was transmigrated. It was only after fighting for so long that he suddenly realized these individuals before him were members of the future Pirate King's crew. This first mate, Silver's Rayleigh, no wonder he was so difficult to deal with. But unfortunately, Vice Captain, you'll die here today, Alucard chuckled. Do you still wish to continue, heavily wounded as you are? Ha 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 ha, young man, you don't know your place. Rayleigh laughed loudly, throwing his head back. Then, lowering his head, he pointed his left thumb at his own neck, a smirk on his face. My head is right here. If you want it, come and take it. Heh. Alucard retreated dozens of meters. Suddenly, the shadows beneath his feet formed gigantic shadow hands, reaching out for Rayleigh. Just seeing such a technique sent shivers down one's spine. Someone unaffected by Conqueror's haki is truly rare, but I have more than just a few tricks. Facing the overwhelming shadow hands, Rayleigh showed no hesitation, charging directly into them. The longsword in his hand moved at light speed, a completely different caliber from his older, weakened self who would be suppressed by Kizaru in the future. With lightning-fast sword strikes, the shadow hands didn't even have time to regenerate before Rayleigh had already surged forward, completely outpacing them, as expected of the Pirate King's right hand. Seeing Rayleigh constantly closing in, Alucard praised him. Suddenly, his body slowly sank into the ground, denying Rayleigh a chance to attack. He can even hide in shadows? Hey, you can't fight a fake like that. Buggy cried out, clutching his temples as if on the verge of a breakdown. Shut up, Buggy. Just watch Rayleigh-san fight quietly. Shanks, unable to stand Buggy's loud shouts, couldn't help but slap him. Shut your mouth, Shanks. I'll kill you someday, you bastard. Being told to be quiet by the person he disliked most, Buggy immediately flew into a rage. Suddenly, Alucard's head and hand emerged from Rayleigh's shadow beneath his feet. The black pistol, Jackal, was clutched in his palm. Just as Alucard's hand was about to pull the trigger, Rayleigh abruptly spun around, his blade whirling back. Blood splattered as he instantly severed Alucard's left hand. Along with the black pistol, it was sent flying far away. All right. Buggy, seeing this, waved his fist and cheered loudly, that guy isn't a Logia type. If you just cut off his hand, he's helpless? Ahahaha. Young man, do you still want to continue? Rayleigh asked. Clang? However, Rayleigh's answer came in the form of a giant sword in Alucard's remaining right hand, a sword condensed from the regenerative power of the black light virus? Oh, you can summon weapons at will? You really have a lot of abilities. Rayleigh raised his sword to parry, the two blades clashing fiercely, sparks flying. But using a sword in front of me? You're not quite up to par yet. Rayleigh's arm vibrated with stronger force, momentarily pushing Alucard back. Alucard flung the giant sword away and pulled out his white pistol, casual, from within hidden shadow, firing continuously. A continuous attack of sword and gun? Still not quite enough. Rayleigh plunged the tip of his sword into the ground. Suddenly, the earth beneath both their feet rumbled, and a stone wall rose up, blocking the giant sword Alucard had thrown. Bullets pierced the stone wall, but whether they hit Rayleigh's body was unknown. Whoosh! In an instant, a figure shot out from the ground beneath Alucard's feet. It was Rayleigh? In less than 3 seconds, had he dug his way that far? An incredible fellow. Alucard's pupils contracted sharply. It's over, young man. In less than half a second, Rayleigh had unleashed an unknown number of sword slashes. To others, it was just a blur of countless silver flashes. Puff, 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 puff. Seeing Alucard's body chopped into countless pieces of flesh, Buggy shoved all 5 fingers of one hand into his mouth, speaking incoherently. Rayleigh-san, you went too far, didn't you? No, that's not right. Shanks shook his head. Rayleigh-san had to be that ruthless because if he wasn't, he wouldn't be able to defeat his opponent. Now, you can't regenerate, can you? Rayleigh exhaled a deep breath, accidentally pulling on his wound, his mouth twitching involuntarily. Ow, 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 that hurts. I'll need Crocus to take a good look at this later. Just as Rayleigh believed the battle was truly over, Roger's expression changed. He suddenly surged forward, shielding Rayleigh from behind, and at the same time, blocked a bullet from Jackal that would have otherwise struck Rayleigh in the back of the head. Chapter 53, Both Are Monsters. Everyone looked closely. About 50 to 60 meters away, a severed hand was holding the black gun, faint white smoke curling from its muzzle. Roger had already drawn his sword, blocking the bullet and preventing Rayleigh from being hit in the back of the head. What? Rayleigh questioned, turning to see the severed hand in the distance. A solitary left hand, holding a gun, floated in midair, a truly bizarre sight. Before anyone could fully grasp the situation, the body that Rayleigh had chopped into pieces on the ground began to tremble. Each piece of flesh transformed into shadowy bats. Countless bats gathered, connecting with the gun-wielding left hand, gradually forming a human shape. Oh, to be able to block an attack from Jackal directly, without even taking a step back, you're the first to do something like that? Alucard grinned, fully regenerated. I've had enough. Buggy shouted, clutching his head and jumping around. This guy just won't die, no matter how many times you kill him. Buggy's reaction was completely normal. Being pierced in the face, having his body shattered, that was one thing. But to revive after being sliced into countless pieces of flesh? What the hell? How were they supposed to fight this? It was impossible. I've never seen an ability like this before. It's amazing. Shanks, however, looked incredibly enthusiastic, more interested in Alucard's demonstrated abilities. Buggy smacked Shanks on the head from behind, fuming. What are you admiring, you idiot? Is this really the time to be admiring him? Roger dislodged the jackal bullet, examining it in his hand. He suddenly chuckled. Huh? Pretty unique. Immortal, huh? DS are always troublemakers. Roger twirled the rapier in his hand, then spoke to Rayleigh with his back turned. You were careless, partner. Rayleigh spread his hands with a helpless expression. Oh, my. Who would have thought someone could revive even in that situation? I couldn't help it. Go get treated? You're pretty badly hurt. Roger said with a laugh. Rayleigh didn't object, quickly walking back to the Roger pirates. Crocus immediately began examining Rayleigh's injuries, and after a moment, he frowned. This requires surgery. Rayleigh, let's go back to the ship. All the proper medical equipment is there. Crocus-san, is Rayleigh-san all right? Buggy asked anxiously. Relax, kid, I'm not that easy to kill. Rayleigh laughed loudly, then looked back at Roger, who was confronting Alucard in the distance. The real key is Roger over there. When Roger gets serious, he's terrifying. The Pirate King? Huh? What an unexpected challenge, Alucard muttered to himself, facing the somewhat disheveled man before him. Pirate King? I haven't earned that title yet, Roger suddenly replied, startling Alucard. Alucard had spoken so softly just now that even he himself could barely hear it, yet Roger, who was so far away, had clearly heard him. No need to be surprised by that, is there? Roger said with a smile. Bang! Jackal fired again. A single shot, powerful enough to easily pierce a battleship, flew towards Roger. Facing the bullet, Roger drew his sword, unleashing his unparalleled, formidable haki. Whoosh! Suddenly, Roger vanished from his spot. Just as Alucard was about to use thermal vision to locate him, he felt a chilling presence from behind. He quickly manipulated hidden shadow to form shadow hands and attack. Still not enough. Roger's sword, imbued with armament haki, instantly pierced through the blocking shadow hands and then Alucard's body. Suddenly, Roger's expression shifted, as he found his sword wouldn't pull out. Looking directly, he saw Alucard gripping the cutlass tightly with one hand. Despite the sharp blade cutting his palm, making it bleed profusely, Alucard remained unmoving, even a maniacal grin spreading across his face. Take this, Pirate King. Alucard laughed wildly, allowing the sharp blade to cut horizontally through the entire right side of his body. He aimed casual at Roger's head and fired. Bang! 2 seconds later, the sight before Alucard made his pupils contract. Roger had bitten the bullet? This guy? It was Alucard's signature move, yet he could do it too? Spit. Roger spat the bullet aside. With a mighty pull, he extracted the sword from Alucard's body, sending blood gushing out. However, the very next second, Roger saw Alucard's wound healing. Alucard the Immortal? Nosden was indeed right. Bang 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 bang. Bullets flew in rapid succession, but Roger simply swung his cutlass, deflecting all of them. He even counterattacked, sending all the bullets back, striking Alucard. The bullets embedding themselves in Alucard's body instantly worsened his injuries, but then, he regenerated again. He. Seeing Alucard suddenly laugh, Roger couldn't help but look at him curiously, asking, what's so amusing? It's too entertaining. Alucard's head hung low, his hair obscuring most of his face. His chilling laughter, however, conveyed boundless ecstasy. This is incredible, so entertaining. To think there's another monster like you in this world. You're the monster, kid. Roger chuckled. No, they were both monsters. Chapter 54, Voluntary Cessation. The battle continued. With Roger's keen observation skills, he had long since discerned the weakness of Alucard's immortality. Regardless of his wounds, Alucard never bothered to dodge attacks. Whether his legs were broken, hands severed, or even his head cut off, he always adopted a strategy of never evading. It was an injury for injury, no, even a death for injury tactic. This kind of insane fighting style was something Roger had encountered countless times in his youth, from madmen like Whitebeard, Shiki the Golden Lion, World Destroyer, and the reclusive Patrick Redfield, to his long-standing rival, Marine Mad Dog Garp. Yet, in terms of sheer madness, none could compare to this young man before him. However, after fighting Alucard for so long, Roger had already figured out the problem. No matter where an attack was aimed, Alucard would always protect one specific spot, his heart. Upon realizing this, Roger began to test his theory, exclusively targeting the heart. He found that his guess wasn't wrong, it was true. Alucard would indeed guard against attacks aimed at his heart. So, the weakness is the heart, Roger thought to himself. He began to direct all his attacks at Alucard's heart. A fierce combination of bullets and sword slashes continuously assailed him, causing Alucard's lips to curve slightly. Oh, you found the weakness. Unlike his previous battle with CP7, there were no other living beings for Alucard to consume here. If his heart was struck down by Roger, he absolutely wouldn't be able to regenerate. Even a mere 10 to 20 seconds wouldn't be enough time to find food. Thus, for the first time, Alucard actively defended against an attack. But while Roger had begun direct attacks on Alucard's heart, his attack patterns became too obvious. Alucard could completely predict how he would attack. Now, the situation had entered a stalemate. In terms of overall strength, Alucard was no match for Roger. However, Roger couldn't kill Alucard in a short period, forcing the battle into an awkward state. Simultaneously, the seaside dock on Water 7's west coast had been utterly reduced to rubble. How long have they been fighting? At some unknown point, Rayleigh, now wrapped in bandages, had returned. Seeing the two fighting in the distance, he couldn't help but ask, simultaneously surveying the devastated coastline. It was completely unrecognizable from when he had left. Rayleigh-senpai, it's been 7 hours already. If the west coast wasn't so far from the city, the Marines would have been here ages ago, Shanks said with a bitter expression. He had initially thought it would be an epic duel, but as it progressed, it felt more like a routine. Roger wanted to pierce Alucard's vital heart, while Alucard prevented Roger from doing so, defending while simultaneously attacking, but struggling to inflict damage on Roger. This situation had lasted for over 5 hours. In short, the stalemate persisted. With Roger's stamina, fighting for 10 days and 10 nights wouldn't be a problem. The key is that Alucard kid, he's immortal. I wonder if his stamina depletes at all, Gaban said, chiming in appropriately. Crocus, who had performed surgery on Rayleigh, also returned with him. Looking at the two in the ruins, he said with a grim expression, no, a prolonged battle isn't good for Roger. I'm not talking about the outcome of this fight, but his body. He paused, then continued, there's still an unknown journey ahead. We can't let him exhaust his life force here. Roger was already suffering from a terminal illness. He truly couldn't afford to expend excessive life force on a battle, especially one that held no significant meaning. After exchanging glances with the other members of the pirate crew, Rayleigh stepped forward and shouted towards the battling duo, Roger, stop wasting your strength on such a meaningless fight. You should understand what I mean. Roger, who was blocking Alucard's bullet attacks, cast a sidelong glance, his pupils narrowing. After a moment of thought, he unleashed a powerful sword slash that cleaved through the earth, creating a deep gully along the coastline, before sharply retreating a distance. Alucard, meanwhile, fired his 2 pistols in a cross pattern, simultaneously controlling the shadow hands beneath his feet to form a dark version of the Buddha's palm to counter. After a tremor that shook the island, the aftershock slowly subsided after more than 10 seconds. Roger now stood atop a 2-meter-tall, twisted piece of rebar, laughing loudly. Kid, this isn't getting us anywhere. Still want to fight? Alucard watched Roger for a long time, then suddenly chuckled. The thrill of battle is gone. Everyone who heard Alucard's response was surprised. This madman was being so agreeable? Actually, given Alucard's personality, this outcome wasn't hard to reach. He wasn't an idiot himself, of course. He knew that in his current state, he couldn't possibly kill Roger. As for a battle of attrition, a super long war lasting half a month, or even a year, slowly wearing down the terminally ill Roger until he died, was that possible? Perhaps it was, but Alucard absolutely wouldn't do it. Spending that much time and risk on this guy was out of the question. Moreover, the Marines would inevitably intervene along the way, and the most likely outcome would be a draw with no clear victor. Considering this, Alucard naturally chose to end the battle voluntarily. Chapter 55, Tremendous Advancement. Under the shocked gazes of Tom and his crew, Alucard approached Tom's shipbuilding workshop and calmly stated, "Can you start building the ship faster? I'll pay soon." After witnessing Alucard's power, Tom knew he wouldn't default on the shipbuilding fees and quickly nodded. "No problem. Just bring the money before the ship is finished. There should still be quite a few pirates on the island." "Gotta be quick," Alucard muttered to himself as he walked into the heart of Water 7. "Such a young kid, to be able to fight Gold Roger like that, truly impressive," exclaimed one of Tom's assistants beside him. Shortly after Alucard left, Roger and his crew arrived. Rayleigh stepped forward and asked, "Just to confirm, you are the famous shipwright Tom, correct? We'd like to commission you to build us a ship." To reassure Tom, Rayleigh added, "Please don't worry. We absolutely will not reveal that you built a ship for us. Even if the Marines ask, you can place all the blame on us. That's not the problem. It's just that the young man you were fighting earlier has already commissioned us to build a ship. It's a massive project. If you absolutely need us to build a ship, you'll have to wait for over a month," Tom said, looking troubled. The Roger pirates were a renowned pirate crew, so he naturally didn't want to get into trouble. But being caught in the middle, he could only speak the truth. "Arg, that guy always gets in the way," Buggy yelled, opening his mouth wide in annoyance. Gaban, behind him, quickly punched him, saying impatiently, "Quiet down, Roger and Rayleigh haven't said anything yet. What do you think, Roger?" Rayleigh turned to Roger. "We'll wait," Roger declared, waving his grand hand with a laugh. "For the journey ahead, a little wait is worth it." After Roger spoke, Tom stared at Roger intently for a long time. For some unknown reason, he suddenly voiced a thought he had kept hidden for a long time. "If you want to build the best ship, the atom wood is the most suitable." 5 days later, at a street corner in Water 7, a woman returning from buying groceries was about to turn the corner when a black shadow suddenly darted out, colliding with her and sending her basket of vegetables scattering across the ground. Others immediately looked towards the commotion, seeing several men, still clutching knives and guns, running desperately, yelling curses like, "Damn hag, get out of the way," as they ran, their faces unable to hide their fear. Pirates? That was the first thought that flashed through everyone's minds upon seeing these men. The woman could only resign herself to bad luck. In this world of pirates, such incidents were like tripping. There was nothing to do but accept your misfortune. However, as she bent down to pick up the scattered vegetables, she suddenly noticed another person emerging from the same corner where the pirates had fled. It was a young man with circular sunglasses, a crimson greatcoat, and a tall, wide red hat. Even more eye-catching was the massive white handgun in his hand. "There's no escape," Alucard said with a smile, raising cajole and aiming at the fleeing pirates. Bang, 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 bang. Several shots rang out continuously, startling everyone on the street. The back of the heads of the pirates, who had already fled half a mile away, instantly burst open. White brain matter and crimson blood splattered from their heads, causing many nearby pedestrians to scream. "Is it pirates fighting each other?" everyone thought, quickly fleeing. The woman who had been knocked over also abandoned her vegetables and quickly ran with the crowd. Alucard walked to the bodies. His shadow rapidly spread, like a bottomless swamp, absorbing the corpses. "How many is this today? Should be enough, right?" Alucard muttered to himself, walking towards Water 7's west coast. Although it had become a ruin, Tom's shipbuilding workshop was still operational. Ability development progress. Mature vampire physique, 105%. Mature bat transformation, 115%. Weapon, Casual LV4, 77%. Weapon, Jackal LV1, 52%. Blacklight Virus LV3, 35%. Hidden Shadow LV2, 27%. The successive battles with Rayleigh and Roger had brought Alucard rapid advancement. Only now did he begin to re-examine the new powers he had gained. Mature vampire physique has evolved into complete form, granting a new ability. Blood Siphon. By consuming the blood of living humans, virgins will transform into vampires with strong physiques and ageless appearances, others will become ghouls. Can absorb another's life through blood consumption to empower self and revive. Complete bat transformation. Can fully transform one's body into bats and attack. A tremendous advancement? Chapter 56, CP0 arrives. Blood Siphon, the ability to store life and then revive, had brought Alucard remarkably close to true immortality. It could perfectly compensate for the weakness of his heart. If he were to fight Roger now, the outcome would undoubtedly be different. But for now, Alucard wasn't looking for a fight with Roger. Instead, he focused on storing life. His previous fight had been too intense, he hadn't had time to siphon blood before killing those fodder pirates. Currently, Alucard had 16 lives stored, but only by awakening River of Death would he achieve true boundless regeneration. After half a week of experimentation, Alucard had a clear understanding of his blood siphon revival ability. First, to store life, he had to obtain the target's blood before they fully died, or within a few seconds of death, to perfectly claim their life force as his own. Second, if the person still possessed some life force, men and non-virgins, after having their blood siphoned, would turn into ghouls. These ghouls, upon consuming others, would transform new ghouls. While possessing endless regeneration, they were merely a group of monsters with slightly enhanced physiques compared to ordinary humans. They would die if their hearts or heads were destroyed and felt no pain. Their threat level was inferior to even a pirate with a 1 million berry bounty. In contrast, Blacklight virus-infected individuals were stronger, at least at the 10 million berry bounty level. So, Alucard had no interest in these ghouls, he only consumed others' lives to make them his own. Before awakening his ultimate ability, River of Death, all life consumption had to be done by himself. After that, he could undergo a new evolution. Going into the new world, this level of power is just natural, isn't it? Alucard mused, arriving at Tom's shipbuilding workshop on Water 7's west coast. He released all the pirates he'd captured today from his shadow onto the ground before Tom and his crew. Today's haul, tally them up? The members of Tom's shipbuilding workshop, who were processing steel, began identifying the pirates one by one according to their bounties. As an island very close to Sabaody Archipelago, pirates who reached Water 7 usually had some skill. Still, there were always some mediocre, lucky ones who made it this far. The Lazy Gunslinger, Panris, bounty, 8.3 million berries. Mad Dog, Saydays, bounty, 3.5 million berries. The workshop staff began meticulously counting the value of these pirates. Alucard captured people for them, and they turned them in for bounties. This scene had been playing out daily for the past 5 days. There weren't that many pirates in Water 7 to begin with, and in 5 days, Alucard had essentially captured almost all of them on the island, excluding the Roger pirates. From a distance, sitting on a large shattered rock, Roger chuckled as he watched the scene. Ha 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 ha, what an interesting fellow. When did such a freakish kid appear? Ah, a pirate hunter from the North Blue, supposedly he traveled all the way here alone. Not simple, Rayleigh agreed, nodding. For someone to reach this place alone, not to mention their power, their navigation skills alone must be extraordinary. Rayleigh and the others didn't know that Alucard's navigation was utterly reckless, their encounter in this place was pure coincidence. Captain Roger. From afar, Buggy ran over, snot and tears streaming down his face. Shanks and a few other apprentice pirates from the ship ran with him. Buggy, when's that kid going to break his habit of constantly overreacting? Rayleigh shook his head. As the group approached, he folded his arms. What now? What's happened? Is it the Marines? No, it's not. Buggy wiped his nose, panting. The government? World government flags? Two large battleships? They're landing on the coast. Gaban, Rayleigh, and the other veteran crew members couldn't help but stir at the mention of the world government. They had always been pursued by the Marines. The government had never directly mobilized to capture them. Why the sudden change this time? Wait, Rayleigh stroked his beard, pondering. How do you know the government is definitely here for us? Huh. Rayleigh-san, if they're not here for us, then who are they here for? Buggy blinked, confused. At present, the only pirate crew in Water 7 significant enough to draw the government's attention seemed to be the Roger pirates, right? Rayleigh tilted his head and gestured towards Alucard, making everyone look that way. Could it be him? At this moment, Alucard had also settled his accounts with Tom and the others. The accountant from Tom's shipbuilding workshop told Alucard, your total accumulated bounty is 166 million berries. That's incredible, reaching this amount in such a short time. Alucard looked towards the large steel ship already under construction on the coastline, letting the sea breeze ruffle his hair. He asked, at this rate, how much longer until it's completed? Well, at least another month, the accountant estimated. Chapter 57, Looking for Revival Coins. After confirming the shipbuilding arrangements, Alucard turned around, only to find that Roger Pirate's crew, who should have been nearby, had vanished. Usually, Alucard wouldn't bother with such matters, but for some reason this time, he felt something was about to happen. Perhaps it was just a gut feeling. Alucard swiftly leaped onto the top of one of Water 7's tallest towers. From there, his thermal vision, which surpassed even observation haki for searching people, kicked in. Alucard's thermal vision could easily locate targets within a city, and the higher he stood, the better its effect. North coast, then. Alucard muttered to himself, swiftly heading towards the northern part of Water 7. At this moment, the Roger pirates had just arrived. 2 battleships, adorned with the world government's 5-circle emblem, stood prominently. Several figures in white suits and strange masks descended from the ships, flanked by a retinue of black-suited agents. Since the North Coast was Water 7's primary port, it was usually bustling with people. Upon hearing that world government ships had arrived, many couldn't resist their curiosity and flocked to witness the spectacle. The Roger pirates, meanwhile, concealed themselves within the crowd, observing carefully. Even powerful pirate crews instinctively fled upon seeing the Marines, let alone the world government. Even a rough leader like Roger knew that this was not the time to show their faces, they should observe the situation thoroughly. Moreover, their ship wasn't even built yet. CP0. Rayleigh, standing beside Roger, retreated further into the crowd. When he saw the masked figures disembarking from the ship, he couldn't help but grit his teeth. They've sent very troublesome opponents, he thought. No, we don't even know yet if they're here for the Roger pirates. What do we do, partner? Roger whispered beside him. Don't rush, Roger, and everyone else. Let's first see what they intend to do, and if we're their target. Rayleigh first warned the other members of the Roger pirates around them, then turned to Roger. Roger, your observation haki is almost unrivaled in the world. Even at this distance, you should be able to hear their words clearly. Please, I'm counting on you. Secure the surrounding waters, monitor all outgoing ships. You can ignore other pirates, the primary target is Alucard. A CP0 agent issued orders to the government agents under them. Roger heard their words, not missing a single detail. Ahahaha, they're looking for that kid, after all. Roger laughed heartily. Alucard. Shanks looked confused, then asked, Rayleigh-san, what should we do? Mind your own business, Rayleigh said with a smile. While I usually don't mind a big fight with those government bastards, our ship is still waiting to be built. For now, let's keep a low profile. Can I watch? See what happens between the government and that immortal monster? Shanks asked with a grin. This time, it wasn't Rayleigh who spoke, but Roger. Ha ha ha, perfect, I want to watch too. You want to come along, Buggy? No, I don't want to get involved, Captain Roger. Buggy quickly waved his hands, refusing. While the Roger pirates were talking, the CP0 agents had already begun to move. Aside from those securing the nearby waters, more agents started searching the town for Alucard, including the 3 highest-ranking CP0 executive officers, clad in white with silver masks. CP0. Alucard stood on the roof of a tall building, observing the commotion below. Their attire was simply too conspicuous, causing him to recognize them at a glance. In the original story, only CP9 had demonstrated their combat abilities, CP0 remained a complete mystery. However, anyone capable of terrifying Caesar Clown, a mad scientist with a 300 million berry bounty, to the point of speechlessness, certainly possessed extraordinary qualities. Are they looking for me? After observing for a while, Alucard noticed many government agents holding copies of his photo, continuously asking nearby residents for information about him. Honestly, I've been too high profile lately, Alucard muttered, rubbing his head. In the past few days, when gathering money by hunting pirates, he often made too much of a spectacle. Having just killed someone on the street today, he was sure many people now recognized him. It was only a matter of time before he was found out. Since that's the case, he might as well take the initiative. Alucard transformed into bats and flew over the island. To catch the bandits, one must first catch their leader. His target from the start was the CP0 leading trio. However, until he confirmed their capabilities, it was safer to acquire more revival coins. Chapter 58, How else could it be? Shoo up. Alucard licked the fresh blood of a newly slain world government agent, acquiring another revival coin. Even with the awakened blood siphon revival ability, the conditions for successfully obtaining revival coins were often quite stringent. Besides needing to consume the target's blood, he also had to personally carry out the kill and drink the blood himself. If it were Alucard in his prime, he could control his blood to merge with another's, completely siphoning all their life force. It was like Gaara from Naruto, mixing his sand with ordinary sand to increase its volume. The entire alleyway was stained red. Suddenly, footsteps approached. Alucard didn't turn around. From his perspective, he could see two shadows cast by the sun, appearing to his left and right. Gold Roger and Shanks. Is there something you need? Even without turning, Alucard knew exactly who stood behind him. Once he observed someone with his thermal vision, he could memorize their bodily cell characteristics. The second time they appeared, the distinct aura emanating from each person would give Alucard a different sensation, so he naturally knew who it was without even looking. Just curious about what you're doing, Roger said with a laugh, not commenting on the bloodstained street. CP0 agents are looking for you everywhere, yet you're here playing with small fry. What are you up to? From Roger's words, Alucard gathered that he had just arrived and hadn't witnessed his recent bloodsucking. However, Alucard saw no need to explain himself. Turning around, he simply said, "That's my business. Don't interfere." "Ha ha ha, I'm just here to watch the show," Roger chuckled, allowing Alucard to depart. 2 hours later, on Water 7's east coast, the top 3 members of CP0, their wide robes flowing, walked along the shore. Once they confirmed no one else was around, the leading man said coldly, "Is this sufficient, Pirate Hunter Alucard?" A grating sound reached their ears. On the opposite edge of the coast, countless bats flew from the city onto the shore, coalescing into a human silhouette that finally transformed into Alucard himself. "Oh, so the CP0 agents are quite sensible. I thought you wouldn't agree to talk in an uninhabited area," Alucard remarked, genuinely surprised. When the leading CP0 trio was patrolling inside Water 7, Alucard had used a method to signal them to come to this deserted coast. He had initially thought these government dogs wouldn't listen to him, but to his surprise, they had obediently come. "It's nothing. The information we need to convey to you is also a highly classified secret that cannot be revealed to outsiders. Discussing it in a secluded area benefits both of us," said the leading man, who was of relatively normal build, about 1.9 meters tall. "Oh, then why did the world government send CP0 to find me?" Alucard asked with interest. Unbeknownst to the CP0 trio, Roger was sitting on the rooftop of a nearby house, not far behind them, watching the situation on the coast with great amusement, as if just missing a plate of peanuts to fully enjoy the show. Later generations would comment that Roger possessed one of the strongest observation haki in the world, capable of hiding himself and detecting hidden enemies with ease. While CP0 was not weak, in this regard, they were no match for Roger. Regarding the chief executive of CP7, Bradley, who came looking for you some time ago, how is he doing now? The leading CP0 agent inquired. "Who knows? I deal with too many enemies all day long, I can't quite remember," Alucard answered evasively. "He's dead, of course," he thought. He just wanted to toy with the CP0 agents. "Well, never mind that. We now need you to come with us. This is the government's order." "What if I refuse?" Alucard countered. "The government's order is to capture you alive, but that doesn't necessarily mean unharmed." The CP0's message was clear. As long as he was alive, it was perfectly acceptable to drag him back half dead. He. As expected, government people are truly annoying. It's great to be proven right on that point. Alucard stepped forward, removing his round spectacles. From beneath his crimson greatcoat, he drew his black jackal and white casual, aiming them at the CP0 trio. "That's it. How else could it be? Come on then, you government dogs, CP0. Ha ha ha, this is going to be interesting. Watch closely, red-haired kid." Roger laughed heartily from the rooftop, while Shanks, eyes wide, eagerly anticipated the unfolding events. Chapter 59, Target. Alucard's heart? CP0, as the world government's most direct covert organization, naturally possessed unparalleled combat prowess, especially its high-ranking codders. Low-level CP0 agents wore black suits, but only those who reached the codder level donned white, a symbol of their authority, and wore masks. However, even masks had their own hierarchy. Though it was unknown if they were the same group as the CP0 of decades later, the CP0 that Alucard was currently fighting were certainly not easy to deal with. They had all honed the Rokushiki to mastery, and could even develop their own modified Rokushiki techniques adapted to their physiques and fighting styles. Shanks, watching the battle, was particularly stunned by the tallest of the trio, a 6-meter-tall giant of a freak draped in a long robe. If he had ever met Gecko Moria, he'd easily connect the two. Despite his exaggerated stature, his movement speed was surprisingly no less than Gaban, a primary combatant of the Roger pirates. It was truly the body of an elephant with the speed of a leopard. "Captain, you said earlier that Alucard's weakness was his heart not being able to regenerate, right?" Shanks observed the fight, suddenly asking. But I feel like he isn't protecting his heart at all, even fighting 1 against 3. Shanks might be young, but his lack of strength didn't mean a lack of keen eyesight. He could see that Alucard's moves were utterly unreserved, with no defensive actions whatsoever, including for his heart. In truth, Shanks didn't need to state the obvious. Roger himself had already noticed. He was puzzled too. When fighting Alucard, no matter how much Alucard was hit, he would absolutely protect his heart. No matter where else he was struck, his heart could not be hit. Although these 3 CP0 agents weren't as strong as Roger himself, it was still 3 against 1. One would expect Alucard to defend his weakness even more carefully, yet this time, he wasn't defending at all. What was he up to? Galleon Great Rankyaku. The 6-meter-tall giant violently swung his massive leg, unleashing a white Rankyaku that swept towards Alucard like a sword slash. However, Alucard didn't retreat a single step. Instead, he charged forward recklessly. Charge, charge, absolutely no retreat. Bang, 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 bang. Casual fired. As the attacks passed through each other, Alucard's body was horizontally sliced in half at the waist by the immense Rankyaku. His entire upper and lower body were completely separated. But within 2 seconds of being severed, before his body could even hit the ground, black mist suddenly billowed from the gap between the 2 halves, reconnecting Alucard's body once more. No matter how many times I see it, I can't help but be amazed, Shanks exclaimed, a power that can regenerate from any injury. On the other side, facing Casual's bullets, the giant couldn't dodge in time. But because there were 3 of them, the chief officer immediately shielded the giant, crouching into a horse stance. Alloy Tekai. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets seemed to strike an indestructible iron plate, emitting fierce impacts. No, the opponent's body hardness was beyond iron. As expected of a monster highly regarded by the government. He possesses regenerative abilities. Even if his body is severed or his head is blown off, he'll be fine. The chief officer's mouth behind the mask moved slightly, his voice reaching his 2 subordinates. In that case, there's only one spot left, his heart. Wait, sir, what if he dies? Dr. Vegapunk and the government both expressly ordered him to be captured alive, asked a 4-meter-tall agent. It doesn't matter. I have a special method to sustain his life. Attack his heart, the chief officer said coldly. The 3 spread out, preparing to strike again. However, their entire conversation was perceived by Roger, word for word. In front of this man, you couldn't hope to whisper anything. Never mind speaking softer than a flying mosquito, as long as lips moved, Roger would know what was being said. Unless they went to another island outside the sea, they couldn't escape his targeted perception. Something interesting is about to happen. Watch closely, red-haired kid, Roger said with a laugh. Oh, Shanks paused, then heard Roger add, they're going to attack Alucard's heart. Then I'll definitely watch closely. Shanks nodded intently. In the center of the battlefield, Alucard suddenly smiled as he observed the 3 opponents' attack angles. Oh, the attack trajectory has changed. Are you aiming for my heart? Alucard's hands trembled, and the shadow beneath his feet surged violently. Countless shadow hands, like curses from hell, reached out to grasp the trio, but their speed was clearly insufficient. The 3 didn't counterattack. Instead, they dodged with minimal body movements, evading the shadow hands and charging directly at Alucard. Go, the chief officer extended a hand from beneath his robe, while the other 2 revealed their legs and claws respectively. Rankyaku, Wild Dance. Shigen, Great Demon. The 2 large agents' attacks targeted Alucard's limbs. Even Roger wouldn't ignore such powerful blows. But the madman in the middle, Alucard, didn't attempt to block. Instead, as if he didn't even see the attacks, he charged directly towards the person who used Shigen, choosing one target first. Chapter 60, Unwinnable. He's really going for it. Roger chuckled at the sight. CP0's identity was no simple matter, even without directly clashing with them. He fully understood the trouble they posed. As a direct world government intelligence agency, not only was killing them out of the question, but even a hint of hostility would brand one as an enemy of the government. Thus, CP0 missions rarely resulted in casualties, especially for those in white suits who held official ranks within the department. Alucard lunged forward, and even after the Rankyaku sliced his body in half, he maintained his combat posture. Compared to the Shigen, Alucard's firing speed was a notch faster. Bang! Jackal fired. A real bullet clashing with a Shigen? The 2 collided, locked in a stalemate for about half a second, before Alucard's jackal overpowered his opponent, reflecting the force back. Because the Shigen's power veered off its trajectory, the bullet that should have struck the heart instead hit the agent's lung. Gah! Alucard shrieked. Since Jackal couldn't fire continuously, he switched to casual. Bang! 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 The CP0 agent's body was riddled with bullets in an instant. At that very moment, the chief officer's handblade pierced Alucard's heart from behind. He got him. Roger's tone tightened. Is he dead? Shanks was about to confirm Alucard's demise, but as he stood up to get a closer look, he saw Alucard wearing a joyful smile even with his heart pierced. He was reduced to only an upper body, his entire heart impaled by the CP0 chief officer's handblade from behind. At this, the chief officer stated, at the cost of 1 life, mission accomplished. This is a significant casualty that CP0 hasn't experienced in a long time. Speaking, he withdrew his handblade from Alucard's heart. The next moment, he grabbed one of Alucard's arms and said coldly, a freak whose body is half gone yet still breathes. Put him in a nutrient solution temporarily. I'll try to get him to Marine headquarters alive to report to Dr. Vegapunk and the government. Whoa, this time he's really finished, right, Captain? Shanks couldn't possibly believe Alucard was still alive this time. His body was cut in half, and his heart, his biggest weakness, was completely pierced. No matter how strong his regeneration, there was no way he could survive that, right? Roger remained silent. Through his observation haki, he too could confirm that Alucard had no breath left. But why? Why did he still wear such a joyful, happy smile even after dying? Or rather, was he not dead at all? At that very instant, Alucard suddenly raised his gun and fired a shot directly at the chief officer's forehead, who was still holding his arm. How is that possible? This was the chief officer's last thought before the bullet struck his brow. However, before he could even fall, Alucard's lower body, which had been lying on the ground, suddenly transformed into black mist, rejoining his upper body. Alucard then dropped both his guns and plunged his hands into the chief officer's body. What followed was a nauseating sight. The blood from the chief officer's wounds, pierced by Alucard's hands, coalesced into slender tendrils of blood that completely enveloped the CP0 agent's entire body. After he let out a series of agonizing screams, his body, wrapped in blood tendrils, was entirely absorbed into Alucard's own. Tastes awful. Alucard muttered in disgust, then chuckled again. But the effect is good. He was completely regenerated. Looking at the last remaining CP0 agent, the one over 6 meters tall, Alucard twisted his neck, a smile curving his lips. Alright, let's continue. The last CP0. What kind of monster is this? Though CP0 had always dealt with lawless freaks, a monster like this shouldn't even exist in this world. His head blown off. His body severed. His heart crushed. None of these could kill him. Or perhaps he died and was revived. None of that mattered. The crucial point was that he was now completely regenerated, as if nothing had happened. Even the well-seasoned CP0 agent couldn't help but take a step back. What's wrong? Just because you've lost 2 comrades, you're already thinking of retreating. Alucard slowly advanced, and with every step he took, the agent instinctively recoiled. It's unwinnable? Suddenly, the CP0 agent felt his feet being grabbed. He looked down to see that shadow hands had somehow seized both his feet. At that exact moment, one of Alucard's shots struck the side of his face, shattering his mask. Thud! A powerful punch landed squarely on his thigh. With a 6-meter-tall body, Alucard could only reach this high without jumping. The CP0 agent stumbled, dropping to one knee. Alucard grabbed his face, and with immense force, squeezed until blood oozed out, continuously spurting. At this point, if you beg for mercy, I'll make you wish you were dead. Chapter 61, He's a Wanted Criminal. The last CP0 agent was devoured by the black light virus. After letting out a tragic shriek, his massive body was riddled with blood whips like a beehive. Once completely enveloped by Alucard's blood, his entire body, just like his superiors, was swallowed into Alucard's cells. In an instant, countless images flashed through Alucard's mind. This is for the best. According to Dr. Vegapunk's analysis, leaving him at large in the ocean will be a menace. It's best if the government deals with him as soon as possible. In this CP0 agent's memory, he was facing several old men in black suits. The previous battle with Roger yielded considerable results, proving it's worth a try. However, the reports I received indicate that the best outcome is to capture him alive. CP7's complete annihilation undoubtedly has something to do with him, and this time, sending the top CP0 trio is also to investigate that matter. Another old man, also in a black suit but with brown-yellow hair unlike the others' white, stated. Deploying 3 high-ranking CP0 agents at once is an extremely rare occurrence in government history, added a man in a kimono with round spectacles, holding a large katana. Success is the only option. Failure is not permitted. His thoughts snapped back. Alucard suddenly opened his eyes and burst into roaring laughter. So that's it? That's how it is. Through the effects of the black light virus, he had fully grasped the entire cause and effect of the situation, and now understood why CP0 had come for him. Were those the legendary 5 elders? And Dr. Vegapunk, mentioned in their conversation, also left a deep impression on Alucard. The man rumored to possess a technological intellect 500 years ahead of the world. Alucard suddenly remembered the seastone bullets he had been tirelessly searching for. If this was the man who could create pacifistas, good, it's decided. Alucard silently affirmed to himself, then turned towards the city behind him. Seen enough, Gold Roger. A blur of motion, and Roger appeared before him, scratching the back of his head with an unconcerned laugh. I certainly saw something interesting today. Can you convey a message for me? Alucard asked abruptly. Roger mused slightly, beginning to listen to Alucard's words. On Water 7's north coast, when the CP0 chief officer, clad in a blood-stained white suit, walked towards them, the government agents' hearts nearly leaped out of their chests in fear. However, being professionally trained, they quickly raised their hands in salute. "Yes, sir," the chief officer said coldly. Mission failed. Recall everyone and return to Marine headquarters. Failed. The agent's eyes widened in disbelief. Only one of the original CP0 trio had returned, and he was covered in blood. Had the other 2 already? The agents dared not ask. They didn't want to die. The CP0's standing in the minds of government agents was akin to that of an admiral among the Marines. Could CP0 actually fail? It was simply unbelievable. Even if the government tried to conceal it, this was the largest port in the first half of the Grand Line. It couldn't be kept secret. It wouldn't be long before the news of CP0's defeat spread across the entire sea. After the ship set sail, an agent brought a den mushy to the chief officer's side, respectfully saying, "Sir, the Garosii have a call for you." These were the highest authorities in the entire world, everyone had to show them respect. The chief officer reached out and brought the den mushy's receiver to his mouth. "This is CP0. I hear your mission failed. What happened?" The speaker on the other end was one of the 5 elders, his tone and expression vividly conveyed by the den mushy. Hearing the 5 elders' cold tone, the professionally trained agents on the ship broke out in cold sweat. One wrong move, and they might all pay the price. Dracula D. Alucard possesses abilities that are exceedingly troublesome, no less so than the great pirates currently dominating the seas. This failure was indeed unexpected, but it wasn't due to our carelessness, it was simply because he was too difficult to deal with. After hearing this, the 5 elders fell silent for a moment. As the 5 individuals holding the highest power in the world, they possessed a fundamental ability to judge their subordinates. CP0 was a valuable tool of the government, they wouldn't simply discard them for one failure, but they also wouldn't let them off scot-free. After over 10 seconds of contemplation, the 5 elders on the other end stated, "Your disciplinary action will be discussed upon your return. Be prepared. You are to personally meet Kong and clearly brief him on this matter. As for Alucard, designate him a wanted criminal." The 5 elders pronounced each word distinctly. Chapter 62, Infiltrating Headquarters. Water 7, West Coast. "What's that commotion?" Tom, who was busy building Alucard's ship, couldn't help but ask. "It seems something happened with the world government people, but I don't know the specifics," one of Tom's shipwrights replied. "Hey, old man." A shout came, and Tom turned to see the red-haired kid from the Roger Pirates. Shanks quickly ran over and said, "Alucard told us to tell you he'll come for the ship later. Please keep working on it." "Has something happened?" Tom didn't think someone like Alucard would skip out on a debt. Something must have occurred. He had seen countless people in his life and possessed that much discernment. "I don't know, probably something interesting," Shanks shrugged. "Also, we've already paid you. After him, please build our ship quickly." "I understand. Don't worry," Tom nodded. After passing through the gates of justice, they finally arrived at Marine Headquarters, Marineford. "Sir, we will moor the ship at Marine Plaza. After your meeting with Fleet Admiral Kong, please return immediately. You also need to report to your superiors in the government," an agent reminded the CP0 chief officer as he walked beside him. "Just wait patiently," the chief officer responded coldly. "My apologies, I spoke out of turn." The agent quickly bowed his head in apology. Soon, training Marines noticed a tall figure in a conspicuous white suit, accompanied by several black-suited government agents, walking through the alleys of Marineford. CP0, huh? The Marines at headquarters silently noted. Their attire was too eye-catching. Only CP0 government agents were authorized to wear white suits. "CP0, come with me. The Fleet Admiral is waiting." Orders came from above. Yamakaji, wearing a vice admiral's coat and a cigarette dangling from his mouth, already stood at the building's entrance, addressing CP0. "Understood. All of you return to the ship and wait. I alone am enough." He sent all other government agents back to the ship, entering alone. The interior of the Marine Headquarters building was surprisingly Japanese in style. Upon reaching Kong's office door, they found it to be a sliding Japanese paper screen door. While it offered no defense, what was the point of an extra paper door if only those capable of breaking through could reach it anyway? Yamakaji stood at the doorway, signaling with his eyes that CP0 could enter. When the chief officer entered, he found himself in an office of extremely simple style. A desk was placed on a tatama mat, behind which sat a man in a black suit beneath a marine coat. It was Fleet Admiral Kong of Marine Headquarters. At this moment, Kong sat with his arms crossed, his face grim. His thick lips moved. CP0 actually failed. "This is truly unimaginable. I came this time to convey orders from above, immediately list Alucard as a wanted criminal. The bounty amount will be decided by the Marines," the chief officer said flatly, showing no reaction to the word failed. "Covering up the government's embarrassing failure, are they? A disgusting bunch." Although Kong was displeased, he perfectly concealed it, asking with a sneer, "Then, what charge shall we place upon him?" "A great criminal who slaughtered cadres of the government's direct agencies and stole important government secrets," the chief officer stated as if it were obvious. "They're practically forcing a crime onto him," Kong thought, annoyed. But compared to some of the government's other actions, this was nothing. So he said, "I understand. This matter will be handled entirely by the Marines. The government personnel may leave. One last thing." "What?" "May I be granted an audience with Dr. Vegapunk? Although I couldn't bring Alucard back, I can still relay some information to him," the chief officer said. "Such matters can simply be submitted to me in a report, and after I approve it, I can forward it to him." "No?" Kong asked plainly. "This work is considered very important within the government. It should be kept secret even from the Fleet Admiral at this time." Upon hearing this, Kong's eyes narrowed, and his aura erupted, shaking the entire building. Outside the door, Yamakaji secretly thought, "The Fleet Admiral is furious." "I am merely conveying orders from above," the chief officer said calmly, causing Kong's aura to recede significantly. The meaning was simple: if you have an issue, take it up with the 5 elders, it has nothing to do with me. The government people had best keep a lower profile. Haven't they just lost 2 high-ranking CP0 personnel in one go? Kong sneered repeatedly. The chief officer inwardly chuckled. It was 3. However, this was enemy headquarters, it was best to keep a low profile. Soon, Kong issued the pass, granting CP0 permission to meet Dr. Vegapunk. Chapter 63, Vegapunk's Obsession. Marine Headquarters, Scientific Research Unit. Dr. Vegapunk and his team of scientists were currently conducting research on sea stone. Vegapunk-san, we've discovered that this material, known as sea stone, is formed by drawing and condensing the power of the sea. Like the ocean itself, it has the effect of rendering devil fruit users powerless. Users who come into contact with it become completely debilitated in a short period. An assistant approached Dr. Vegapunk and reported. Dr. Vegapunk nodded gravely, then proposed an idea. If we were to fashion it into weapons, wouldn't it become the bane of devil fruit users? Vegapunk-san, that's impossible. Aside from its hardness, which far surpasses diamond, the development cost alone would be an unimaginable sum. The Marines and the government would likely prefer to spend that money elsewhere than invest so much in sea stone weapons, the assistant replied without hesitation. Just then, another researcher in a white lab coat hurried over and quietly reported to Dr. Vegapunk. Vegapunk-san, the CP0 agent is here to see you. Oh, after their defeat by that pirate hunter, they still have the gall to come find me, Dr. Vegapunk said with a displeased expression. He had already learned of CP0's failure to capture Alucard, and he was quite unhappy about it. Let him in. Regardless, he represents the world government, Dr. Vegapunk instructed. Soon, the laboratory doors opened, and a man in a white suit, draped in a large cloak and wearing a mask, walked in. As soon as he entered the lab, he declared, "Everyone except Dr. Vegapunk, leave. What follows is not for your ears." The identity of CP0 needed no further explanation. Over 20 top marine researchers present immediately exited the research lab upon hearing this. What can a CP0 agent want with me? Or rather, what does the government want? Dr. Vegapunk showed no fear. Although his current status wasn't yet that high, his importance was no less than that of CP0. Furthermore, he was now fully in charge of the highly crucial Seastone research project, further elevating his standing. It's my first time meeting you, genius scientist Dr. Vegapunk, the CP0 chief officer said abruptly. What are you talking about? Haven't we met several times before? As he finished speaking, Dr. Vegapunk's expression suddenly changed. No, you feel different from before. You're not CP0. Who are you? Who I am isn't important. But if I can infiltrate as a CP0 agent, then with your intellect, you should be able to imagine I can do much more, yes. Although masked, Dr. Vegapunk could imagine the smile beneath the man's mask. But he was not flustered. You've come to me not to kill me. Instead, you must have something you want me to do. Communicating with intelligent people is convenient, but also quite annoying, the chief officer said coldly. I want you to manufacture seastone bullets. In large quantities, as many as possible, ideally endlessly. The chief officer stated his demand. Dr. Vegapunk's eyes narrowed. He had just started contemplating the idea of seastone as a weapon, and now someone was already making such a request. If I refuse, will you take my life here? Dr. Vegapunk asked. This is a negotiation. I permit you to state your conditions, the CP0 agent replied chillingly. Alucard, Dr. Vegapunk said without hesitation. Dracula D. Alucard's blood. Or rather, give me his life to research, let me dissect him. Compared to seastone, Dr. Vegapunk was undoubtedly more interested in Alucard's blood, his cells, his genes. It was an unknown existence. If successfully researched, it might even break the structure of the food chain. Dr. Vegapunk desperately wanted to research it. A slight smirk played on the lips of the face behind the CP0 mask. This guy still doesn't understand the key to the blacklight virus. Unlike the 100% infectivity of ghouls, the blacklight virus has extremely low infectivity. While it can create infected individuals, an infected biting another infected won't transmit it. This meant it couldn't become like a Resident Evil scenario where the entire world gets infected. Like Moria's zombies, infected individuals couldn't go into the sea unless they were blacklight birds, flyers. But those were too weak, solvable by a Rear Admiral level officer. Truly powerful infected individuals wouldn't follow orders and wouldn't go into the sea. At most, they'd become a regional overlord, not a world-ending weapon. If it meant a trade, Alucard still felt it was a very worthwhile one. Chapter 64, Rising Commotion. Alucard and Dr. Vegapunk finally reached an agreement, with the most fundamental condition being a quid pro quo, a direct exchange of money for goods. The location for this exchange was Basenber Island, one of the research facilities Dr. Vegapunk used before the world government recruited him to the scientific laboratory at Marine Headquarters. Once the seastone bullets were complete, he would find a way to place them there, and Alucard would also need to prepare what he wanted to complete the transaction. Basenber Island was located in the New World. It was once part of the territory of a dominant family but was eradicated by the Marines several years ago. Due to its abundance of rare animals, it was temporarily being used as a marine training base. When will you be able to complete what I want? Alucard, still in his CP0 disguise, asked. Well, fashioning seastone into weapons like swords already requires immense effort, let alone developing higher difficulty, higher quantity bullets. It's impossible in a short amount of time. How about this, the moment the news of Seastone is disseminated worldwide will be your signal. You can come retrieve them then, Dr. Vegapunk replied. It's a deal. Alucard turned to leave, placing the bullets used by Jackal on the laboratory table in front of Dr. Vegapunk. These are the bullet samples required for the Seastone bullets. Make them according to this. I understand. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, Dr. Vegapunk waved. Ha! Alucard chuckled softly, leaving the research lab. Dr. Vegapunk, meanwhile, quickly hid the bullets. This was, after all, illegal, but with his capabilities, it was a minor matter. Meanwhile, Alucard, still disguised as a CP0 agent, entered the residential streets of Marineford. This area was primarily inhabited by the families of high-ranking Marine officials. Because they were so famous, they made many enemies, leading many families to reside here, behind the Marine headquarters building. Alucard walked along, finding few people around, but he could tell that there were surveillance den mushi positioned throughout the area. If he returned to the ship in this disguise, he would undoubtedly be taken back to Marijoy's as a genuine CP0 agent. He had to make his escape here. However, the nearby surveillance den mushi had to be dealt with first. With that thought, several bats suddenly flew out from Alucard's wide sleeves, soaring forward. In the Marine surveillance room, a Marine monitoring personnel, who was slacking off, suddenly saw one of the countless surveillance screens go black. He couldn't help but wonder, what's going on? Is the den mushi sick? Den mushi were living creatures. If they lost their life or were killed, they naturally wouldn't display a picture. Immediately investigate and see what the problem is. In other branches, such a matter might not be taken so seriously, but this was Marine headquarters, Marineford. Everything had to be held to the strictest standards. Meanwhile, Alucard walked beneath the surveillance den mushi that his bats had killed. Soon, two soldiers approached. Upon seeing Alucard, they immediately saluted. Alucard gestured to them, signaling them to come closer. The two exchanged confused glances and stood before him. They heard Alucard say, I have something I need you to report to Marine superiors, and that is... Bang! As the two soldiers focused, preparing to hear what he wanted to say, Alucard's left and right fists suddenly pierced their abdomens. Before they could even utter a sound, the black light virus consumed them. And in that very instant, Alucard transformed from his CP0 disguise into the appearance of an ordinary Marine soldier. On the other side, at the Marine Plaza dock, the agents on the government ship had been waiting for over 4 hours, but there was still no sign of the CP0 chief officer, causing them to grow anxious. Although they knew this was Marine headquarters, it was impossible for anything to happen there. Currently, the Marines were increasingly disregarding the government's directives, and the two sides' interactions were far less harmonious than outsiders imagined. The government agents didn't want to cause trouble in Marine territory, while the Marines, upon seeing government ships, would avoid them if possible, not wanting to proactively engage with them. On the other side of the plaza, Alucard, now in the guise of one of the soldiers he had just consumed, walked along and spotted a Marine warship docked at the shore. Its sails were raised, indicating it was preparing for deployment. If it were merely docked and unused, its sails would be furled. Since they were raised, it meant it was about to set sail. Where is this warship headed? Alucard asked a passing Marine, from an inconspicuous position. Chapter 65, Commotion Rises. That's Vice Admiral Seuss's ship, heading to Water 7 for investigation. You know there's been a lot going on there recently, right? The Marine replied, seeing no classified information in the question. The Marine glanced at Alucard, then asked, which Admiral's subordinate are you? You don't seem to be under Vice Admiral Seuss. A Marine Vice Admiral commanded thousands of subordinates, so it was impossible for everyone to know each other. However, at a time of deployment, asking where the ship was going did make one suspect that this person wasn't part of the team. To be honest, I'm thinking of requesting a transfer to a different leader, so I'm looking around during my shift. What do you think of Vice Admiral Seuss? Alucard chatted casually, his expression unchanged. Oh, I see. But you shouldn't talk about things like that so casually, or you'll be in for trouble, the Marine now understood. Indeed, the number of Marines dissatisfied with their superiors and looking to transfer could be described as countless. The most famous example at the moment was the newly appointed Marine Vice Admiral, Sakazuki, a magma fruit user. He was so strict with his subordinates that it bordered on abusive. This management style led many soldiers to rebel and collectively seek transfers, even escalating to Admiral Sengoku's attention. Sengoku decided Sakazuki needed to change his ways, so he temporarily placed him under Garp's command to temper his sharp edges. Please, come over here and tell me more specifically. Alucard pulled the Marine into a corner. After all, how could one discuss superiors in public? Vice Admiral Seuss, he's strict, but not bad. It's tolerable under him, the Marine replied. Is that so? Thanks for the info. Transferring isn't simple, so don't act recklessly. All right, I'm off. We're about to set sail. The Marine turned to leave, but suddenly, a blade condensed from the black light virus pierced his throat from behind. The black light virus unleashed its power, consuming him into Alucard's body. In less than 5 seconds, Alucard emerged from the corner, his face now completely different. Whoa! Just then, the call to action blared. A Marine warrant officer stood at the bow of the warship, shouting, Vice Admiral Seuss is preparing to deploy. All hands, prepare to board. Alucard smiled faintly and boarded the warship. 6 hours later, the government personnel finally lost their patience and went to Marine headquarters to inquire about the situation. However, Yamakaji, who was responsible for receiving CP0, was utterly confused upon hearing this. Hadn't he already left? Even if he walked, surely he would have made it back in 6 hours? If they followed normal reasoning, that CP0 agent had been missing for 6 hours. Yamakaji pondered, realizing the gravity of the situation. He immediately turned and went upstairs to meet Fleet Admiral Kong, reporting the incident. A CP0 agent, missing for 6 hours? Why are you only reporting this now? Kong slammed his desk in fury. Fleet Admiral, you know the strained relationship between the government and the Marines. They probably don't want to get too involved with us. Yamakaji nearly bit through his cigar. A CP0 agent, and a chief officer at that, going missing at Marine headquarters. The seriousness of such an event was unimaginable. Immediately initiate a Level 2 alert. Order all personnel to conduct a search. Notify the surveillance team to thoroughly check every monitoring location. Report any issues immediately. Kong commanded, waving his hand. Soon, a fierce alarm blared throughout Marineford, and all personnel went into search mode. However, Kong's first thought was Dr. Vegapunk, who had met with the CP0 agent after him. He immediately dispatched someone to question him. Marine Chief of Staff Tsuru quickly led her team to Dr. Vegapunk. After sending the others away, before Tsuru could even ask, Dr. Vegapunk preemptively said, "This isn't about the CP0 agent who just came here, is it?" "You knew?" Tsuru asked, crossing her arms over her chest. He was a bit odd. "Odd? Yes, I've dealt with CP0 several times. While I can't claim to know them intimately, I do have some discernment. The CP0 agent who came here just now felt a little different from before." Dr. Vegapunk was clever. He deliberately revealed some issues, thereby perfectly deflecting suspicion. "What did you discuss with him?" Tsuru asked again. "Some issues regarding CP0's failed mission in Water 7. Much of the rest is confidential, I won't say more." Tsuru asked a few more questions, but ultimately, with Dr. Vegapunk's evasiveness, she couldn't extract any more information and had to give up, returning to report to Kong. Chapter 66, Recalled to Headquarters. Report, these are the results obtained from Dr. Vegapunk. After Tsuru finished her report to Kong, another Marine Rear Admiral stepped forward, holding a document, and added, "Report, the surveillance room indicates that approximately 4 hours ago, a surveillance den mushi in an inner street west of the science lab was suddenly destroyed. We suspect this is related to the CP0's disappearance." "Such a coincidence definitely has a reason," Kong stated gravely. "It was extremely rare for a den mushi to malfunction in a normal environment. Yet, for it to coincidentally break down at the same time as the CP0 incident, there was no way it could be a mere coincidence. It seemed everything had to start from that surveillance point. Where is the damaged den mushi?" Kong asked deeply. "Report? Location C12, the Rear Admiral replied. "Tsuru, you will investigate with Rear Admiral Bartley. Return to me with the results as quickly as possible." "Yes, sir." Garp. After calling out, Kong heard no response. He turned to see Garp with his arms crossed, head down, bubbles emerging from his nose, and occasional snores. "Garp!" Kong roared, popping the bubbles from Garp's nose. Garp, startled, quickly looked up, and wide-eyed said, oh no, I fell asleep. Did you hear anything I just said?" If there wasn't a time crunch, Kong would have already sent a punch flying at this scoundrel. Garp smacked his lips, wiping away the drool from the corner of his mouth. Very, very serious, after all, they're the government's ace investigators. Very serious. Tsuru, standing nearby, couldn't help but sigh, though she was used to Garp's antics. "You, Sakazuki, and Kuzan will lead your respective teams to search and apprehend all suspicious individuals." All right, Garp responded perfunctorily. He couldn't care less about the government. Sigh, Kong sighed, finally looking at Sengoku. "Sengoku, halt all ships preparing to sail. I suspect the opponent possesses highly sophisticated stealth techniques, including disguise. Perhaps he's waiting for one of our warships to depart so he can easily escape." "Understood," Sengoku nodded, accepting the order. He couldn't help but purse his lips slightly. "But Fleet Admiral Kong, 2 warships have already departed within the last 2 hours. Kong's eyes narrowed. "Which 2? Rear Admiral Brandley's ship, heading for patrol in the North Blue, and Vice Admiral Suse's ship, heading to Water 7 for investigation. Recall them immediately. Notify them to keep a close eye on every person on board their ships, to conduct a thorough head count, and not to let a single soul escape," Kong ordered. "It's just a government agent, why bother alarming the entire headquarters? Anyway, leave this matter to Sakazuki and Kuzan. I'm going home to eat donuts." Garp waved dismissively, turned, and pulled open the door to leave. Under normal circumstances, Kong would at least loudly scold him, but this time, Garp actually had a point. No matter how important CP0 was, it wasn't enough to warrant the entire Marine headquarters being thrown into a frenzy. The key was the world government standing behind them. Pair. On a warship bound for Water 7, the captain, also the highest-ranking officer on the vessel, Vice Admiral Seuss, suddenly received a call from headquarters via his deputy. "Vice Admiral Seuss, return to headquarters immediately. Bring your entire crew back to headquarters at once." Seuss, holding the den mushi, frowned upon hearing the urgent message from headquarters. Has something happened? There's no time to explain, Vice Admiral Seuss. Please return to headquarters immediately, return to headquarters. The voice was indeed from headquarters. Helpless, Seuss could only order the ship to turn back. Approximately 50 meters away, a soldier patrolling by the bow of the ship heard his words, and his eyes subtly shifted. Finally, they've realized? But we've already passed through the gates of justice, so I suppose it doesn't matter now. He first needed to stop this ship from returning to headquarters, no, rather, from returning inside the gates of justice. Finding an excuse to leave temporarily, Alucard made his way to the ship's internal control room. Meanwhile, Seuss entered a room alone, redialed the den mushy, and asked, "There's no one else around me now. Can you tell me what's going on?" The person on the other end, hearing this, quickly replied, "Vice Admiral Seuss, you must be careful. There might be a soldier on your ship who is an enemy impersonating one of your own. It's too complicated to explain how to check your crew right now, and there's no time to tell you the whole story. In short, there's a strong possibility that there's a fake marine on your ship, and their strength might even surpass yours. You must be careful." Chapter 67, This Pirate is Smart. I understand. Seuss hung up the den mushy and pondered in silence for a few seconds. An enemy has infiltrated? If that's the case, then the opponent first infiltrated Marine headquarters and then snuck onto my ship? But first, they would have had to enter Marineford. Who is this person? How could they possess such capabilities? Regardless of his thoughts, he could only follow headquarters orders, temporarily halt their course and return to headquarters. Seuss quickly left the room and walked to the center of the deck, waving his hand to order the Marines. All hands, prepare to change the ship's direction, prepare to return to headquarters. A soldier's nature was to obey, especially for those who had undergone rigorous military education at Marine headquarters. Not one of them asked a superfluous question. They quickly prepared to change direction and return to headquarters. However, at that moment, outside the internal control room below the ship's deck, a soldier entered and was immediately stopped by the guards, who asked, "Hey, what are you doing? I have something to." The soldier who had come there hadn't finished speaking when he suddenly pulled out two guns from behind, pressing them against the necks of the two guards at the door. Two gunshots, bang, bang, caused their necks to erupt. Crash. As he kicked open the door, Alucard also reverted to his original form. This was the ship's internal structure. Everything before him was complex, specialized machinery. If this massive warship were likened to a living being, this room was its most vital organ. A large warship naturally had professionals monitoring it 24 hours a day, ensuring no problems arose with its internal workings. Upon hearing the commotion at the door, a worker in a white vest and headband quickly approached. You, who are you?" The worker, seeing Alucard's appearance, instantly understood that this person was definitely not a Marine and immediately questioned him. "Where is the device that controls the ship's direction?" Alucard raised his right index finger and pointed it at the worker. That finger seemed to emit a magical power. The worker, who had been about to press the alarm, froze the moment he saw Alucard's finger, the focus in his eyes becoming hazy. Alucard asked again, "Where is the key to controlling the ship's direction?" The worker slowly raised a hand and pointed to a massive steel pipe on the left, stammering, there, that's the main pipeline for controlling the ship's direction." "Is that so? Thank you." Alucard turned and walked towards the spot the worker indicated. After Alucard left, the worker remained standing there blankly, as if he had been brainwashed. Alucard reached the massive iron pipe, raised both his guns, and fired continuously. Bang 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 bang. As the iron pipe was progressively destroyed, Seuss and the others on the bow deck clearly felt the ship shaking. Could it be a Sea King attack? Seuss quickly steadied himself and called out to the surrounding crew, "What's happening?" "Control room, report." In the control room, a Marine rushed out and exclaimed, "Vice Admiral, the ship's direction can't be controlled. It seems there's a problem with the ship." Seuss gritted his teeth and thought, has the enemy already made their move? Connect the den mushy. Contact headquarters and tell them to send reinforcements, quickly, quickly. Seuss wasn't afraid. As a vice admiral at Marine headquarters, there wasn't much left in this world that could scare him. However, being isolated on the open sea with his main means of transport uncontrollable, he had to contact headquarters first. It seemed that of the two warships, the enemy was indeed hidden on his own. Soon, Marine Chief of Staff Tsuru's den mushy connected. Tsuru heard the Marine on the other end calling for help. Report, report, Seuss's unit is under attack. The warship is damaged. The warship is damaged. It's uncontrollable. Requesting headquarters support. Requesting headquarters support. Tsuru here, who is the enemy? Tsuru quickly stood up and gestured to the female soldiers under her command, signaling them to prepare. Report? We're still investigating. The enemy severed our warship's control shaft. It's now unable to navigate. Stay where you are. We're dispatching support immediately. However, just as Tsuru finished speaking, another loud bang came from the other end. Tsuru quickly asked, "What else happened?" Seuss's unit, answer quickly. Re-report? We can't stop the ship. It seems the control device was also destroyed, and we can't stop the ship. The ship is now traveling at maximum speed, moving away from headquarters. Bang! Tsuru slammed her hand heavily on the table and said in a deep voice, "Stay calm, I'll handle this immediately." With that, Tsuru stood up and rushed towards Marine Plaza, telling the female soldier beside her, "Notify superiors to prepare for immediate deployment? Call Saul and the others. We're preparing to launch." "Yes, ma'am." "This pirate is quite smart," Tsuru muttered to herself. Chapter 68, That was all it took. Report? Vice Admiral Seuss. The ship can't be stopped. According to our inspection, the internal control system has been neutralized by the enemy, the Marine Warrant Officer reported to Seuss. Even with manual piloting, the ship continued to surge forward. Vice Admiral Tsuru had intended for them to stop and await rescue, but the enemy had apparently seen through that plan. "Where is the enemy now?" Seuss asked, his face grim. "How humiliating? For me, Seuss, a dignified Marine Headquarters Vice Admiral, to be outmaneuvered like this? If I don't catch this person, how can I ever show my face at headquarters again?" "Well, we've already dispatched soldiers to search the entire warship, but from the current situation, the enemy also possesses highly advanced stealth or shape-shifting abilities, capable of evading our detection. They might even be closer than we think." Bang! The Marine Warrant Officer hadn't finished speaking when Seuss, relying on pure instinct, abruptly flashed his body, already standing at the ship's railing. At that moment, his former subordinate, the Warrant Officer, held a large, long-barreled gun, its muzzle still emitting wisps of white smoke. Warrant Officer? What are you doing?" The Warrant Officer's actions completely stunned the surrounding soldiers. He was Seuss's most trusted subordinate. Why would he open fire on his own superior? You've done this to my subordinates." Seuss's face was dark. The blue suit beneath his uniform was stained crimson. Although he had narrowly avoided a fatal blow at the last second, the bullet had still grazed the skin on his side. "As expected of a Marine Headquarters Vice Admiral. Your skills are extraordinary." The Warrant Officer's body was enveloped in an irregularly shaped mass of gore, which slowly dissipated, revealing Alucard's true form. In an instant, every Marine soldier raised their guns, with over 200 rifles aimed at Alucard. "Is your ability to transform into the person you've killed?" Seuss speculated. "While there are some differences, you could roughly say that," Alucard replied, head held high, with a slight chuckle. "I don't recognize you. Are you not on any wanted posters?" "No, your fleet admiral is already preparing my wanted poster. It's a shame you won't live to see it, and I have no intention of introducing myself." Seuss's eyes narrowed. "You're just a pirate. Don't get ahead of yourself." Seuss suddenly swept his arm, and over 200 rifles fired simultaneously. Bang, 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 bang. Gunshots echoed incessantly, aiming to tear Alucard to shreds. Seuss commanded, "Leave him with one last breath. I need to interrogate him." All Marine Headquarters personnel, at such close range, could aim perfectly, targeting Alucard's limbs. In less than 5 seconds, countless bullets had riddled Alucard's arms and legs with holes. "He's bleeding. He's not a Logia-type devil fruit user," Seuss thought to himself. Although Alucard was still standing, continued combat in this state seemed impossible. "Well, pirate, can you answer my questions now?" Seuss leaped down from the railing and asked. Bang! Suddenly, Alucard abruptly raised his gun, and casual fired. Fortunately, Seuss's reaction speed was quick enough to dodge the bullet. However, Alucard wasn't just targeting Seuss. The shadows beneath his feet rapidly spread, and countless shadowy hands emerged from Alucard's shadow, lunging at the soldiers. "Ayah!" Some soldiers couldn't help but scream as the shadowy hands clawed at them, desperately firing bullets to fend them off. Bang, bang, bang. Alucard's bullets fired continuously, while Seuss drew the katana from his waist to defend himself. But soon, he noticed his beloved blade beginning to warp. What kind of bullets are these? Seuss suppressed the shock in his heart, but even more astonishing things were yet to come. The wounds on Alucard's hands and feet were healing, rapidly. Alucard the Immortal? Seuss suddenly remembered the pirate hunter who had been making waves in the Grand Line recently. Could it be this guy? Bang, bang, bang. Facing the ceaseless barrage of bullets, Seuss knew that if he didn't take action, his sword would soon be shattered. He quickly covered his sword with armament haki, barely managing to block Alucard's attacks. "You can heal, can you? Then I'll chop off your head and pierce your heart," Seuss roared, charging forward. His left hand, not holding the sword, brought his index and middle fingers together, unleashing a blast of air pressure capable of easily piercing rock. Shigan. Thud. He succeeded. Alucard's heart was pierced by Seuss's Shigan. Even Seuss himself couldn't believe it. Success had come far too easily. As Seuss and the other Marines watched in astonishment, Alucard slowly fell backward, a large gash torn through his chest by the Shigan. Vice Admiral. Did we succeed? The surviving soldiers asked in disbelief. Such an easy victory certainly invited suspicion. Chapter 69, Headquarters can't know. Hey. Suddenly, a seaman first-class Marine ordered the subordinate next to him, "Go confirm his death." The seaman recruit Marine was instantly startled by these words, looking at his superior in surprise, only to receive a look of disdain. "I told you to go, so go? What are you afraid of? He's a man with no heart." This. As the saying goes, a higher rank can crush a man. What's more, the other party was 2 ranks above him. The Marine had no choice but to accept his bad luck and walk towards the fallen Alucard, comforting himself. "He doesn't even have a heart, how could he possibly be alive?" Besides, he bled during the fight, so he's probably not a Logia type. Under Seuss's intensely focused gaze, hundreds of people watched as he slowly squatted beside Alucard, tentatively checking for a pulse. The Marine's finger rested on Alucard's chest for about 3 seconds before he looked up and reported to Seuss, Vice Admiral, he's no longer breathing. Even Seuss couldn't help but exhale. Although the success felt eerily easy, this would confirm the death of Alucard the Immortal. Suddenly, a wave of killing intent washed over them. Seuss, who had closed his eyes, snapped them open. He saw Alucard, who had been lying on the ground, pierce the Marine's heart, then instantaneously withdraw his hand, licking the blood-soaked limb. Replenishment complete, Alucard said, word by word, with a chuckle. Shoot, shoot. Seuss was genuinely terrified now. 2 seconds later, he screamed at the top of his lungs. The other soldiers reacted in quick succession, hurriedly raising their guns to attack. Forget about leaving him alive, just kill him first. This time, they weren't aiming to avoid vital points, they were attacking his entire body, intent on utterly destroying every part of him. Several seconds later, Alucard's body transformed into countless bats that flew into the sky, then slowly reformed back into his human shape. Damn it, he's a monster. Seuss gritted his teeth, drew his sword, and leaped into the air, engaging Alucard head-on. Connect the Den Mushi. Contact headquarters. Tell them the intruder is Alucard. Pirate Hunter Alucard, get this message out, quickly. Seuss continuously launched a furious barrage of attacks at Alucard, while also barking orders at his subordinates. Oh, no, you won't. You can't let headquarters know about this. Alucard sneered, letting the sword attacks land on him. But upon spotting any Den Mushi, he destroyed them without hesitation. Alucard. Seuss roared. Seizing the moment when Alucard destroyed another Den Mushi, he chopped off Alucard's right hand. However, defying the laws of physics, the hand didn't fall to the ground. Instead, it dissolved into countless dark particles, reattaching to Alucard's arm. Alucard used this opportunity to fire back, his black gun, Jackal, blasting Seuss's left shin. Gwa! His left calf was completely blown apart. Seuss lost his footing and fell to the ground, the other Marines immediately looking at him anxiously. Don't worry about me. Quickly, send the message back to headquarters. Report the enemy's identity. Seuss roared. Since Alucard was so desperate to keep his invasion of headquarters a secret, there had to be some unspeakable motive behind it. If that was the case, even if he couldn't be captured, headquarters must know the truth. I already said no, didn't I? A golden glint flashed in Alucard's eyes. With thermal vision activated, he scanned all the soldiers present, clearly seeing who had Den Mushi on them. You. Alucard called them out one by one. He didn't finish off Seuss but instead shot down the Den Mushi hidden within the soldiers' clothes, one by one. Damn it! Does this guy really not want headquarters to know it was him? Blood spilled from Seuss's mouth. He knew that the more Alucard acted this way, the more dangerous his actions at headquarters must have been. After so many shots, presumably all the Den Mushi were destroyed. Without him, defeat was only a matter of time. Given the ship's current condition, Vice Admiral Tsuru's reinforcements would take at least 5 hours to arrive. In an instant, Seuss assessed the overall situation of the battle. He suddenly bellowed an order, everyone, jump overboard. Even if you have to swim, swim back to headquarters. Take this message back. Everyone, jump overboard. Alucard abruptly turned to look at Seuss, who had managed to stand up. All the soldiers were stunned by Seuss's command. While all Marines who weren't devil fruit users could swim, such an order seemed utterly preposterous. Chapter 70, The Mystery. As their comrades sacrificed themselves one by one, the Marines realized that instead of staying on the ship to die, it was better to take a desperate leap into the sea. Their chances of survival would be higher. Many began jumping overboard. Alucard, witnessing this, looked at Seuss with interest. Do you think you can escape from my grasp like this? To think someone like you would emerge from the pirate world. The seas are about to churn again, though it seems I won't be around to see it. Seuss let out a mournful laugh. One of his legs had been blown off, but he still managed to raise himself up on his remaining foot. Alucard tilted his head. In that case, I'll send each of you on your way. Seuss roared, supporting himself on one leg, and abruptly lunged forward. Even having lost a leg, he was still considered among the masters. Your life is mine, Alucard said, cocking black gun Jackal. Several hours later, in a certain sea area in the first half of the Grand Line, a patrolling small marine fleet discovered a large marine warship adrift. Subconsciously, they rushed to investigate, only to find it filled with the corpses of marine soldiers. Among them were the body of a marine vice admiral. The branch personnel quickly reported this news to headquarters, and headquarters immediately assigned the matter to Vice Admiral Tsuru. Several more hours passed, totaling over half a day. 2 warships were speeding across the ocean surface, one led by Marine Chief of Staff and Vice Admiral Tsuru's female soldier corps, and the other by Marine Rear Admiral Saul. Upon arriving to investigate, Tsuru, on her way to the remains of Seuss's fleet, spoke to the local Marines. Along the way, we've constantly seen the bodies of soldiers floating on the sea. Some were killed by bullets, others by swords piercing their bodies. I've more or less anticipated what happened, but more investigation is needed. When Tsuru pulled back the white sheet covering Seuss's body, she frowned. Seuss has been a veteran vice admiral for many years. To be killed by an intruder, the opponent's body must be extraordinary. Saul of the giant race stood on the dock, arms crossed, humbly lowering his head to ask, Officer Tsuru, have you identified the enemy? How could it be that fast? First, bring me a den mushy. I need to give headquarters a preliminary report. Tsuru glared at Saul with annoyance, while Saul chuckled foolishly. 2 days later, Tsuru reported to headquarters. She was unable to determine the culprit's identity or the number of infiltrators, as the enemy had already escaped. A fake. Currently, Tsuru could only report the casualties and characteristics of Success unit. Based on her deductions, combined with Dr. Vegapunk's earlier statements, the CP0 agent who entered Marineford and spoke with Kong was likely an imposter. His true objective still required further investigation. After 3 consecutive days of meetings, Kong and the world government reached a consensus: they would suppress this matter. The opponent clearly didn't want this incident exposed. If it were an ordinary pirate, they would at least leave their name at the scene, letting the Marines know who did it, to increase their bounty. However, according to Tsuru's investigation, there was nothing left at the scene, which was enough to deduce that the opponent didn't want to publicize it. If it became known that Marineford had been infiltrated by a fake, resulting in the loss of an entire fleet, and that the government agents couldn't even recognize a CP0 imposter, then both the Marines and the government would lose face. From every perspective, it was better to suppress this matter. In a certain sea area in the first half of the Grand Line, on the pirate ship of Dedolite Heart, the captain's seat was now occupied by a stranger. It was simple: the captain had just been killed. The Heart Pirates had over 150 members, qualifying as a medium to large pirate crew. But just moments ago, a swarm of bats suddenly flew from a distance, descended from the sky, and transformed into a single person. In an instant, this person killed their captain and most of the pirate crew's key members. Of the original 150-plus members, only a little over 30 remained, the least experienced. The one who committed this act was, naturally, Alucard. After annihilating Success' entire unit, Alucard abandoned that warship and chose a nearby pirate ship. Conveniently, the Heart Pirates had sailed right into his trap. How much longer until we reach Water 7? Alucard asked, standing at the bow of the ship. A crew member of the Heart Pirates shivered and quickly scurried forward. Yes, sir. At this speed, it'll take about another week. Alucard's tone seemed a bit displeased. The crew member quickly bowed his head and explained, apologies, sir. From here to Water 7 is mostly against the current, so it takes a bit more time. Never mind. Consider it a relaxing journey. Alucard turned to look at the night sky. The moon hadn't appeared yet. Chapter 71, Iron Giant Ship. Sir, we've arrived at Water 7. A former grunt of the Heart Pirates bowed respectfully next to Alucard, who was lounging in a deck chair. The Heart Pirates originally numbered over 150, but after Alucard's sudden invasion, only 30-odd remained. After a week-long journey, by the time they reached Water 7, only 12 were left. The reason was simple: throughout that week, some had attempted to assassinate Alucard, only to be swiftly eliminated themselves. In the end, only this handful remained. Ability development progress. Vampire physique complete form, 9%. Bat transformation complete form, 9%. Weapon, Casual LV4, 91%. Weapon, Jackal LV1, 74%. Blacklight Virus LV3, 44%. Hidden Shadow LV2, 36%. Alucard first checked his ability development progress. Ever since his vampire physique reached its complete form, its development had become exceptionally slow. This was understandable: the further one progressed, the slower the growth. It was like in an exam: improving from 60 to 80 points was a completely different level of difficulty than improving from 95 to 100 points. Hearing the grunt's voice, Alucard, who had been feigning sleep with his eyes closed, looked out to sea. A familiar island came into view in the distance. He had finally arrived. After Alucard disembarked, the remaining 12 Heart Pirates began discussing their next move. With their captain dead, the Heart Pirates were essentially defunct. They either had to choose a new captain or disband directly. However, Alucard no longer cared about them. Or rather, there wasn't anything in the world that truly occupied his thoughts at the moment, at least, not yet. As Alucard entered the inner alleys of Water 7, he suddenly noticed Marine patrol units roaming about. The security was significantly tighter compared to before. It seemed the Marines had either sent reinforcements or dispatched personnel to investigate the previous incident. There's no need for a fight right now, Alucard murmured to himself. His body abruptly transformed into countless bats, flying into the sky and heading towards Tom's workers on the west coast. Long time no see, Tom. Alucard greeted Tom, who was standing on the unfinished steel battleship on the west coast. Tom, who was hammering at the ship with his tools, looked down. Waving a tool, he said, "Oh, it's been nearly half a month. It truly has been a long time." With that, Tom jumped down from the bow of the ship, stretched his shoulders, then looked up at the ship behind him. "Most ships, I can build in a week. You're in luck this time, but whether it can sail is the most important question. Oh, of course, I haven't built a mast." Tom was smart enough not to ask Alucard what he had been doing for the past half-month, as it wasn't something he could meddle with. "No matter. How much longer until it's finished?" "It's going well. It should be fully completed the day after tomorrow," Tom said, hands on his hips. Oh, right, one more thing. Tom slapped his forehead. The last bit of the construction fee for this ship, the Roger pirates paid it for you. Alucard's eyes narrowed slightly. What? Roger said it was in return for a good thing he saw earlier. Well, what it was, I don't know, Tom said, his face showing his own disbelief. That guy. 3 days later. All right, now it's time to wait for the new ship to set sail. Alucard and Tom stood on the north coast of Water 7. The ship was completely shrouded in a large brown canvas. Tom held a corner of the canvas and extended his hand to Alucard. Here, as its master, be the first to witness the birth of this ship. Alucard took the corner of the canvas from Tom's hand and pulled it sharply. As the canvas fell away, the ship's true form was revealed to everyone. It was a sleek, pointed, steel giant, comparable in size to the future Thousand Sunny, equipped with gunboats, individual cabins, and a propulsion system. However, it lacked sails, which were the primary means of propulsion for ships in this world. Have you thought of a name for this ship? Tom inquired. When it becomes famous across the 4 seas, you can name it for me, Alucard said, taking out his sunglasses from inside his coat and putting them on. Suddenly, a briefcase emerged from the shadow beneath his feet. Here's the last of the shipbuilding fee I owe. Take it, Alucard said as he walked towards the ship. Didn't I say Roger paid for it? Then consider it a tip. Alucard boarded the warship. At the bow, a stone throne had been placed as per Alucard's request. Sitting there, he could enjoy an unobstructed view of the sea ahead. Chapter 72, Skull Pirates, Annihilated? If anyone were to ask Alucard which modern pirates he remembered by name, he would list Roger, Whitebeard, and Shiki the Golden Lion. But now, he'd have to add Red. This was what Alucard had read in the newspaper today. Red the Aloof had clashed with Golden Lion Shiki in the New World. Red, as a lone wolf, narrowly lost to Shiki, but still heavily damaged him and most of Shiki's fleet. So there's a character like that. Alucard put down the newspaper. When he looked up again, a familiar island, covered in giant trees and surrounded by bubbles, appeared in the distance. That was Sabaody Archipelago, the end of the first half of the Grand Line and the starting point for pirates heading to the New World. Finally arrived, Sabaody Archipelago. Alucard stood up, controlled his ship to dock, and landed at Grove 21, a lawless zone. The vessel he was on wasn't just any pirate ship he could find and discard, it was his own. He'd better protect it. Thinking this, Alucard firmly cast the anchor into the shore's mud and turned to leave. Frankly, no one but Alucard could operate this type of ship, so leaving it here shouldn't be a concern. The most urgent task was to find a coator. After passing through the Red Line, he would arrive in the New World and search for the island called Basenbur. The first thing to do after landing on the island would naturally be to get the ship coated. Even Alucard couldn't move freely 10,000 meters beneath the sea. Grove 23, one of the coating mechanics' gathering points. Pirates coming here were mostly preparing to enter the New World, and coating was a very popular business. I remember Rayleigh seemed to be involved in this in the future, too, right? The coating fee. And, you said it's a steel ship. In front of a ship factory in Grove 23, 2 coating mechanics asked in disbelief after hearing Alucard. A steel ship? Can a sail even move that? Just tell me the fee, Alucard said flatly, not intending to explain further. All right, since there was money to be made, the 2 workers didn't bother with more nonsense. They held up 2 fingers. 20 million berries. Seeing that Alucard was alone, not with a pirate crew, they figured he wasn't very knowledgeable and decided to rip him off for 20 million. Plus, this was one of the closest islands to Marine headquarters, which pirate would dare to cause trouble? Alucard hadn't given his answer when suddenly, footsteps sounded from behind him. From the 2 coating mechanics' perspective, they saw about 20 people, many with skull tattoos on their exposed arms, clearly indicating their identity. Hey, old man, we, the Skull Pirates, want our ship coated? Hurry up and give us a price. The beauties of Sabaody are waiting. A man with a massive skull tattoo on his arm spoke with extreme arrogance, his eyebrows furrowed. Captain, along the way, those pretty women made my heart itch. Let's hurry. Don't rush, Dizian. This place is very close to Marine headquarters, so try to cause less trouble. Once we're in the New World, you can do whatever you want. The captain of the Skull Pirates, Jeromia Barad, stood at the front of the group. Seeing Alucard blocking their way, he arrogantly shouted, "Hey, kid, get out of the way if you've got nothing to do." Suddenly, Alucard turned around, pulled out his white gun, casual, from his coat, and pressed it against Barad's chin. With a bang, the shot instantly caused Barad's neck to explode in a bloody spray, splattering half of Alucard's face with blood. Shup Alucard extended his tongue and licked Barad's blood from the side of his face. Dizian, a crew member of the Skull Pirates, suddenly reacted and ordered the crew members behind him. He killed the captain. What are you waiting for? Ada. Bang! Before he could utter the last word, his neck also exploded. At this point, the other members of the Skull Pirates finally started pulling out their weapons one after another, but Alucard had already charged into their midst, unleashing a massacre. Bang, 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 bang. A man in a red coat and crimson top hat, wielding 2 guns, danced amidst flying body parts and a sea of blood, a crazed smile on his face. He completely terrified many of the onlookers, coating mechanics, who wondered, doesn't he know where this is? Doesn't he know he shouldn't cause trouble here, or he'll attract Marines from headquarters? A crew member of the Skull Pirates bled profusely from his head, staining most of his face red. His breath was weak, and he barely managed to say, "You don't follow, pirate, are you rules?" Click. Alucard jammed the muzzle of Casual directly into his mouth. Bang! Brains, eyeballs, and blood mixed together as the man fell to the ground, his death gruesome. The last person. Dead. The Skull Pirates, annihilated. Ability development progress. Vampire physique complete form, 9%. Bat transformation complete form, 10%. Weapon, Casual LV4, 93%. Weapon, Jackal LV1, 76%. Blacklight Virus LV3, 47%. Hidden Shadow LV2, 40%. Barely any progress. Just small fry. A stack of wanted posters emerged from the hidden shadow beneath Alucard's feet. Alucard flipped through them twice, a smirk forming on his lips, revealing his vampiric fangs. His deep voice resonated from his throat. Jeromia Barad, captain of the Skull Pirates, bounty, 22,200,000 berries. Alucard looked down at the ground. Barad's neck had already been shot through by Alucard, and now only a thin layer of skin connected his head. Finding the corpse, Alucard grabbed his head, tearing it off along with the bit of skin still attached to the collarbone. Holding the still dripping head in front of the two mechanics from earlier, he chuckled. Here, 22,200,000 berries. Take it. Chapter 73, Capture Alive Only? The dead man's head, eyes wide open, staring blankly forward, sent shivers down the spines of the surrounding mechanics. That, we can't take heads for bounties. We'll be targeted by other pirate hunters. The mechanic who had quoted Alucard a price spoke with a trembling voice. When Alucard's eyes narrowed, the mechanic shuddered and quickly explained, This Sabayati archipelago is an island where many pirates, pirate hunters, and even the world government gather. Everything has its own rules. If we steal a pirate hunter's job, we won't have an easy life later. Where is the marine branch? I'll just take the head and exchange it for money myself. It's in Grove 66. After getting his answer, Alucard turned and left, carrying Barad's head. Before Alucard had even walked 2 meters, the mechanic chased after him, forcing a smile. Sir, could you please tell us where your ship is first? We'll code it for you in advance, and you can pay us later. Just later. Oh. Alucard looked at him with amusement, not exposing the mechanic's little scheme. Pier 23, the steel ship. Understood, understood. Please, take your time, the mechanic said, nodding repeatedly. After Alucard left, the other mechanics came over, asking in disbelief, Idiot, what are you doing? You want to work for free? You fools, didn't you see him casually killing people on this Sabayati archipelago? He's a lunatic? I was going to try and extort him earlier, and if he found out, I'd be dead. It's better to finish the job properly before he finds out, lest he comes to kill me later, the mechanic said, still shaken. Sabayati Archipelago Marine Base, Area 66. Captain Barad of the Skull Pirates, bounty 22,200,000 berries. Give me the bounty. When Alucard placed Barad's head on the pirate bounty counter, even the Marines couldn't help but swallow. After a response, 2 Marines quickly turned and entered the building to retrieve the bounty. As the two put the money into a canvas bag, one of the Marines suddenly paused, doubting, Hey, doesn't that bounty hunter's face look a bit familiar? Familiar. You stay here and handle this, I'll go check. The other Marine left through another door in the treasury. When he flipped through the latest wanted posters, he almost gasped in surprise. Only alive. Dracula D. Alucard. Bounty, 200 million berries. Wait, it says only alive at the very top? Does that mean capture alive only? He's a wanted man. The Marine was completely dumbfounded. A wanted criminal comes to a Marine base to kill a pirate for a bounty. What kind of play was this? But, since such a high bounty criminal had appeared, how could they let him escape? Thinking this, the Marine quickly ran out the door and pressed the alarm. Beep boop beep boop. In an instant, the alarm blared throughout the large Marine base. The surrounding Marines noticed the alarm coming from the bounty counter building and rushed over. In less than a moment, countless Marines swarmed the bounty counter where Alucard was. At this time, the Marine who was originally preparing to pay Alucard the bounty also emerged from inside with a large contingent of Marines, holding a wanted poster with Alucard's face on it. Dracula D. Alucard, with a bounty of 200 million. I never thought you'd walk right into our trap. Soldiers, seize him. Alucard looked at his wanted poster with slight surprise. When was I put on a bounty? I haven't been reading the newspaper lately because of the ship trials. Did I miss the news of my bounty just because I didn't read the paper for 2 days? If so, that would be quite a coincidence. Is this what they call truth stranger than fiction? Alucard chuckled, looking down. Everyone, be careful not to hit his vital points. The wanted poster has orders, he must be captured alive. The Marine held up the wanted poster, reminding everyone. Indeed, the words only alive were clearly written on the poster. The world government, still not giving up. Alucard also saw the wanted poster commanding his capture alive. He, of course, knew why the government would issue such an order. But, if I want to live, can your forces really kill me? Seriously, I came to this vacation island intending to enjoy myself properly. Alucard crossed his arms, reaching inside his greatcoat to pull out his black and white guns. No choice, then. Alucard shouted, beginning to spray bullets throughout the not-so-large hall. Ah ha 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 ha. Alucard laughed maniacally, gun muzzles flashing, continuously taking the lives of the surrounding Marines. Many Marines, seeing the unfavorable turn of events, quickly turned and hid in corners or behind cover, thinking, what capture alive? It's almost impossible for us to even protect ourselves. Immediately request backup from headquarters, a seaman first class told the subordinate next to him. Yes, sir. Alucard had no intention of getting entangled with these Marines. As he said earlier, he truly came to this island for a vacation. After collecting the bounty, he had planned to roam around Sabayati archipelago and enjoy himself, but who would have thought he was already wanted? Is this like a lamb walking into a tiger's den? Clang! Alucard condensed a giant sword from his black light virus, swung it fiercely, cutting down a dozen Marines, then merged his entire body into a shadow filled with eyes, sliding out through a crack that had just appeared. Alucard escaped. Chase him. Quickly, chase him. The Marines behind him shouted repeatedly. Chapter 74, much faster to steal money this way. Marine Headquarters. Marine Headquarters building, within Admiral Sengoku's office. Pair. Sengoku, who was reviewing documents, picked up the Den Mushi from his desk. The moment he lifted the receiver, the Den Mushi made an extremely anxious expression, urgently relaying, Admiral Sengoku, Alucard the Immortal has been sighted at Sabayati Archipelago, Grove 66, the Marine base. Our unit has been completely annihilated. Please advise. Sengoku's expression hardened. No one is to act rashly. Once you ascertain his location, initiate secret surveillance. I will send someone to handle this. Await orders. Yes, sir. After hanging up the Den Mushi, Sengoku stood up and called out, send Borsalino and Strawberry to my office. Tell them to prepare their ships. Half an hour later, 2 battleships departed from Marine Headquarters Marineford. Borsalino was sitting in the command room, his long legs propped on the table, a cigarette dangling from his mouth, as he looked at Alucard's wanted poster. A pirate with a 200 million bounty who can only be captured alive. How scary, any. At that moment, a Marine captain entered the room and stood before Borsalino. Vice Admiral, do you have any plans? Well, let's just wait. We'll react as appropriate. Sabayati Archipelago. Meanwhile, at auction house number 1 for human trafficking on Sabayati Archipelago, a wealthy, obese man had just purchased a pair of beautiful twin slaves for 120 million berries. With this final transaction, today's auction concluded. Perhaps due to the lack of particularly rare items, the celestial dragons had not made an appearance. The tiered seating in the venue was not full. Alucard was seated in the back row. Not encountering any celestial dragons he particularly wished to meet, Alucard was in a rather unpleasant mood. The world nobles, rumored to hold significant secrets of this world, yet also a family of the world's trash. Alucard had always wanted to see them with his own eyes. What a shame. Since the auction had completely ended, most people began leaving the venue. The remaining individuals were either wealthy buyers or pirates who had successfully purchased items, waiting to pay and receive their goods. Some wealthy individuals left their subordinates to handle this, but others, like the fat rich man who had just bought the twin beauties, personally stayed to pick up their purchases. The comical host on stage shouted to the remaining audience members, now, all successful buyers, please come up to the stage to claim your goods. Thank you for supporting our auction. We will notify you immediately if any new, valuable items appear in the future. Buyers and their subordinates, who had been seated, rose and walked towards the stage below. Soon, many buyers had gathered on stage. Everyone pulled out their bank cards. This world did have banks, but they were generally for ordinary people. Pirates would never use such things. Oh, Lucy and Branky-sama, you've acquired another good pair this time, the auction host exclaimed upon seeing the fat man, calling out his name immediately. It seemed the two had conducted many transactions before. The last ones weren't exciting enough. Now, a pair of twins, good, suits my taste. Branky grabbed the shoulders of the twin sisters he had bought for 120 million berries, one in each hand, and chuckled sinisterly as he pulled out a gold card. All right, go swipe it. As for the twin sisters, they faced death. They had a premonition that their lives would henceforth be filled with darkness. No, it was even uncertain how long they would live. Thank you for your purchase. Would you like a discount this time? You've patronized us so many times already. Stop rambling and hurry up. I'm waiting to go home. Branky said impatiently. Yes, I won't bother you any longer. Just as the host reached out to take the gold card from Branky's hand, a sudden gunshot rang out. The host felt a chill in his arm, followed by a sensation of emptiness. He looked down to see that, somehow, both his hands had fallen to the ground. They had been severed at the elbow, dripping blood, and lay on the floor. Immediately after, came the pain. Excruciating, soul-piercing pain. Ah! The host writhed on the ground, his screams echoing, startling the other buyers on stage. My hands! My hands! The host's screams continued. At that moment, a figure walked up from the audience. To the buyers' shocked gazes, Alucard approached the host and aimed casual at his head. You, who are you? St. Stop. Do you know who I am? Bang! Splash! His head was completely blown apart, eyeballs flying out and splattering on Branky's face, coating him with bits of brain matter. Kaya! No one knew who screamed first. In an instant, dozens of bodyguards rushed out from behind the stage. Their attire varied, they looked more like temporary hires than professionals. Hee, Alucard chuckled. He raised his guns and fired, blowing the heads off each of the auction house's guards. They didn't even have time to get close before they were all annihilated. This card, does it have a password? Alucard turned, snatched the gold card from Branky's hand, looked at it, then raised a finger to ask him. And no, it can be used freely, anywhere, Branky said blankly, clearly under Alucard's control. Well done. I was just short on money, Alucard chuckled. Isn't stealing money this way much faster? Chapter 75, I just wanted a vacation. Alucard paid no mind to anyone who might have recognized his face. He took the gold card he'd gotten from Branky and went to a famous liquor store on Sabayati Archipelago, draining all the money from it in one go. Besides alcohol, Alucard couldn't really think of anything else he needed to spend money on. Still, you can never have too much money. After storing the liquor boxes in his shadow, just as before, Alucard turned to leave, wondering where to go next. A casino? Or perhaps a man's pleasure district? Alucard suddenly noticed that the nearby pirates were starting to become agitated, and the civilians, who had been leisurely strolling, began rushing home. Large warships? It's the Marines? The Marines are here. Don't fight them here. All crew, evacuate immediately. Amidst the chaos, Alucard heard these words from many pirates. Are they here to clear out pirates? Alucard suddenly recalled the massacre he caused in Grove 66. Perhaps, they're here for me. I didn't even meet a celestial dragon and still ended up with this. Alucard shook his head, feeling incredibly unlucky. Usually, since this was celestial dragon territory, the Marines wouldn't bother with minor incidents, primarily because actions like Luffy and his crew punching a celestial dragon were simply too extreme. While his intrusion into the Marine base wasn't a minor incident either. The crucial part was that the deaths of the CP7 and CP0 agents were directly related to him, coupled with Dr. Vegapunk's involvement, which made the Marines and the government so eager to apprehend him. Although he didn't know who had arrived, he estimated it was at least a vice admiral level officer or higher. But unfortunately, Alucard genuinely had no intention of fighting right now. He wasn't in the mood. He had come to Sabayati Archipelago wanting to indulge and enjoy himself before leaving. Recalling his blacklight virus abilities, Alucard wondered if he should find someone to absorb and then use their appearance to enjoy Sabayati Archipelago for a bit longer. But he quickly dismissed the idea. His ship's appearance had already been exposed, and it was a vessel he was quite fond of. Sacrificing that ship to the Marines just for a few days of fun was unacceptable to Alucard. Seriously, do I have to leave? I just wanted a relaxing vacation. Alucard walked towards Grove 21, where his ship was docked. Speaking of which, has the coating been done? Thump thump thump. Suddenly, Alucard's keen eyes spotted a large number of Marines approaching in the distance. It wouldn't be good if his face was recognized. He wasn't in the mood to fight right now. Looking around, Alucard noticed a young woman, about 25 years old, with a graceful figure. He abruptly pulled her into the corner between two buildings. Miss. The woman was about to scream, but before she could, Alucard's white-gloved hand caressed her face, looking at her tenderly. What do you want? It had to be said, Alucard was quite handsome, especially his wine-red eyes. When he took off his sunglasses, the woman subconsciously stopped herself from screaming. Legends also spoke of vampires luring young women and drinking virgin blood, but whether this woman was a virgin, with Alucard's current eyesight, he couldn't tell, but he could certainly confirm she was a beautiful woman of superior allure. Can you give it to me? Hearing Alucard's words, the woman's face froze, instinctively thinking along those lines. She tried to step back, but her back was against the wall. When she was cornered with nowhere to retreat, Alucard reached out and unbuttoned her collar, revealing her ample cleavage. Wait, you. Even in this situation, the woman couldn't help but blush and retreat, almost screaming. What kind of person is this? Is he trying to do that in a corner on the street? Alucard cupped the woman's shoulders with both hands, slowly leaning his head in, his lips pressing against the side of her neck. MMMPH. She felt a chilling sensation on her neck, making her involuntarily moan. But 2 seconds later, she felt a sharp sting. This was because Alucard's vampire fangs had pierced the flesh of her neck. Though it wasn't very painful, she still couldn't help but cry out. But immediately after, an intense wave of exhaustion washed over her. Finally, half a minute later, the beautiful woman lost consciousness, permanently. Immediately, blood tendrils emerged from Alucard's body, completely integrating the woman's body into his own. Soon, irregular masses of blood plasma enveloped Alucard's body. When it reformed, it was in the woman's likeness. This was one of the blacklight virus's abilities, to consume and transform into a person's appearance. The previous CP0 agent was the same. However, currently, this ability had a flaw: he could only transform into people he had recently consumed. As time passed, or if he consumed a new body, the previous form would be overridden. For example, after such a long time and having just consumed this woman, Alucard could no longer transform into the CP0 agent's appearance. This was the flaw. But presumably, after the blacklight virus evolved further, this flaw could be remedied. As for why he chose to consume a woman, it was simple. If, at a crime scene, the suspects were a man and a woman, the vast majority of people would suspect the man was the culprit and the woman the victim. Alucard exploited this psychological bias. He was never the type of person like Luffy, who wouldn't harm innocents. If it could be used, he would use it, plain and simple. Allowing the woman to die painlessly was his final act of mercy. Chapter 76, Toying with Borsalino. At Grove 27 of Sabayati Archipelago, 2 warships, their sails emblazoned with the marine symbol, formally docked. The nearby pirates were struck dumb with fear at the sight of Borsalino and Strawberry standing on the bows. After a few seconds, they all screamed and fled. Whoosh! Suddenly, a flash of golden light appeared. A beam of light blocked their path, and 2 pirates from a crew involuntarily stopped, staring dumbfounded as the light gradually materialized into a tall man. My apologies, N.E. Borsalino asked, hands in his pockets, bending slightly toward the 2. I'm looking for a man named Alucard. Do you happen to know him? The man with the eye patch looked at the tall, seemingly old man in his 30s before him. He fearfully took 2 steps back and shrieked, Borsalino. Both quickly turned and fled. While Marine Vice Admirals weren't few in number, Borsalino was undoubtedly one of the most famous among them, aside from Garp. Seeing the 2 flee a considerable distance, Borsalino wasn't in a rush to chase. Instead, he stroked his chin with one hand and said with an innocent tone, "How mean. I was just trying to ask for some information." No sooner had he finished speaking than Borsalino raised his hand, his index finger extended. A beam of light shot from his fingertip, flashing between the 2. Half a second later, a violent explosion erupted directly in front of the 2 pirates, blasting all surrounding pirates into the air, naturally including the 2 men themselves. Vice Admiral Borsalino, our objective is Alucard. First, we need to find his ship to prevent him from heading out to sea. Strawberry walked up to Borsalino. He was currently a rear admiral, serving under Vice Admiral Borsalino. Pair. Just then, a den mushy sounded from within Strawberry's marine cloak. He took it out and pressed the receiver. A marine's voice immediately came through. Report? The target Alucard's ship has been found in Grove 21. Bang! Before the report could be finished, the 2 vice admirals heard a gunshot, followed by the sound of something falling to the ground. Something had happened. Oh my, faster than expected, aren't they? Borsalino drawled, pinching his chin. The soldiers over there have probably been sacrificed, but the target location has been confirmed, Grove 21, Strawberry stated. Then I'll go myself, Borsalino said. His entire body transformed into a flash of light, quickly heading towards Grove 21. Grove 21. Seriously, did the intel still leak out? Alucard stood beside his ship, surrounded by the corpses of marines and pirates he had just dealt with. He picked up the fallen den mushy and casually tossed it into the sea beside the dock. From the situation just now, it seemed the marines already knew his ship was docked here. He turned to look, the coating still wasn't finished. The coating mechanics had probably been called back by the marines. There was nothing he could do. He would have to wait for a while. Based on the information he'd gathered from the pirates, the arriving vice admirals were the future Admiral Kizaru Borsalino and Strawberry. While he wasn't entirely unwilling to test his strength against Borsalino, Alucard truly had no desire to fight right now. His enjoyment had been interrupted, and he really just wanted to get some good sleep. Are they already on their way? Alucard turned back. Through his thermal vision, Alucard could clearly sense an extremely fast presence approaching him. It was already passing through Grove 24 and would soon enter Area 23. The only one capable of such speed was, without a doubt, the user of the glint fruit, Borsalino. I don't really feel like fighting you today. I'll just mess with you a bit. With a thought, Alucard casually picked up a marine officer he had just killed, who wasn't quite dead yet. Judging by his rank, he should have been a marine lieutenant. Alucard quickly absorbed him into his body using the black light virus. On the other side, Borsalino passed through Grove 24 at extreme speed and was about to enter Grove 21. However, as he passed through Grove 23, he paused briefly to confirm his direction. Just then, a marine lieutenant, covered in wounds, ran up to him and saluted. Report? Vice Admiral Borsalino? Target Dracula D. Alucard just abandoned his ship and fled towards Grove 22. The areas of Sabayati Archipelago aren't connected in a straight line, they're densely connected in a circular fashion. Alucard's ship was located in Grove 21, which connected to both Grove 22 and Grove 23. Borsalino's path to get here was through Grove 23. Borsalino, hands in his pockets, looked towards Grove 22, then scratched his head. That guy actually ran away. How strange. With that, Borsalino turned his head to scan the marine lieutenant. The identity and wounds were undoubtedly real. Thinking this, Borsalino had no further suspicions. He turned and rushed towards Grove 22, leaving one last instruction: keep a close eye on the ship. Make sure to watch it carefully until Strawberry and the others arrive. Once Borsalino completely vanished in a flash of light, irregular blood plasma completely enveloped the lieutenant's body. A few seconds later, Alucard's body returned to its original state. Good work. Go on and search, Kizaru, Alucard chuckled, turning to head back the way he came. Occasionally, not fighting, but rather toying with people, is quite interesting. Chapter 77, Marine Ambush. When Strawberry led the majority of his subordinates to the dock in Grove 21, Strawberry and the others expected to see a fierce battle between Borsellino and Alucard, or perhaps that Borsellino had already apprehended Alucard. But the scene before them left everyone stunned. There were countless corpses of Marines, their heads blown open, along with a few pirate bodies. Other than that, nothing had happened. Where was the promised battle? However, Strawberry, as a Rear Admiral of Marine Headquarters, didn't lose his composure. He quickly commanded, "Check for other casualties. Immediately begin rescue efforts for anyone who can be saved. Thoroughly search the pirate ships at the dock, especially looking for any steel-hulled pirate ships. Move it." "Yes, sir." After the Marine soldiers began their tasks, Strawberry spoke to another subordinate, "Bring me a den mushy. I need to contact Vice Admiral Borsellino." "Our report?" Vice Admiral Borsellino's den mushy was left on the warship before he deployed and he didn't bring it, a Marine answered, still shaken. "Why at this precise moment?" Strawberry gritted his teeth. While he knew Borsellino was often unreliable, was it just a coincidence that his den mushy was left behind at this critical juncture? Meanwhile, in Grove 23, it's Marine Vice Admiral Borsellino. Grove 23, being one of the concentrated areas for outlaws, had many pirates who had landed on the island there. The pirates shrieked in fear and fled, but Borsellino didn't immediately pursue. Instead, he folded his arms and frowned in confusion. "How strange, I've looked everywhere, but he's nowhere to be found." He looked up ahead, then extended a hand to fire a laser beam, sending dozens of pirates to their demise, and muttered to himself, "Well, never mind. I might as well deal with the pirates here first." Borsellino wasn't as absolutely dedicated to completing missions as Sakazuki. He had a wavering personality, often not delivering fatal blows to pirates, and his many indecisive actions greatly displeased Zephyr. Over an hour later, on Grove 21, a Master Chief Petty Officer reported to Strawberry, "Rear Admiral, only 4 soldiers survived. They've all been taken back for treatment. Most sustained gunshot wounds, and the chances of survival are slim. Also, there were a total of 7 pirate ships docked in this area, but none of them belonged to target Alucard. Did he leave before Borsellino arrived? But where is Vice Admiral Borsellino now?" Strawberry muttered to himself, frowning. Just then, a golden flash descended from the sky, gradually coalescing into a human form. It was Borsellino. "Vice Admiral Borsellino? Where have you been?" the Master Chief Petty Officer asked urgently upon seeing Borsellino appear. "Oh, I heard from 3 escaping lieutenants that Alucard fled towards Grove 23. Why isn't he there?" Strawberry heard this, turned, and faced Borsellino. "Escaping lieutenants? What were their names? How would I know the names of people from a local branch?" Borsellino waved his hand innocently. "Rear Admiral Strawberry, could it be treason?" the Master Chief Petty Officer speculated. "We can't rule out that possibility," Strawberry said gravely. Treason was a major taboo for the Marines. Continue the search. 10 hours later, Marine Headquarters Marineford. Although many pirates had been captured and sent to impel down, the primary target, Alucard, had not been apprehended. Not only was he not captured, but Borsellino and his forces hadn't even found him. Admiral Sengoku sat grim-faced behind his desk, while Borsellino and Strawberry stood before him, having just finished reporting the detailed situation. "So, you suspect that branch lieutenant committed treason?" Sengoku asked, his face ashen. "Yes, that's the most likely possibility," Strawberry nodded. "However, as Borsellino said, he doesn't clearly remember the lieutenant's appearance at the time, so we can't rule out the possibility that Alucard's subordinate stripped a Marine uniform and wore it to deceive." Sengoku massaged his temples. "Any other information?" Strawberry reported, "According to information provided by the mechanics who were supposed to coat Alucard's ship, his ship hasn't been successfully coated. This means he either remained on Sabayati Archipelago or returned to the first half of the Grand Line. Those are the 2 possibilities." "Is that so?" "That's a silver lining in an unfortunate situation," Sengoku said, his tense expression relaxing slightly upon hearing this. "Borsellino, regardless, your deception is a serious issue. I order you to remain stationed at the Sabayati Archipelago branch for 2 months, effective immediately," Sengoku ordered coldly. "Understood, Sengoku-san." Borsellino readily accepted the order. Such a punishment was nothing. He also understood that Sengoku's deeper purpose in doing this was to have him remain there to ambush Alucard. After Borsellino left, Strawberry reported again, "There's one more thing I believe is worth noting, Sengoku-san." "What?" "According to our timeline, the Roger pirates should also be approaching Sabayati Archipelago soon." "Roger." Sengoku's brows furrowed. "To attract 2 troubles at the same time." After pondering for a moment, Sengoku said, "Keep Garp on standby at all times." "Of course, I'm ready to sortie at any moment myself." Chapter 78, Encountering the Roger Pirates Again. His first attempt to venture into the New World had been halted by the bounty on his head, forcing Alucard to spend 2 weeks sailing around the waters near Sabayati Archipelago, occasionally docking to enjoy himself. During these 2 weeks, Alucard hadn't used his own face, but instead infiltrated the island disguised as a Marine soldier he had absorbed. From this, he gathered significant intelligence, such as Borsellino being temporarily stationed on Sabayati Archipelago. Alucard suspected this was very likely a measure targeting him. Furthermore, many new wanted posters of him had been put up on Sabayati Archipelago recently, deepening the impression he made on people and allowing civilians to provide information more readily. It seemed the Marines were convinced he was still on the island. Alucard hadn't found an opportunity to coat his ship these past 2 weeks. The Marines had significantly ramped up security to capture him. However, while they hadn't caught him, many other pirates had suffered the consequences. Who could have imagined Sabayati Archipelago's security suddenly becoming so tight? But this heightened security was only aimed at him. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before the Marines recalled Borsellino, as he was a high-tier combatant and couldn't be left guarding a single island indefinitely. As for Alucard, although he was eager to find the island Dr. Vegapunk had mentioned, he could afford to spend a little more time. It was important to remember that even by the time of Roger's death, seastone handcuffs hadn't been fully perfected, let alone bullets. So, for the short term, seastone bullets wouldn't be easily developed. These 2 weeks, Alucard treated as a vacation. This day, Alucard was sailing his ship in the waters near Grove 50, in the southeast of Sabayati Archipelago, when he suddenly looked to his right. A human presence emanated from there. Was it pirates? Alucard sensed carefully, his expression slightly firming, then he let out a chuckle. It's them, the Roger pirates. Using hidden shadow control, Alucard turned his ship's bow towards the Roger pirates' vessel. 20 minutes later, a ship slightly larger than Alucard's steel vessel, also built by the world's greatest shipwright, met his. Nosden, the navigator of the Roger pirates, stood on the crow's nest's lookout platform, looking through his telescope into the distance. When he spotted Alucard sitting at the bow of the opposing steel ship, he braced his hands on the platform's edge and shouted down to Roger, "Captain, it's Alucard. Dracula D. Alucard is on that ship opposite us." Roger, Rayleigh, and the others, who had been enjoying a drink, immediately stood up and looked into the distance. Sure enough, a uniquely designed steel ship was approaching them. 10 minutes later, both sides clearly saw each other's faces. Roger was the type of person who couldn't hide his inner thoughts. Upon seeing Alucard, he stood at the bow and couldn't help but shout, "Alucard, haven't you entered the New World yet?" Roger's words echoed the thoughts of most of his crew. They had thought Alucard had long since left the first half of the Grand Line and entered the New World. They hadn't expected to meet him on Sabayati Archipelago. Had something happened? If you want to know, go to the island and you'll find out, Alucard said with a light chuckle, still seated in the chair at the ship's bow. How about it? Care for a drink together? Roger raised his beloved rum, inviting Alucard. Maybe next time. Right now, you should probably be heading into the New World soon, right? Alucard controlled his ship to shift course, clearing a path for the Roger pirate's vessel. Roger and Rayleigh exchanged glances, and finally, the helmsman steered the ship away. As they passed Alucard's side, Roger even waved. Something might have happened on the island, Shanks speculated. Idiot, even I figured that out. Otherwise, why wouldn't that guy go ashore? Buggy scoffed. All right, stop bickering, Rayleigh interjected, stopping their argument. Once we reach Sabayati Archipelago, we still need to coat the ship. From our past experience entering the New World, this will take almost a week. And this place is also the closest to Marine headquarters. If we draw the attention of the Marines, entering the New World will become extremely difficult. Everyone, remember to keep a low profile on the island. I know, don't worry, partner, Roger laughed, revealing his white teeth. Rayleigh winced. Roger, have you forgotten what happened a few years ago when you caused such a commotion on the island and ended up drawing Garp's attention? Only after the Roger pirates had completely disappeared from sight did Alucard control his ship to follow them. Using his thermal vision, Alucard already knew the Roger pirates' landing spot was the southwest dock of Grove 55. Rayleigh and the others had traveled between the New World and Sabayati Archipelago many times and knew that Grove 55 was where the coating mechanics were concentrated, allowing them to find workers most quickly. That's why they chose to land there. After confirming the Roger pirates' location, Alucard chuckled softly, adjusting his ship's bow. He chose to sail his ship to the northeast dock of Grove 27, the farthest point from the Roger pirates' current location. King of the pirates, it's great you've arrived. This way, I can easily enter the New World. Alucard smiled as he disembarked. The moment he landed on the island, blood plasma filled with the black light virus enveloped his body. 5 seconds later, the plasma receded, and the person who reappeared was an ordinary, slightly plump man. This time, there would be no vacationing. He would first observe the Roger pirates' situation. Chapter 79, Selling You Out. Upon arriving at Sabayati Archipelago, Rayleigh expertly began preparations for their upcoming voyage into the New World. The first priority, of course, was the coating of the ship. This process, which would take several days, had to be started immediately. If the Marines discovered them too early during these few days, they would be completely annihilated. Rayleigh then dispersed the rest of the crew to purchase essential supplies for the journey, fresh water, food, and so on. A remaining group, led by Gaban, stayed to guard the ship. On this chaotic island, teeming with pirates, pirate hunters, and Marines, it was crucial to keep a close eye on their new prized vessel. Meanwhile, after Rayleigh left, Alucard found the same shipyard and instructed them to go to Grove 27 to coat his own ship. Ship coating was a highly important task. If it ruptured at the bottom of the ocean, 10,000 meters deep, the consequences would be unimaginable. Rayleigh and his crew had ample experience diving to the bottom of the sea to reach the New World, so choosing the same shipyard as them couldn't be wrong. Even the Roger pirates, upon entering Sabayati archipelago, became extremely low-key. If they were pursued by the Marines here, it would be very difficult to set sail normally. Furthermore, naval battles could easily damage the coating, so combat had to be avoided at all costs. Alucard's ship was expected to take 5 days to coat. On the third day, Alucard secretly slaughtered a patrolling Marine squad and seized their military den mushi, intending to execute his plan at the last moment. These past few days, Alucard had stayed close to his ship, rarely leaving. Any Marine approaching his location, or anyone who might reveal his whereabouts, was immediately killed. That Marine patrol squad was annihilated for this very reason. While this approach temporarily kept Alucard's movements secret and allowed the coating work to proceed smoothly, the Marines weren't foolish. Finally, as the 5th day approached completion of the coating, Alucard noticed the Marines had gathered a force of approximately 300 soldiers and were approaching his location. Alucard's thermal vision could now cover an area the size of 2 cities. His current location was Grove 27, which extended to the southern Grove 70. Right next to Grove 70 was the Marine base, Grove 60. At this moment, the Marine force had already passed through Grove 70. If they proceeded at full speed, they would reach him in less than an hour. Alucard turned to the coating workers and asked, "How much more time until it's completely finished?" A mechanic with a bandana looked up and replied, "At least 3 more hours, customer. 3 hours. If he didn't act, he would be surrounded by the Marines. Furthermore, with Borsalino's speed, he would probably arrive in less than 5 minutes. As expected, I'll have to use that trick." Alucard took out the military den mushi he had seized from a Marine patrol squad 2 days prior. After successfully connecting, he spoke to the Marine on the other end. "Report, report. The Roger Pirates ship has been sighted in the southwest area of Grove 55. I repeat, the Roger Pirates ship has been sighted at the southwest dock of Grove 55. The Marine on the other end, hearing the words Roger Pirates, was stunned into silence for a few seconds. After regaining composure, he immediately asked urgently, "What's the situation on site?" Alucard smirked, fabricating a story. "The situation is extremely critical. Their ship's coating is complete, and Captain Gold Roger, First Mate Dark King Rayleigh, and Combatant Gaban, among others, have all arrived. They're likely setting sail any moment. Please advise." The Marine officer on the other end hesitated for a moment, then said, "You hide there and don't move. I'll immediately report this to my superiors. Remember, do not engage. The Roger Pirates are not something you can handle." Immediately after, the den mushi was hung up. Alucard casually tossed it into the fathomless sea. "This should distract you a bit, shouldn't it?" Alucard reactivated his thermal vision, preparing to observe the soldiers rushing towards his location. Based on his observations during this time, the Marine base currently had very few personnel, with most deployed in patrol squads, searching the entire island for him. At this moment, the news of the Roger Pirates being in Grove 55 would undoubtedly shock them greatly. It was important to note that Grove 60, where a Marine base was located, was connected to Grove 50, where the mechanics and Roger were. It wouldn't take even half an hour. As long as troops were dispatched from the Marine base, they could immediately arrive. As for Borsalino, he could probably arrive in 2 minutes, no, perhaps even 1 minute. "It's regrettable to use you, Roger, but we are enemies, aren't we?" Alucard chuckled to himself. On the Marine side, Borsalino, currently the highest-ranking commander there, was so surprised to hear that the Roger Pirates were in the nearby Grove 55 that the cigarette almost fell out of his mouth. "How many troops are currently reserved at the base?" Borsalino asked. A soldier under Borsalino saluted and replied, "Sir. Due to orders from headquarters, most of the garrison troops have been sent out on patrol. We now only have just over 500 personnel who can be deployed immediately. 500 people. That's not enough to deal with Roger." Borsalino was very aware of Roger's formidable power. 500 people? 5,000 would be closer. The reporting officer, hearing this, suddenly remembered something and reported again, "Vice Admiral, just now, 300 men were dispatched to investigate Grove 27 due to recent Marine disappearances. If possible, we could reassign all of them to deal with Roger's group instead. 300 men, plus the existing 500 at the base, and finally, a certain number of troops would still need to be left at the base as a precaution. While this number still wasn't enough to contend with the Roger Pirates, it would hopefully buy them some time until reinforcements from headquarters arrived. Then prepare as you've suggested. I'll contact Fleet Admiral Kong immediately." Chapter 80, Illegal Entry. The Roger Pirates left Gaban, a primary combatant, and 20 other crew members to guard their ship. Due to the immense fame of the Roger Pirates, if discovered by the Marines, they would undoubtedly launch an all-out assault, hence the significant fighting force left behind. Gaban stood on the shore, glancing back at the Oro Jackson, which was now enveloped in bubbles. He declared, "Everything's ready. We just need Roger and Rayleigh to get back." Suddenly, a lookout from the Roger Pirates crew rushed back, reporting to Gaban, "Bad news, Gaban-san. A large contingent of Marines is heading our way, estimated to be over 500. "What?" Gaban's expression hardened. Dispatching so many Marines at once undoubtedly meant they had prior intelligence that the Roger Pirates were here. Their whereabouts had been exposed. but Gaban himself possessed a considerable degree of haki. From the moment he landed on the island to guard the ship, he hadn't detected any Marines. If that was the case, how did the Marines know they were here? Gaban shook his head. Never mind, it's useless to think about that now. First, let's deal with the enemy before us. Lads, get ready to fight. We must defend this ship until Roger and the others return. Gaban roared, causing Shanks and the others, who had been dozing on the deck, to jolt awake and draw their weapons. Whoosh! Suddenly, a beam of light shot from a distance, aimed directly at the Oro Jackson. The pupils beneath Gaban's sunglasses narrowed. He intercepted the flash with a mid-air kick, and instantly, a golden explosion erupted in the air above the Grove 55 dock, like a small sun. A few seconds later, Gaban and the flash of light landed simultaneously. Gaban flicked his foot and chuckled. Still love to sneak attack, don't you, Borsalino brat? Still as terrifying as ever, the Roger pirates. Borsalino grinned. But unfortunately, I'm afraid you'll have to give up on sailing out. Through their respective Den Mushy communications, Marine headquarters, and both Roger and Rayleigh's groups received news of the engagement. They quickly began rushing back. Although the Marines had received the news earlier, it would naturally take them longer to arrive compared to Roger and Rayleigh. During this time, it would depend on Borsalino and the Sabaody Archipelago Marines to see if they could hold off the Roger pirates. Sabaody Archipelago Grove 27. When Alucard observed, through his thermal vision, that the Marines who were initially approaching his location had gradually retreated, he knew his plan had succeeded. Sir, the coating is complete. A craftsman walked over and informed Alucard. Alucard turned to look. His ship was indeed fully coated. He casually handed the golden card he had taken from the wealthy individual named Branky to the craftsman, then turned and boarded his ship. Good. The Marines and the Roger pirates are busy fighting. They definitely won't have time to bother with me now. I can finally head to the new world. His ship plunged into the ocean depths, propelled by the strong currents. Although he felt quite confident in the shipyard Rayleigh and Roger had chosen, a novel sensation still arose as he watched his ship dart through the depths at a tremendous speed. 10,000 meters beneath the sea, the Red Line's underwater cave. Alucard's pupils narrowed. He saw it, and the island wrapped in a giant bubble. That must be it. Fishman Island. Go in. Alucard used hidden shadow control, accelerating the ship abruptly. The moment it broke through the first layer of the bubble shield, a massive amount of seawater surged in, completely engulfing Alucard and his ship. The colossal steel vessel began to plummet rapidly. Looking at the bubble shield not far away, Alucard thought to himself, double-layered bubble protection? I hadn't expected that. Fishman Island utilized a double-layered bubble shield, with thousands of meters of high-pressure seawater between the outer and inner layers. If a ship forcefully broke through the first layer, it would be enveloped by high-pressure water, causing the entire vessel to sink to the bottom of the deep sea. Only ships that entered Fishman Island through the legitimate entrance could avoid this situation. Forcing entry like Alucard was an illegal entry. Seriously, not enough information. The ship began to fall rapidly. Under the immense pressure of the seawater, the shadow beneath Alucard's feet quickly expanded, dyeing his entire ship black, with countless eyes opening on its surface. Boom! Suddenly, the colossal steel vessel seemed to be propelled by an invisible giant hand, rushing straight towards the second protective layer. Crash! With a tremendous roar, Alucard's ship forcefully broke through the second protective layer, officially entering Fishman Island. After rushing into Fishman Island, Alucard suddenly found that below him was not the sea, but land. It seemed this was not a good place to land. Seriously, a bad start. Alucard forcefully controlled the ship to change its position, trying to avoid landing in a densely populated area. At this moment, the merfolk and fishmen of Waterwheel Town on Fishman Island were scared senseless. A giant black ship flying through the sky. Under Alucard's control, the ship forcefully rushed towards the plaza, slamming heavily onto the ground of Gincord Plaza. Fortunately, both merfolk and fishmen reacted quickly. By the time the ship crashed, everyone had fled. Thud! The iron ship crashed heavily into the center of the plaza, making everyone feel a violent tremor beneath their feet. What happened? A ship falling from the sky. Is it an illegal entry? Nearby Fishman residents came out to watch the commotion. They saw a figure gradually emerge from the iron ship, a blood-red coat, long black hair, and particularly striking feet. It's a human? A pirate? It was well known that Fishman Island was a necessary route for pirates entering the New World. 9 out of 10 humans who came to Fishman Island were pirates, and perhaps 3 out of 10,000 were pirate hunters. However, an illegally entered pirate had not appeared in several years. Chapter 81, Fisher Tiger. What's that? Alucard looked up at the sky of Fishman Island, noticing several ships floating in the air. He realized they must be using large bubbles as engines to propel the ships, otherwise, floating in midair wouldn't be possible. This is a beautiful place, but I've had enough enjoyment on Sabaody Archipelago. Now, I'm off to the New World. Alucard lowered his gaze, using hidden shadow to control the giant vessel as it began to move towards the town. Ignoring the astonished gazes of the surrounding fishmen, he muttered, but before that, I want to taste the local specialty wine of Fishman Island. Hold it, illegal intruder. Just as Alucard stepped off Gincord Plaza and before he could lift his ship, 3 warning shouts came from his right. Alucard tilted his head, his right eye peeking through his bangs, to look at the source. He saw a group of fishmen soldiers armed with tridents, sharp mouths, and clad in armor. It's the Ammonites. Thank goodness, we're saved. Upon seeing the royal army, the previously agitated crowd immediately quieted down. What do you want? Alucard turned to them. He wasn't familiar with the rules of Fishman Island, and naturally, he didn't realize that his forceful breach of the double protective bubble earlier constituted illegal entry. Even humans who illegally enter must. The sharp-mouthed fishman's words were cut short as a tall, red-skinned fishman pulled him aside from behind. Hey, who are you? The royal army soldier had just asked, but upon seeing the red-skinned fishman's face, he immediately fell silent. This was a very famous figure, the current leader of Fishman District, Fisher Tiger. His emergence had united Fishman District, significantly quieting down what was once a hub for outlaws. Thus, even the royal army gave him considerable respect. Furthermore, as Fishman Island hadn't yet been taken over by Whitebeard, Tiger's status was even more exceptional. Royal Army, don't act recklessly. You're no match for this man. Tiger tossed a wanted poster to the Royal Army soldier behind him. The soldier took it and his face immediately showed alarm. It was Alucard's wanted poster. Dracula D. Alucard. Bounty, 200 million berries. Before the Great Pirate Era, very few pirates were able to reach Fishman Island, unlike the more frequent occurrences in the future. Those who made it were generally strong, but only a handful could boast bounties over 200 million. Does that mean you think you can beat me? Alucard asked with interest. He recognized Tiger as well. Fishmen had very distinctive features, and this man's striking red skin allowed Alucard to immediately identify him as Tiger, the future hero of Fishman Island who would be defeated by Kizura. However, having lived in this world for so long, Alucard held no particular preconceived notions about the original characters, as they were all living, breathing individuals. I'm not part of the royal army, so there's no need for me to fight you. However, if you intend to do anything detrimental to Fishman Island, consider that this is 10,000 meters deep beneath the sea, far from land. Tiger spoke very candidly. At this time, he had not yet embarked on his adventure to the surface, and his understanding of humans mostly came from pirates who traversed the first half of the Grand Line and the New World to reach this place. But he at least knew that Alucard would not be easy to deal with. Provoking this man simply for an illegal entry was not a good idea. You don't fight battles without reason. Alucard held back the hand that wanted to draw his gun, and walked away, speaking with his back to Tiger, a rational choice. Wait a moment. Alucard had only walked a few steps when he heard Tiger speak again. Taking your ship with you like this is too conspicuous. How about leaving it in the sea forest to the northeast? I'll lead the way. Alucard turned to Tiger. After a moment, he said, that's fine. Sea forest, northeast of Fishman Island. Alucard placed his ship here, which was the regular entry point into Fishman Island. Tiger, after leading Alucard to this spot, asked, are you entering the New World? Of course, it's more interesting there, Alucard said with a light chuckle. Very few humans can successfully pass through the 10,000 meters of high pressure underwater to reach this place. However, coincidentally, besides you, there's another pirate crew here now. I hope you won't cause any trouble. Who is it? Alucard asked with interest. The Ernst pirates, led by Nerid Ernst. They're troublemakers. Tiger said, then turned to leave. In any case, be careful. I don't want human conflicts on Fishman Island, understand? After retracting Hidden Shadow into his body, Alucard walked towards Fishman Island's town, a sinister glint of blood in his eyes beneath his sunglasses. This island is still interesting. I wonder what will happen in the New World. After leaving, Tiger immediately went to the royal palace to report Alucard's presence to the current king, Neptune, and Queen Otohim. The appearance of a pirate with a 200 million berry bounty was no small matter. As long as he doesn't do anything too extreme, we'll generally ignore him. Neptune adopted his usual approach to pirates. If they could endure, they would. They wouldn't stay here anyway, they were all headed to the New World. There was no need to lose their subordinates over transient visitors. This was Neptune's consistent mindset. Fortunately, the Great Pirate Era hadn't yet arrived, so opportunities to encounter pirates entering Fishman Island were rare. It was easier to turn a blind eye. Chapter 82, A Pirate's Way of Paying. Fishman Island. Fishman Island, though it was called that, Alucard was clearly more interested in the merfolk than the fishmen who resembled flatboards. Aside from their fishtails being slightly unappetizing, young mermaids were almost uniformly beautiful. It was said that mermaids would develop legs after the age of 30, and a significant portion of them would intermarry with humans, which Alucard found quite interesting. Soon after, Alucard found himself in a tavern in the southwest of Fishman Town. Alucard, a human? No, in reality, he wasn't human at all, but in the eyes of these merfolk, he was. Amidst their curious gazes, Alucard sat at the bar and told the mermaid bartender opposite him, one of everything. This, oh okay, the mermaid was startled by Alucard's words. Sensibly, she didn't bring all the alcohol at once, but rather served them one by one. Alucard would take a few more sips of the ones he liked, and merely a taste of those he didn't. Suddenly, another group of humans, pirates, entered the tavern. Alucard suddenly recalled what Tiger had told him earlier, about someone named, what was it? Something like Ernst, but he'd forgotten the surname. It should be their pirate crew. Even before the Great Pirate Era, pirates were still as numerous as ants worldwide. Moreover, Alucard had never even heard of this name, indicating they were clearly not a threat, so he didn't bother with them. "Serve us drinks? Hurry," one of the Ernst pirates rudely shouted at a mermaid server. He then began discussing with his fellow crewmates. It was terrifying. "We almost died just getting caught in the crossfire of Golden Lion and Redfield's battle." Alucard's eyes narrowed. He had read about this in a newspaper more than half a month ago. The Red the Aloof and Golden Lion Shiki had engaged in battle in the New World, with Golden Lion winning through overwhelming force of numbers. Although many believed that if it were a one-on-one fight, Golden Lion might not have won against Redfield, Alucard dismissed such talk. A win is a win, a loss is a loss. What does it matter how many people were involved? It's only your own fault. However, from these pirates' words, Alucard learned something else. This Ernst pirates' crew had retreated from the New World temporarily because of Redfield and Golden Lion's battle. They were likely severely damaged from being caught in the fight, which was why they retreated. "Ha, another group of defeated soldiers," Alucard chuckled, swirling the whiskey in his glass, the ice sphere inside sparkling under the lamplight. He had dealt with many such groups in the North Blue before. He didn't expect to find more in the New World. Customer, you've already had a taste of all the drinks in our shop. Could you perhaps pay first?" the mermaid bartender said with difficulty. Alucard glanced up at her. He hadn't realized he'd already finished all the alcohol. But weren't there too few types of drinks? Still, it made sense. Fishman Island had very little trade with humans, almost everything was self-produced, and they didn't engage in imports. Naturally, there weren't many different kinds of things. But as he thought about paying, Alucard's face froze. He seemed to have no money. During his time enjoying himself on Sabayati Archipelago, all his expenses were paid with the card he'd snatched from Branky, which he'd eventually given to the coating mechanic who coated his ship. Now, Alucard himself had no berries at all. A total of 579,200 berries. "You can just pay 570,000, the mermaid bartender said softly. Was he going to skip out on the bill? It wasn't uncommon for pirates to dine and drink without paying, but those were the actions of the weak, what the lowest tier pirates did. Alucard had killed many, but he wouldn't stoop to such actions. "Wait a minute, aren't I a pirate now?" Although he had never admitted it, in the eyes of the whole world, he was now a pirate. In that case, he could use a pirate's method of payment. Customer? The mermaid was genuinely worried that Alucard was going to skip out and urged him again. If it were just a small amount, she would turn a blind eye, but this was a huge sum. If she let it slide, she would lose a lot of money. "Don't worry, it's rare to see such a nice face." Alucard stood up, provocatively lifted the mermaid's chin, and turned to walk towards the Ernst pirates. A human. The Ernst pirates turned their attention to Alucard as he approached. It was quite rare to see other pirates or humans on Fishman Island. The pirate in charge, Captain Ernst, frowned and asked, "Do you need something?" Alucard suddenly swung his hand, and before Ernst could react, he was knocked to the ground, slamming into the wall. Thud. With a loud crash, the entire mermaid tavern erupted into chaos. "Captain, you bastard! How dare you strike our captain?" 5 or 6 other grunts stood up in astonishment. One of them quickly pulled out a rifle from his coat, ready to shoot Alucard, but before he could fully raise the gun, he felt something cold press against his chest. Bang! Alucard attacked with casual, piercing his heart. With his other hand, he pulled out his black gun, Jackal, and shot Ernst, who was still on the ground. Bang! Ernst, a pirate with a bounty of over 50 million berries, was shot in the head. It was a true headshot. His head was completely gone. This was the power of the black gun, Jackal. Kaya. The merfolk and fishmen, who had never witnessed such bloodshed, immediately shrieked. Many began to run outside, and the street instantly became a chaotic mess. Before the Great Pirate Era, they couldn't even handle this much blood. Alucard chuckled softly as he walked over to Ernst's headless corpse. After rummaging through his pockets, he pulled out several palm-sized gold nuggets. This is a pirate's way of paying. Chapter 83, Marine Ambush. "Little girl, here's for everything. Not just the drinks I had, but wrap up all the alcohol in your store for me." Alucard placed the large gold nuggets he'd found on Ernst onto the bar, speaking to the mermaid girl. Alucard's sudden elimination of the Ernst pirates caused a stir on Fishman Island. However, while pirate skirmishes on Fishman Island weren't common, they weren't unheard of either. Presumably, the incident would be forgotten by most of Fishman Island within a month. Alucard didn't spend much time in this underwater paradise. After packing up Fishman Island's specialty alcohol, he immediately departed for the New World. He'd already spent too much time idling on Sabayati Archipelago. As the saying goes, even rest can become tiresome after a while. Moreover, the news of the New World's turmoil only fueled Alucard's inherent desire for chaos, making him restless. The name Alucard would soon fade from the minds of everyone on Fishman Island, like a passing traveler. They wouldn't realize at this time what that name would come to represent in just a few years. Boom! As Alucard controlled his warship to break through the surface from underwater, the first thing he heard was a thunderous roar from the sky. He looked up to see dense dark clouds, with lightning resembling giant dragons soaring through the clouds. But Alucard knew that the bizarre weather of the New World was far more than just this. "It's a ship? A ship from Fishman Island?" Prepare for battle. Hearing the shouts, Alucard turned to see several marine warships slowly approaching from afar. A marine officer, standing at the front of a cannon battery, yelled, "An iron ship without sails? It's Alucard the Immortal ship. You lot, were you specifically waiting in ambush here?" Alucard smirked. Coming up from Fishman Island generally meant emerging at a few concentrated points. It was no surprise for the Marines to set up ambushes at these landing spots. "My vacation just ended, and now work begins." Alucard spread his hands, and the unique screeching sound of bats filled the air. His body, like that of a Logia-type devil fruit user, transformed into countless bats, flying towards the opposing marine warships. Unlike other pirates, whose first instinct upon encountering the Marines was to flee, Alucard preferred to quickly resolve his enemies before leisurely departing. Of course, if he wasn't interested in a fight, Alucard would simply leave. "He's turned into bats," a marine navigator on the mast's lookout platform shouted to the Marines below. "Be careful." Alucard's flying over. "That's one of his abilities, a direct eye-to-eye approach," a marine rear admiral yelled, drawing the twin short swords at his waist. "All hands, battle stations." "Wah!" Alucard let out a strange cry. The bats first coalesced into a single hand, which drew Kajal and began firing continuously downwards, before gradually forming his human shape. Bang! 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 Ayak! The hit soldiers screamed, while others quickly sought cover. "Prepare to die, Alucard." The marine rear admiral agilely leaped into the air. By this time, the bats had reformed into Alucard's body. Clang! Twin blades clashed against twin guns, sparks flying everywhere. "How did the Marines know I was here? Didn't they suspect I'd still be on Sabayati Archipelago?" Alucard questioned at close range as he exerted force against his opponent. No one should have known about his journey from Sabayati Archipelago to Fishman Island and then into the New World. So why did this marine rear admiral recognize him immediately? Had he really become that famous? Even Alucard himself found that hard to believe. "I don't need to answer your questions," the rear admiral gritted out. "Oh, never mind, I'll find out in the end anyway." No sooner had Alucard spoken than he abruptly retreated several meters. Seeing this, the rear admiral quickly lunged forward in pursuit, shouting to the other marine soldiers, "Machine gun squad, commence support." There were already 2 marine ships. Upon hearing the rear admiral's command, the snipers began aiming at Alucard, firing continuously. Yet, even in this moment, the rear admiral didn't forget to shout, "Be careful not to hit vital points. The government's order is to capture him alive." Alucard almost burst out laughing upon hearing this. At a time like this, they're still bothered by the government's ridiculous orders? Capture alive? Can you even capture me alive? In Alucard's view, the government's demand for alive capture simply meant sending more Marines to their deaths. Thump, thump, thump. Countless bullets riddled Alucard's body. The rear admiral, who was not yet fully familiar with Alucard's fighting style, was startled that a pirate with a 200 million berry bounty could be hit so easily. "What's going on? No matter what, the mission will be successfully completed now," the rear admiral thought to himself. Being hit directly by hundreds of bullets would incapacitate even an admiral, let alone Alucard. However, what he didn't expect was that less than 2 seconds after being hit, Alucard suddenly raised his own gun, and a flash erupted from the massive muzzle of the black gun. The rear admiral reacted quickly, blocking with one of his short swords. But in an instant, the short sword shattered, and the jackal's bullet, along with fragments of his own weapon, pierced his body. "Haya!" Alucard delivered a hand chop through the rear admiral's abdomen. The black light virus instantly consumed him, integrating him into Alucard's body. In an instant, the rear admiral's memories flooded into Alucard's mind. In the memories, the rear admiral received a call at the New World Marine branch, saying, "This is Rear Admiral Jurgal Delisol of the West End Island branch. Speak." Headquarters command, Rear Admiral Delisol, immediately proceed to the New World entrance waters and await pirate entry. Target is Dracula D. Alucard, the Den Mushi said expressionlessly. Is the intelligence reliable? Delisol asked. This information was deduced by Vice Admiral Tsuru after Gold Roger, the captain of the Roger pirates, let it slip on Sabayati Archipelago. There will be no mistake, the Den Mushi explained. Chapter 84, The Marines' Intelligence War. From the memories of the Marine Rear Admiral named Delisol, Alucard had pretty much figured out why the Marines were able to accurately ambush him there. Most likely, after the events on Sabayati Archipelago, where he set up Roger and Borsalino, Roger inadvertently leaked some information during their engagement. This was discovered by attentive Marines, then reported to high-ranking officials at Marine headquarters. Tsuru, known for being the brains of the Marines, inferred from the conversation that Alucard had already left Sabayati Archipelago and was about to arrive in the New World. Overall, the reason his whereabouts were leaked, besides Tsuru's exceptionally high intellect, was because Roger had a loose tongue. However, according to Tsuru's deduction, they should have dispatched stronger Marines to capture him, not just a fleet led by a rear admiral. There were 2 reasons for this. 1. Alucard arrived very quickly, leaving no time to immediately deploy more forces. 2. The personnel were dispersed, the Marines had several warships deployed, and Alucard just happened to run into Delisol's. He really is the same kind of person as Luffy, Alucard thought to himself. Alucard turned to look. There was still another warship with unresolved personnel, containing over 1,000 Marines. Seriously, let's finish this quickly. I don't enjoy musigames, Alucard muttered, saying something that the surrounding Marines didn't quite understand, as he swiftly charged into the main Marine force. The continuous gunfire and battle roared to life. The Marines were learning to fight Alucard smarter. Even if they couldn't defeat him immediately, they wouldn't allow their soldiers to be sacrificed in vain. For example, when they first saw his transformation into bats, De La Salle's soldiers immediately reported this information to headquarters. It was the same now. Alucard was swiftly slaughtering on one of the 2 Marine warships, while the Marines on the other ship weren't rushing to jump over and confront Alucard. 2 soldiers were observing Alucard's abilities through a telescope, describing his moves to a comrade beside him. The other soldier was on a den mushy, quickly relaying the information from his telescope-wielding companion to his superiors. Report? Alucard wields 2 handguns. Estimated power, at least 3000 Dorki. The black gun is 3 times more powerful than the white gun, but it cannot fire rapidly. Alucard can absorb people into his own body, but the effect of this is unknown. He can conjure a sword from his own blood within 3 seconds. This is somewhat similar to Vice Admiral Borsellino's glint fruit. The intelligence soldiers continuously reported Alucard's techniques and abilities to their superiors. After Alucard had eliminated the vast majority of them, very few Marines remained on the other warship. The highest-ranking remaining Marine was only a captain. Seeing that the tide had turned and capturing Alucard was no longer possible, the captain quickly yelled, "Retreat, retreat." Alucard stood at the bow of the other warship, holding Casual upright and Jackal horizontally, forming a cross with his 2 guns. He aimed at the stern of the opposing warship, a slight smirk on his lips. No need to rush off. Bang, bang, both guns fired. Alucard was already very familiar with the structure of warships. With a single shot, he destroyed the ship's main propulsion. He didn't know the layout of the New World branches, but it would be quite difficult for that ship to successfully sail to the next island. Boom! Suddenly, a more muffled thunder roared from the sky, followed by a torrential downpour. Several seconds later, Alucard felt an uncomfortable sensation on his skin. It was acid rain? This weather is quite annoying too. Alucard transformed back into bats and flew back to his ship. At the same time, the system notified him of the increase in his abilities after this battle. Ability development progress. Vampire physique complete form, 10%. Bat transformation complete form, 12%. Weapon, Casual LV4, 95%. Weapon, Jackal LV1, 79%. Blacklight Virus LV3, 49%. Hidden Shadow LV2, 40%. The later the stage, the slower the growth speed. However, this battle truly lacked any challenge. It was essentially a mowing down of fodder, so Alucard didn't particularly care. Meanwhile, as Alucard had anticipated, the warship began to sink due to critical damage before even reaching the next island. In the first half of the Grand Line, skilled survivors of shipwrecks might be able to swim to an island, but don't dream of that in the New World. Unless it's a monster like Rayleigh, shipwrecking in the New World essentially means death. However, the Marines weren't entirely unsuccessful this time. They successfully reported Alucard's abilities, allowing headquarters to analyze his powers. Whether it was a devil fruit, biological modification, or a special ability of some race, gathering more intelligence would give them a 3-point advantage in their next battle. Alucard was not yet aware of this, but even if he were, he wouldn't care. As he delved deeper into this world, it was inevitable that his abilities would become known to his enemies. Knowing a bit beforehand didn't bother him much. Next on his agenda was to find the island Vegapunk spoke of, the one called Bazenbur. Chapter 85, Whitebeard's Territory. The battle between Alucard and the 2 warships led by Rear Admiral De La Salle in the New World was immediately reported to Marine headquarters. Along with the report were the eyewitness accounts of Alucard's abilities. This information was collectively sent to the Marine Scientific Research Unit for analysis, then forwarded to Chief of Staff Tsuru, and further up to Admiral Sengoku and Fleet Admiral Kong. Vegapunk was extremely interested in Alucard's abilities. Upon hearing about the incident, he immediately expressed his willingness to conduct research. The ability to recover from any severe injury, twin guns, instant weapon manifestation, and human absorption, all these capabilities easily brought to mind a bizarre devil fruit. However, even after thoroughly searching the devil fruit encyclopedia, no fruit perfectly matched Alucard's characteristics. Therefore, Vegapunk made a conjecture. Alucard was not an ordinary human. He might be a special race, similar to the currently discovered fishmen, merfolk, or mink, or perhaps he consumed a devil fruit. This could better explain his multiple abilities. Regarding Vegapunk's conjecture, because there was still too little intelligence, the Marines temporarily withheld judgment. They distributed the information gathered about Alucard from this battle to other officers and soldiers, including the ability to sink into shadows that Zephyr and Kuzan had previously provided. On the other side, there was the matter of the Roger pirates. Borsellino was still too green. Even though he launched a sneak attack on the Roger pirates while their captain and vice-captain were absent, he ultimately fell short against the combatant Gaban, and was eventually forced back by Roger himself, who had rushed back. By the time Garp's reinforcements arrived, the Roger pirates had long since made their escape. According to Roger's slip of the tongue, he and Alucard had encountered each other on Sabayati Archipelago. Afterward, the Marine who provided intelligence to Borsellino and his group couldn't be found. After roughly understanding the sequence of events, Chief of Staff Tsuru boldly speculated that perhaps the intelligence about the Roger pirates was sold to Borsellino's group by Alucard. His aim was to use Roger to draw away Borsellino and the majority of the Marines, allowing himself to escape safely. Alucard could easily achieve this by eliminating a small squad, seizing their den mushi, or by threatening a Marine into doing it, then silencing them. After thoroughly dissecting the situation, Tsuru increasingly felt that this young man, who was less than 20 years old according to the records, was not simple. Not only were his abilities terrifying, but his cunning and intellect were equally formidable. While Tsuru had deduced the situation, someone within the Roger pirates, currently on Fishman Island, had also reached the same conclusion. According to Gaban, during the several days he guarded the ship, he never sensed the presence of enemies through his observation haki, yet a large number of Marines inexplicably appeared to pursue them. For such a thing to happen, either Gaban was negligent, or one of their crew members exposed them. Rayleigh felt both conjectures were unlikely. Finally, recalling Alucard, who had said some strange things to them before they landed on Sabayati Archipelago, he couldn't help but arrive at the same conclusion as Tsuru. However, Rayleigh kept it to himself, as it was merely a speculation. The most important thing was that everyone on the ship was safe. After concluding his battle with Rear Admiral Delisle, Alucard embarked on a journey to find the island Vegapunk had mentioned, Basenber Island. Vegapunk had provided a roughly drawn map, sketched by hand. Their meeting at the time was too urgent, and it was impossible for things to simply disappear from the research lab. Even for a map, Vegapunk feared discovery by the Marines or the world government, so he could only resort to hand-drawing it. Sailing in the New World made one susceptible to the weather. Even with hidden shadow navigation, a slight misstep could lead to confusion about direction. Alucard remembered how Don Quixote da Flamingo had once traveled alone, without a compass or similar equipment, and easily reached Punk Hazard from Dressrosa. Such a feat could only mean he was intimately familiar with those locations. Tom seems to have prepared special eternal poses for New World navigation here. Alucard retrieved an eternal pose with 3 rings from his room and sailed in the direction drawn on Vegapunk's map. Since no distance was marked, Alucard could only proceed slowly. After 5 days of sailing, Alucard successfully arrived at an island. The island wasn't particularly large. What made Alucard stop wasn't his usual need to replenish his alcohol supply, but rather a very conspicuous object on the island's dock that caught his attention. On the dockside, a towering flagpole stood, with a flag fluttering in the wind. On the white skull was a crescent-shaped white mustache curling upwards at the mouth. It was the mark of the Whitebeard pirates. Alucard was intrigued by someone capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the Pirate King. Could Whitebeard be on the island? After docking his ship by the shore, Alucard officially landed on the island. Seeing Whitebeard's flag waving on the flagpole, he suddenly recalled that he didn't have a personal flag yet. Did he need one? Never mind, that's a small matter for later. Alucard shook his head with a chuckle, then turned and walked into the city. Chapter 86, Whitebeard's Subordinate Pirate Crew. After wandering around the city for a while, Alucard had a complete understanding of the situation here. The flag on the pole was undoubtedly Whitebeard's. However, this didn't mean Whitebeard himself was on the island, it signified that this island was Whitebeard's territory. This island was called New Kaba. It was one of the closest island cities to the New World entrance and a relatively prosperous industrial hub. Being at the entrance of the New World essentially put it in a dangerous zone. As the further one ventured into the New World, the more tumultuous it became, and the lower the chances of survival. The entrance was considered one of the safest places, yet the unrest was particularly intense there. Moreover, New Kaba being a wealthy city only added to its allure. Both Whitebeard and Kaido had once vied for control of this place, with Whitebeard ultimately claiming it. Since Whitebeard wasn't on the island and he had ample alcohol packed away, Alucard hadn't intended to stay too long. But before leaving, he decided to enjoy himself at the most famous bar here. The biggest difference from other bars was that this one featured dancers and other performances, and also offered the service of women for companionship. Of course, whether there were deeper services, Alucard didn't know, but as a man, how could he not take a good look when he came to such a place? Entering this large bar, which spanned several hundred square meters, Alucard chose a seat to the right of the stage. The dancers performed in successive batches. New dancers appeared regularly. After Alucard sat down, less than 10 minutes later, 5 slender women in revealing, ethnically flavored attire appeared. As they cast alluring glances at the audience, the pirates and local residents below screamed in delight. Alucard took a swig of his drink, a smile flashing across his eyes as he muttered to himself, "I see, this is indeed much more interesting than an ordinary tavern." Though he enjoyed alcohol in his previous life, Alucard had never frequented places of pleasure. While he told his friends he was afraid of getting sick, in reality, he preferred quiet environments. The deafening music of nightclubs was something he truly couldn't stand. Just as the 5 dancers on stage were about to finish their routine, the bar's main door suddenly opened. This wouldn't normally draw attention, but upon seeing who entered, the people, whose attention had been focused on the dancers, gasped in surprised whispers. Some even showed expressions of fear. "Road Crassien? That guy hasn't left yet. SHH, don't say that. Be careful, he hears you." "Exactly. He's a pirate crew under Whitebeard, practically half of the Whitebeard pirates. Don't forget whose territory this island is. The Gold Shark Pirates, right? I wonder how he got on Whitebeard's ship. Alucard turned to look, and the three men with bronze-colored skin made him recall a species of fishmen he'd seen recently. Indeed, the man named Rode Crassian looked like a fishman, somewhat resembling a younger Arlong, but with bronze skin. Is there really such a bizarre fishman race? Alucard chuckled inwardly, then heard the discussions of other island residents nearby and couldn't help but think, a pirate crew under the Whitebeard pirates? That old man's sons truly are spread far and wide. However, seeing the fearful expressions of many residents, it seemed this Crassian wasn't a good person either. Of course, some of this might just be the ordinary populace's inherent fear of pirates. Oh, new merchandise. Not bad, not bad. Crassian and a few of his subordinates walked to the central seats closest to the stage. They were originally occupied, but upon seeing Crassian and his group arrive, the people there were so scared they automatically scurried away. From their practiced movements, it was clear this wasn't the first time such a thing had happened. The five dancers felt Crassian's invading gaze from below the stage. After finishing their last dance, they bowed to the patrons below and quickly retreated backstage. Immediately, a man in a red suit, resembling a host, stepped onto the stage. When he saw Crassian and his group, a hint of fear flashed across his face, but he forced a smile and stood on stage, saying, "All right, everyone, next is our bar's weekly companion service. I'm sure you all know the rules, but perhaps some new guests have arrived, so please allow me a few more words. The companion service is strictly for companionship. Please do not do anything excessive. Any method is fine, as long as the girls are willing to offer you their companionship. This time, the companion service will be provided by the 5 beautiful new dancers our bar just hired." Bang! No sooner had the man in the red suit on stage finished speaking than Crassian impatiently slammed the table, standing up forcefully and shouting, "These 5 women are mine, of course. Do you think anyone dares to object?" Zin. Zin was the name of the host in the red suit on stage, and also the owner of this bar. Crassian had been his most frequent customer over the past 2 months, and arguably, the customer he hated the most in his life. His bar's weekly companion service was originally a popular event in town, neither too big nor too small. The companionship was truly just that. Customers might flirt a little, but the owner would step in to prevent anything beyond that. After all, his establishment wasn't a brothel. If word got out, who would dare to work there? And this level of companionship was something the women in the bar could grudgingly accept. Originally, business at the bar had been booming because of this activity, but everything was disrupted by Crassian's arrival. Chapter 87, Can You Outcompete Me? Crassian's Gold Shark Pirates were one of the crews under the Whitebeard Pirates, and this new Kaba Island was Whitebeard's territory. The city's mayor regularly paid a portion of the island's earnings to Whitebeard. In this sense, Crassian was like the spoiled son of a landlord. He had discovered this island 2 months prior. Unlike the Golden Lion's fleet, Whitebeard's men were scattered across the 4 seas. After finding this place, Crassian wasn't so arrogant at first, only paying for companionship. But over time, he became increasingly egregious. What started as mere companionship escalated to forcing women into bed, and now it was essentially outright abduction. Many young women working there were too terrified to come, some even fleeing. It was easy to imagine how badly Zin's business suffered during that period. 2 weeks ago, Crassian and his Gold Shark Pirates had left, reportedly to attend a meeting of Whitebeard's subordinate crews. Zin had been excited for a long time upon hearing this news, and had even hired these 5 dancers. He never expected that before he could enjoy his relief for a few days, that bastard Crassian would return. And from the looks of it, he intended to resume his forced acts. Had this scoundrel truly gotten a hold of him? Alucard wasn't aware of all this history, but if he were, he'd probably sigh, "Scum can be found anywhere." With Crassian's declaration, everyone turned their heads away in a gesture of deference, which greatly pleased Crassian. He was, after all, part of one of Whitebeard's pirate crews. This was just a small place within Whitebeard's territory. Who would dare to contradict him? "Hey, store manager on stage, didn't you say the companion girls could choose themselves? Bring them out." Suddenly, a voice rang out, startling everyone. Who was that? Who dared to cross someone under Whitebeard's command? Everyone turned their heads at once, only to see a young man sitting at a small table on the right. Despite the bar's dim lighting, the man wore wine-red, round-rimmed glasses, had one leg crossed over the other, and his hands clasped on his upper knee. "Hey, don't you know I'm one of Pop's sons?" Crassian noticed Alucard and roared furiously. "Manager, didn't you just state the rules? Why aren't you letting them choose?" Alucard completely ignored Crassian, continuing to address Zin. "You bastard? Looks like you don't understand the situation." Crassian sneered, then turned to Zin and said, "Zin, bring out those 5 women. Let them show this pretty boy with their actions who they'll choose." Rather than killing Alucard, Crassian found it more interesting to have the 5 women publicly reject Alucard, making him slink away like a beaten dog. That would be most gratifying. Zin himself had set the rules, so he couldn't go back on his word. He quickly retreated backstage, called out the 5 elegantly dressed dancers, and swiftly informed them of Crassian's identity, urging them to choose carefully. The 5 beautiful dancers emerged, comparing Alucard and Crassian. Even with Alucard wearing sunglasses, any fool could tell he was absolutely handsome, while Crassian looked like a mutated shark man. With even a slight comparison, anyone would know how to choose. Before Crassien's disturbances, customers seeking companionship here usually relied on money as an enticement. However, there were also companion women who prioritized looks or handsome men, willing to forego payment just to be companions with someone they admired. While rare, such situations weren't unheard of. The 5 dancers had also heard about Crassien's conduct. He wasn't just looking for companionship, but likely forced women into bed. What was more shameless was that he almost certainly wouldn't pay, and often left the women half dead. Given all this, the 5 dancers naturally, internally, all chose Alucard. But the most crucial issue was that Crassien was a subordinate of Whitebeard. He was a subordinate of the great pirate Whitebeard Newgate, the master of this city. How protective Whitebeard was of his own was common knowledge in the New World. What's there to hesitate about? I'm one of Whitebeard's sons. Seeing the dancers on stage showing hesitant expressions, Crassien roared in anger, startling everyone in the bar except Alucard. There was no choice. Choosing Crassien might mean death, but choosing Alucard meant almost certain death. At worst, they'd just consider their bodies violated by a dog. A long-haired woman in a blue dress, who was leading the group, gritted her teeth. Facing Crassien, she said, I choose. Just as Crassien was about to burst into laughter at the woman choosing him, Alucard stood up and interjected, wait. Those 2 simple words instantly drew everyone's attention back to Alucard, including the dancers. Alucard slowly raised a hand, extended a finger, and pointed at the blue-dressed dancer who had spoken. In a deep voice, he said, the person you choose, is me, right? Huh? Kid, are you crazy? This woman? Yes. Crassien was about to mock Alucard when he heard the blue-dressed woman reply, yes, I choose, that gentleman in red. In the disbelieving gazes of everyone present, the other 4 dancers also spoke up, me too, me too, me too, and me? The results were in. All 5 women chose Alucard. Chapter 88, 3rd rate. More like 9th rate. Good. What are you waiting for? Come pour me some wine. Alucard settled back into his seat. Inside the bar, Zin and the Gold Shark pirates stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. The 5 beautiful women approached Alucard. What was originally a small table for 2 was now surrounded by 5 beauties serving Alucard, pouring drinks, massaging his back, and kneading his legs. If Alucard hadn't preferred pouring his own wine, they'd probably be feeding it to him too. These 5 women aren't playing by the rules, many people screamed inwardly. Don't they know who Crassien is? He's Whitebeard's crew, practically Whitebeard's son. They couldn't possibly be unaware. Even the woman in the blue dress had initially intended to go to Crassien. So how did it change so completely with just a finger gesture from that young man? Is he a devil fruit user? Many speculated. If he had a versatile devil fruit ability, controlling a few ordinary dancers would certainly be easy. These people had indeed guessed correctly for the most part. Alucard was using one of his abilities, Charm, which granted him the power to temporarily control people's minds. Previously, it was a one-on-one ability, but now he could control multiple people, though still only ordinary individuals. Once the dancers began serving Alucard, they gradually broke free from his control, their minds reeling. What happened? Why did I make such a choice just now? They couldn't explain it themselves. They clearly wanted to choose that fish man, but why did they end up choosing this young man? The blue-dressed woman, leading the group, nervously glanced at Crassien out of the corner of her eye, seeing his teeth chattering with rage. It sent a shiver down her spine. In this situation, even if she turned back to him, she probably wouldn't escape being ravaged to death. Alucard enjoyed the service of the 5 women, acting as if nothing was amiss. What's wrong, manager? Call out new dancers. Is this establishment really limited to just these 5 women? Before Zin could reply, Crassien smashed the nearby table with a punch, roaring at Alucard, you little cheat. Alucard squinted, glancing at Crassien, and chuckled. Cheat. That was a devil fruit ability, wasn't it? Don't think I'm blind. Crassien fumed. I think you don't know who I am. I am a son of Whitebeard, Gold Shark Crassien, with a bounty of 120 million berries. Crassien's roar sent shivers down everyone's spines in the bar. Many scrambled out, and one of the women, dressed in a light yellow gauze dress and pouring wine for Alucard, trembled with fear, almost spilling red wine on him. Luckily, Alucard steadied the bottle, preventing the spill. First, you announce Whitebeard's name, then your own. Looks like you're just a 3rd-rate pirate. Oh no, not even 3rd-rate. 9th-rate suits you better, Alucard sneered mockingly, his glasses only enhancing the derisive look on his face. Putting Whitebeard's name first already proved he was nothing but a useless wretch swaggering around on Whitebeard's reputation. What did you say? Crassien, enraged, kicked a large wine table nearby, sending it flying. Bang! Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, shattering the table midair. Splintered wood flew in all directions. The 5 dancers beside Alucard covered themselves with their hands, but some splinters still struck them. Aside from a bit of pain, they were unharmed. The Whitebeard pirates have their share of trash too. Alucard stood up, raising Kajal. Too bad I can't claim a bounty for your head now, and I don't want to drink that disgusting blood. Sending you straight to hell should suffice, right? Swish! In an instant, Crassien appeared behind Alucard, grinning ferociously. Anyone can talk big. Let me show you the Gold Shark's power. He was a hybrid of a shark fishman and a golden goldfish merfolk, inheriting his father's physique and his mother's skin. This appearance was often mocked by many on Fishman Island. Unable to endure it, he eventually came to the surface and, despite his ugliness, formed his own pirate crew through sheer strength. He was later defeated by Whitebeard and pledged allegiance. However, his core personality remained unchanged. He loved bullying the weak, especially women, and was severely addicted to it. Boom! Fishman karate. Alucard turned his head to look at the hand chop swinging towards him, guessing inwardly. But no, it was merely a clumsy imitation, forcibly mimicking it, then developing a personal fighting style with only a hint of Fishman karate. Alucard hadn't even drawn his black gun, Jackal, with his other right hand. He countered directly with an identical hand chop. Humph! A mere human, comparing strength with a fishman? Overestimating yourself. Cassian snorted, increasing his power. Their hand chops collided, unleashing a powerful burst of air that sent the 5 frail dancers flying. One of the women in red unfortunately struck a broken wooden plank, leaving a bloody gash on her exposed abdomen. The other 4, though not as severely, also sustained minor injuries. Cassian was shocked by Alucard's strength, retreating a few steps, staring at Alucard in disbelief. Alucard drew his black gun, Jackal, the hammer clicking with a sharp sound. Weak women, get out of here immediately. As Alucard spoke, the other 4 women immediately ran to the red-dressed dancer, struggling to lift her and carry her away. Cassian and the rest of the Gold Shark pirates didn't stop them, as Alucard, their formidable enemy, could not be ignored, nor could they afford to be distracted. Chapter 89, You Think I'm Afraid of Whitebeard? Swish! Alucard vanished in an instant. When he reappeared, he hovered above everyone like a soaring rock. Look out! Cassian yelled, warning his crew. In less than a second, Alucard fired. Casual discharged multiple shots, instantly riddling the members of the Gold Shark pirates like sieves. You bastard! Cassian roared, leaping forward to confront Alucard. He clasped his hands together, his combined fists turning black, as if encased in armor. Armament haki? That makes sense. How else would he survive in the new world without knowing this technique? Die, brat! Cassian leaped even higher than Alucard, bringing his haki-coated fists down like thunder hammers. But Alucard raised Jackal, which he'd held in his hand but hadn't fired until now, aiming it directly at Cassian's fists. Fire! Bang! A massive gunshot echoed through the bar. Many pirates and residents hiding outside heard the sound, mistaking it for a cannon firing. Cassian's body slammed into a corner of the bar, shattering countless tables and chairs with his massive frame. But compared to humans, fishmen's bodies were much tougher. The splintered wood caused him no harm. The problem, however, was his hands. After a moment, Cassian, crumpled in the corner, felt a searing pain. He looked down to see both his palms mangled into raw flesh. Bloody white bones protruded, looking like fresh meat from a slaughterhouse. My hands? My hands, Nua! Cassian screamed in agony, unable to believe the power of that black gun. How could this happen? He'd even dared to fight Marine Vice Admirals. Under the cover of armament haki, just one shot had utterly destroyed both his hands. How was this possible? Casings made of pure silver, specially processed alloy, loaded with Marvel's chemical cartridge N.A.9, fitted with consecrated mercury bullets. Alucard bared his vampiric fangs, displaying the black gun, Jackal, before Cassian. Did you really think your meager haki could withstand its power? Shut up. Ignoring his mangled hands, Cassian charged at Alucard again. He was a veteran of many battles, he wouldn't run from something like this. Alucard pushed the chamber, switching to casual, and fired continuously. Cassian rapidly dodged the bullets within the bar, steadily closing in on Alucard. Fishman karate? Leg cutter. Cassian unleashed a powerful kick at Alucard's lower body. But suddenly, he felt something grab his extended leg. He looked down to see a hand emerge from the shadow on the ground, wearing the same white glove as Alucard, but with an arm formed from shadow, grasping his kicking leg. In your haste, you forgot to use observation haki? Or perhaps you only know armament and not observation. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Alucard's black gun, Jackal, was reloaded and pressed against Cassian's forehead. I'm not interested in your blood. You can go straight to hell. As the black gun, which had mangled his hands, pressed against his forehead, Cassian finally succumbed to his inner terror, his eyes wide. Wait, do you know my captain, my pop, who he is? Alucard chuckled softly, Whitebeard. So what? Since you know, you'd best let me go? This entire region is the territory of my Whitebeard pirates? If you kill me, you'll absolutely... Bang! Cassian's head exploded into a bloody mess the instant the bullet fired. His large body collapsed, signaling the end of the fight. So what if he is? Alucard's fangs gleamed, his eyes glinting menacingly as he looked at the fishman's corpse on the ground. Do you think I'm afraid of Whitebeard? When Alucard walked out of the bar, many pirates who had been lingering outside rushed in after seeing him leave. Upon seeing Cassian's headless corpse, which was still identifiable due to the distinct features of a fishman's body, they were instantly terrified. The pirates fled the bar one after another. This was Whitebeard's territory, and one of Whitebeard's subordinate pirates had been killed here. For the locals, there was no more explosive news. In less than 2 hours, the news that the Gold Shark pirates, a crew under the Whitebeard pirates, had been completely wiped out spread throughout the entire town of New Kaba. On the other hand, Alucard didn't immediately set sail. He had been drifting at sea for almost a week. Shouldn't he properly enjoy finding land? Besides, the companion service there wasn't bad, was it? The women were quite high quality too. Zin, the bar owner, was both excited and terrified upon hearing of Krasien's death. How was he going to explain that one of Whitebeard's men died in his establishment? Sure enough, the next day, by evening, which should have been the bar's peak hours, it remained completely empty. Although the body had been dealt with, the air still seemed to carry a strong scent of blood. With Whitebeard's man dying on Whitebeard's territory, who would dare patronize the place now? Manager, we found something. A waiter handed a bounty poster to Zin. Zin took it, froze in place, and then screamed a few seconds later, "What? A bounty of 200 million berries." Chapter 90, The Avengers Arrive. Manager, are you going to kick him out? The blue-dressed dancer who was caught in yesterday's commotion hesitated for a few seconds before asking Zin. Zin put down the bounty poster, his face a bewildered husky-like expression. Kick him out? The man had a bounty of 200 million berries? He was above Krasien. Did she dare to kick him out? But then Zin thought about Whitebeard's even more terrifying bounty and immense reputation. Should I run away quickly? However, Alucard was already here. On second thought, it seemed better to deal with this harbinger of disaster first. Thinking this, Zin told the blue-dressed dancer, "Arya, I'm relying on you and the others. Please try to stall him for a bit. I'll figure something out in the meantime." Understood. Arya nodded and quickly walked from backstage to Alucard's side, pouring him a drink. "Why is it so quiet? Tell your people to come out and work." Alucard didn't accept the drink Arya offered, but asked boredly. Arya hesitated for a long time before speaking with difficulty. I'm sorry. Because of yesterday's incident, many people are afraid to come to work." Alucard chuckled softly, taking a sip of his wine. "Don't they have that much courage working in the New World?" Arya couldn't help but roll her eyes. She had never encountered such a situation before, because this was Whitebeard's territory. Ever since Whitebeard took over many years ago, the consequences of such an incident were unpredictable. Arya herself had never actually met Whitebeard, and could only secretly hope he wouldn't take his anger out on them. But then again, were pirates ever that reasonable? Besides you, how many people are left in the bar? I believe I requested 5 yesterday, didn't I? Hearing Alucard's words, Arya's expression darkened. Jane was injured yesterday, and 2 other friends are taking care of her. Now, besides the manager and me, there are only a few people left in the bar. Alucard said no more. He planned to stay on this island for a while longer, also wanting to observe Whitebeard's reaction. It was rumored that Whitebeard would never forgive anyone who harmed his comrades. However, his old rivals like Roger, Golden Lion, and Garp were still alive and well. Alucard was curious to see if Whitebeard would truly come after him. Since New Kaba Island was Whitebeard's territory, there was naturally no marine branch here. In fact, most islands in the New World didn't have marine branches. At most, fleets would be dispatched for patrols. Currently, the only large marine bases in the New World were G1 and G5 branches. Those who could enter this area were generally elite pirates. If the Marines or the world government wanted to apprehend someone, they would directly dispatch fleets. On a small desolate island very close to New Kaba Island, a pirate crew was resting on the beach. This was the Maelstrom Spider Pirates, led by Captain Squard. Although they hadn't yet joined the Whitebeard Pirates, Squard had an extremely good relationship with Gold Shark Krasien, a subordinate of the Whitebeard Pirates. "Captain." A slovenly dressed pirate frantically ran to Squard, who was lying on the beach. "What's wrong? Why all the fuss?" Squard squinted at his subordinate. "Krasien? Krasien has been killed," the subordinate shouted excitedly. This shout immediately startled everyone in the Maelstrom Spider Pirates. If the Gold Shark Pirates had been killed before joining the Whitebeard Pirates, they wouldn't have found it strange. Pirates in the New World constantly fought each other. But with Whitebeard as such an impenetrable shield, someone still dared to kill Krasien? Unbelievable? Who did it? Roger? Golden Lion? Or even Redfield? Squard's face turned red with anger. The 3 names he rattled off were all names of men at the pinnacle of the New World. It's a rookie named Alucard, originally a pirate hunter. The subordinate pulled out a bounty poster from his clothes and handed it to Squard. Squard took it and looked. A 200 million berry bounty? He's a somewhat capable rookie. According to intelligence, he's a lone wolf. He doesn't have a pirate crew, the subordinate added. Where did something happen to Krasien? It was in New Kaba town. He might have some strength, but he's utterly foolish. Squard grabbed his large katana from beside him and roared, "This bastard! How dare he kill my brother? Lads, let's go take him down." "Captain, calm down," a subordinate came over and said. Krasien was a member of the Whitebeard Pirates. "The Whitebeard Pirates will deal with it themselves. We don't need to do anything, right?" Although the Maelstrom Spider Pirates had a good relationship with the Gold Shark Pirates, unlike them, they weren't officially under the Whitebeard Pirates. So many felt that the Whitebeard Pirates would definitely take action, and they didn't need to get involved. "You idiot." Squard punched his subordinate. "My brother was killed. Do you think I'm some coward who'd put my hopes in others?" Squard bellowed at his subordinates. "With our current strength, do you think we can't handle a rookie kid? Squard's confidence was well-founded. His own strength was comparable to Gold Shark Crassian's, but the strength of their respective pirate crews was not on the same level. Crassian had an eccentric and somewhat perverse personality, with fewer than 10 total crew members, while his Maelstrom Spider pirates numbered over 100. With such a disparity in combat power, Squard didn't believe he would lose to a rookie. That guy must have only barely defeated Crassian, so Squard decided he would avenge his brother, and since they were so close to New Kaba, it was a perfect chance to show Whitebeard's people the strength of the Maelstrom Spider pirates. Chapter 91, The Approaching 2nd Division Commander. New World, one of Whitebeard's territorial islands. Pops, Crassian was killed. Yozu, commander of the 3rd Division, grit his teeth as he spoke to Whitebeard, who sat on his throne aboard the ship. Although that guy was selfish, I still acknowledge him as one of our crew. Now that he's been killed, I don't think we can stand by and do nothing. My son, regardless of personality, they are still my children. But as men of the sea, those who dare to kill must have the resolve to be killed. At this time, Whitebeard had golden hair and was in his prime. He slapped the armrest of his throne firmly. Since that kid killed my son, it means he has the resolve to be killed himself. That reckless boy, Drew, has already gone. You'll be too late if you go now, Whitebeard said, tilting his head back. Drew, huh? In that case, it should be fine. Jaws nodded. Drew, the commander of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, a devil fruit user. He was one of the Whitebeard Pirates' main combatants, with a bounty of 360 million berries. Meanwhile, far away in New Kaba town, a pirate crew docked near the town. They had stopped mainly because they saw a ship near the pier. That iron ship, that's that brat Alucard's, right? Gaban said, looking at the relatively small steel ship next to the Jackson. We meet again. Looks like we're quite fated to cross paths. Shanks leaned against the ship's railing, looking at Alucard's ship with a hint of excitement. Beside him, Buggy looked green. You're kidding, right? We have to run into that immortal bastard again. Immediately, Buggy jumped to Roger's side, grabbing his arm. Captain, I don't want to meet that freak. Can't we just go to the next island? And besides, this is Whitebeard's territory. After speaking, Buggy pointed at the flagpole on the shore, where the Whitebeard pirate's flag was flying. Shut up, Buggy. Rayleigh lowered the gangplank, then turned his gaze. We lost a lot of supplies in Sabayati Archipelago due to Borsalino and their attack. We have to buy more here. If you're really scared, stay on the ship as a lookout. Shanks teased from the side. Well, Captain and Whitebeard are mortal enemies. If his men see our flag, it's possible they might come attacking. As good friends, Shanks already knew how to tease Buggy. As expected, upon hearing Shanks's words, Buggy immediately changed his tune. Is that so? Please, Captain, you must let me come ashore with you. Buggy was calculating in his mind, compared to guarding the ship, it's definitely safer to follow the captain. The Roger Pirates had a total of just over 50 members. A few, including main combatant Gaban, stayed behind. Roger and Rayleigh took the majority of the remaining crew, including Buggy and Shanks, onto the island. There were no Marines on this island, so what Shanks said was just to trick Buggy. In reality, the possibility of it happening was extremely low. This island is too quiet, isn't it? Looking at the desolate streets, Buggy turned to glance down the street, noticing a woman who had been looking at them through a window immediately closing it after realizing she'd been seen, as if she had seen pirates. Cough, cough, although they were pirates. Excuse me? Rayleigh finally found a passerby and stopped him. Can you tell us what happened here? New Kaba, as Whitebeard's territory, should have been peaceful, with no pirates daring to attack it. But why did it look like it had just gone through a disaster? The passerby originally didn't want to answer anything and just wanted to leave, but seeing the weapons Rayleigh and the others carried, he could only obediently explain. It's a pirate who killed one of Whitebeard's men a few days ago. Now everyone is afraid of Whitebeard's wrath and are only daring to hide at home. I'm only risking coming out to buy some food because my family literally has nothing to eat. Did that person escape? And no, he's been at Zin's bar in the west of town for the past few days. Thank you. Rayleigh released the man, letting him leave, then walked to Roger's side and said, I think I can guess who that person is. Ha 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 ha. Roger threw his head back and laughed a few times. He just arrived in the new world and dares to kill one of Whitebeard's men? He's not a quiet kid. Interesting, ha 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 ha. What an incorrigible idiot. Buggy was too astonished to speak. That immortal bastard actually attacked the Whitebeard pirates right after arriving in the new world. Did he want to die? He really wanted to die. Then let's go see. What a coincidence, this is already our 3rd meeting in 2 months. Roger said, walking towards the west of town. I feel like a drink anyway. Here it is. Rayleigh and the others quickly arrived at the entrance of a bar in the west of town called Zin's Bar, and pushed the door open. Inside the large bar hall, it was completely empty except for one person. What was striking was that even so, dancers were still performing on stage. In the middle seat closest to the stage, a man sat with his back to them. Around him, 3 beautiful women were serving him, massaging his legs, pouring drinks. Upon hearing the sound of the door opening behind him, the serving women beside Alucard all turned their heads in unison. Alucard's attention had been focused on the dancers performing on stage, but after a few seconds, he slowly stood up, turned around, and said, I was expecting Whitebeard to arrive. Why is it you all? Through the all-seeing observation of thermal vision, Alucard knew it was the Roger pirates the moment they entered the door. Seeing the boldly dressed women beside Alucard, Roger chuckled. You certainly know how to enjoy yourself, kid. Chapter 92, Get Lost, Cannon Fodder. Roger and his crew sat down near Alucard. Alucard didn't bother with pleasantries. He simply sat back down and told Arya and the others, don't mind them. They're not from the Whitebeard pirates. Yes, Alucard-sama. Arya resumed pouring Alucard's wine, while the other two women continued their service. You really know how to enjoy yourself, kid. I've never seen a rookie kill one of Whitebeard's men and then just sit there so brazenly. Roger chuckled, then shouted towards the back of the bar, hey, you hiding back there, bring us some rum. Zin and the others hiding backstage jumped in fright. How were they discovered? Although people in the New World knew quite a bit about devil fruits, very few knew about haki. Soon, the Roger pirates also began to drink heavily. After exhaling deeply, Roger asked, by the way, why did you kill one of Whitebeard's men? Didn't you like them? Pirates should always be ready to die. That goes for you, and it goes for me too, Alucard replied, not directly answering the question. That's not an answer at all, is it? Rayleigh said, raising his glass. Well, Whitebeard won't let anyone who harms his subordinates off the hook. I'm one of them. Roger swirled his drink, his face turning slightly red from excessive drinking. But it's no big deal anyway, Roger said, turning to Arya and the others. I heard the incident happened right here in this bar. Hey, girls, tell us what happened. You must know what went down, right? Arya and the two other women looked at Roger's crew with lingering fear. These were pirates too, and their experience with Cassian had left them traumatized. It's alright if you don't want to talk about it, Rayleigh said, seeing the women's dilemma, acting as a peacemaker. And no, it's fine. Arya, a bit bolder, slowly began to recount the dispute between Alucard and Cassian from a few days prior. She also explained Cassian's villainous acts in the town over the past 2 months, though she conveniently omitted the part about Alucard using some ability to control their choices. After all, Alucard was still right there. She couldn't possibly speak ill of someone right to their face, could she? Oh, so Whitebeard still has them, these brats who like to cause trouble. Roger wasn't surprised by this. Among the pirate crews, outside of the Marines and the world government, only Golden Lion Shiki could compare to Whitebeard in terms of fleet and subordinate numbers. With thousands of subordinates, what was surprising about a few rotten apples? Besides, wasn't that just how pirates were? But you're still here. Are you waiting for Whitebeard's people to show up? Roger had already guessed Alucard's intention. You daring kid, Whitebeard isn't easy to deal with. It's nothing. It's bound to happen sooner or later. I can't wait. Alucard leaned his head back on the chair, chuckling softly. He'd encounter them eventually anyway. This was a good opportunity. How could he miss it? Pair. After Roger and the others had been drinking in the bar for a while, the sound of a den mushy suddenly rang out. Rayleigh took out a den mushy wearing sunglasses from his pocket, answered it, and said, Gaban, has it happened at the port? A pirate ship has landed. I didn't stop them. They recognized us but avoided us, came Gaban's voice, a combatant of the Roger pirates, from the other end of the den mushy. A pirate crew? Could it be one of Whitebeard's subordinate fleets? Upon hearing Rayleigh's words, everyone except a few, including Buggy, who were still apprentice pirates, remained calm. They had already fought the Whitebeard pirates before, let alone their subordinate fleets. No, it's the Maelstrom Spider pirates. Their captain is Squard. Their bounty is. The sound of pages turning came from the den mushy. A few seconds later, it said, oh. Their bounty exceeds 100 million berries. After the Maelstrom Spider pirates avoided us just now, they stormed into town. I don't know what's going on, but it shouldn't be us. I understand. Good work. Come in and have a drink too. After speaking, Rayleigh hung up the den mushy, turned to the others, and said, Squard is a somewhat famous young pirate in the New World, but we can confirm his target isn't us. As Rayleigh spoke, everyone from the Roger pirates focused their attention on Alucard. It was clear there were no other factions on this island. They were definitely here for Alucard. If they're not Whitebeard's subordinates, what's the point? Alucard's faint interest instantly vanished after hearing the conversation between Rayleigh and Gaban. Thud. Just then, the bar's front door was kicked open. Everyone turned to look. A large group of people crowded the doorway. At the forefront was a man with a spider tattoo on his head and long, dark pink hair, wielding a large katana. He roared, Alucard, who killed my brother Cassian, is he here? Captain, that guy is Squard, the navigator, Nosden, said, walking over to Roger. Meanwhile, after Squard finished speaking, he saw the Roger pirates inside and his face stiffened. Some of his subordinates also recognized Roger immediately and fearfully whispered, Captain Squard, that's Gold Roger. The Maelstrom Spider pirates knew the Roger pirates were on the island when they landed, but they never expected to find Gold Roger himself inside this very bar. Your name is Squard, right? Alucard didn't even bother to get up from his chair. He turned and lazily glanced at Squard. I'm not interested in you. Get lost, cannon fodder. Chapter 93, It's lawless, not free. Upon hearing that Squard and his crew weren't Whitebeard's direct subordinates, Alucard immediately lost interest. The only reason he'd stayed on this island was to await the arrival of the Whitebeard pirates. Squard held no interest for him whatsoever. Still, the name did sound familiar. Had he appeared in the original story? Alucard pondered for a moment but couldn't recall who it was, assuming he was probably just a minor background character. So, he didn't give it much more thought. Hearing Alucard's words, Squard's face twisted in anger, but he still said, "You're Alucard, right? The one who killed my brother, Cassian? Come out now and let's fight to the death." He paused slightly, then turned to Roger and asked, "This matter has nothing to do with the Roger pirates. Are you going to interfere?" Young man, I think there might be a misunderstanding between you two." Although Rayleigh felt a slight animosity towards Alucard, he still thought it necessary to explain. He stood up and said, "Actually, this whole incident started because of your friend, Cassian." Rayleigh quickly summarized the cause of the dispute between Alucard and Cassian, but explained it clearly. "So, in the end, this whole thing happened because Cassian was causing trouble in this town," Rayleigh concluded. Squard and the members of the Maelstrom Spider Pirates' expressions shifted slightly. They had a long-standing relationship with the Gold Shark Pirates, and naturally knew Cassian's usual penchant for causing trouble. It wasn't surprising that such an incident occurred. Moreover, the explanation came from the renowned Dark King Rayleigh, which lent it even more credibility. However, such was the way of pirates. If they didn't harm others, would they even be called pirates? Roger and Luffy were the true anomalies. In Squard's eyes, Cassian's actions were no big deal at all. That's just how pirates were. The fact was that Alucard killed Cassian. "Silvers Rayleigh?" Alucard spoke Rayleigh's full name. He slowly rose from his chair and walked to the center of the bar. "Your explanation is meaningless. Pirates are creatures that bring disaster wherever they go. It's only natural that they died seeking trouble from me." As soon as Alucard said this, Roger immediately interjected, "No, pirates are creatures who live freely." "You mean lawless, not free. Don't misuse words." "Free? Don't make me laugh." Roger's words were just sugarcoating what pirates truly were. Pirates were still villains who robbed civilians and ignored the law. Lawless was a far more accurate description than free. Alucard admitted he was that kind of person, so he held a stance of opposition, even contempt, towards Roger's attempts to glorify pirates. "Isn't it just about disregarding laws and being lawless? Why does it need to be spoken of so nobly, making pirates seem like saints, betraying the very meaning of the word thief? I am that kind of creature. Lawless, living purely for pleasure." Alucard drew his twin guns, smiling at Squard and his men. "All right, those who want my head, come quickly." Arya and the other women, seeing the impending battle, quickly ran back to the backstage. Seeing that Alucard wasn't going to be swayed by the Roger pirates, Rayleigh didn't waste any more words and simply sat down, looking like he was settling in to enjoy the show. Squard glanced at the Roger pirates, who showed no intention of leaving the bar, and asked, "Roger pirates, you won't interfere, right?" "Squard-san, you should worry more about your own men," Shanks said, sitting backward on his chair, his arms wrapped around the backrest, offering a kind reminder. Bang! No sooner had Shanks finished speaking than a gunshot rang out. Squard felt a bullet graze past his face. Suddenly, a crewmate behind him had his head blown off. Bang! 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 Bullets came one after another. Squard quickly reacted, furiously swinging his large katana, trying with all his might to block the bullets. To his surprise, he found the sheer force of these bullets to be utterly unimaginable. Even cannonballs weren't that hard to deflect. HRAH! Squard roared, deflecting 2 bullets fired from Casual with his blade. The impact of the blade against the wooden floor of the bar caused a loud bang, leaving a huge hole in the planks. Squard felt his arm go numb. What kind of bullets were those? Oh, he actually blocked 2 shots. This young man isn't bad, Rayleigh praised Squard. Having had a brief skirmish with Alucard before, Rayleigh understood how exaggerated the power and penetration of those bullets were. It was truly difficult for Squard to block them. Just as Squard looked up, he suddenly saw a shoe sole rapidly growing larger in his vision, finally stamping squarely on his face. Amidst intense pain, Squard crashed through a large hole in the bar wall, flying dozens of meters and smashing through several houses. After kicking Squard, Alucard vanished into a red blur, reappearing moments later among the Maelstrom Spider Pirates. His 2 handguns continuously swept through the crowd. Although the Maelstrom Spider Pirates had some capable fighters, most of them were headshotted before they could even react to Alucard's gunfire. Bang! 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 Brain matter and blood splattered together, mercilessly silencing lives. Last time, the bar was stained red. This time, it was the bar's entrance. Just as Alucard took down a dozen people, something unexpected happened. Usually, when bullets enter a person's brain, they remain lodged there because the human skull is very hard and thick, preventing penetration. However, the penetrating power of Alucard's bullets was so terrifying that ordinary guns couldn't even compare. After piercing through the heads of the Maelstrom Spider Pirates members, the bullets continued along their original trajectory, breaking through the bar wall and flying towards the Roger Pirates. Some of them were heading towards Buggy and his fellow apprentices. The speed was simply too fast, and because of the intervening wall, apprentice pirates like Buggy, whose strength wasn't yet sufficient, couldn't react in time. But this didn't escape Roger, who possessed world-class haki. Chapter 94, You Take the Blame. Roger drew his cutlass, and a sword wave erupted, shattering the bar's wall without excessively damaging the building. It was compressed sword energy? The power was compressed to the extreme, not for expansive range, but for sheer destructive force, like a certain overpowered move called the Raisnon. Roger, to avoid harming innocents, minimized the sword wave's range to its limit. Yet, as someone with top-tier combat power in this world, the power he unleashed instantly was not to be underestimated. In a flash, it shattered Alucard's bullets. Even so, the sword wave didn't stop, continuing its surge towards Alucard and the Maelstrom spider pirates. Crackle! Roger's sword wave swept through, slicing hundreds of entangled individuals in half, including Alucard. The sword wave was too fast and too fierce, no one had time to react before being horizontally cleaved. As for Alucard, he simply didn't know how to dodge. In less than 3 seconds, the street in front of the bar was littered with countless bisected corpses, a bloody spectacle. Residents who had been secretly peering through window cracks, living near the street, were directly terrified to the point of vomiting or even fainting. Roger immediately sensed the annihilation of the Maelstrom spider pirates, and for a moment, he was dumbfounded, muttering to himself, "Oh, no, I didn't control my power properly." He genuinely hadn't intended to kill everyone in the Maelstrom spider pirates. He only rushed in to save Buggy and the others when their heads were almost blown off by bullets. He accidentally failed to perfectly control his power, resulting in this outcome. Shanks and the others quickly got up and rushed to the bar's entrance, just in time to see Alucard, who had been cleaved in half like the Maelstrom spider pirates, suddenly dissolve into black mist before recoalescing and reviving. Shanks and his crew were long accustomed to such scenes of carnage, they merely paused for a moment and showed no further reaction. Buggy, on the other hand, was captivated by Alucard's ability. In truth, with his chop-chop fruit powers, he could also be cut by a sword and reattach himself, but Alucard's ability looked far more astonishing. True immortality. "Roger, you've completely wiped out the Maelstrom spider pirates," Rayleigh said, standing beside Roger at the bar's entrance. "Ah, well, I just accidentally didn't control my strength properly." Roger scratched his head sheepishly. "No, they're not all gone yet." Alucard, having reassembled himself, suddenly spoke, pointing his gun towards a broken house. There, Squard, the captain of the Maelstrom spider pirates, was just emerging from the rubble. After being kicked flying by Alucard earlier, he had fortunately avoided Roger's slash. Whether Alucard had saved his life or not was debatable. Upon seeing the bisected corpses of his comrades at Alucard's feet, Squard was in so much pain that he could barely speak, his throat emitting a hoarse sound. Alucard suddenly smiled, putting Cajal and Jackal back into his trench coat. He walked over to Squard, who was agonizingly kneeling on the ground, and said with great incitement, "Roger killed all your comrades, you know." "Hey, Alucard." Rayleigh frowned and called out, but this didn't stop Alucard's words. "Are you going to deny it, Roger? The Maelstrom spider pirates were wiped out by you. I only took down a few people, all the other 100 were killed by you. Am I wrong?" If there was a classic phrase to describe the Roger pirate's current mood, it would be, "That makes so much sense, I can't even refute it." Roger wasn't someone who excelled at verbal sparring. Over 90% of the Maelstrom spider pirates were indeed killed by his single slash just now, so, saying they were completely annihilated by him wasn't wrong at all. But why did it still sound off? Grah! Squard roared, having lost his sanity under Alucard's highly inflammatory words. He drew his large katana and charged at Roger. Captain. Shanks and the others quickly moved to block in front of Roger, but Roger pulled them aside, allowing Squard's blade to strike him. Then, Squard's katana was deflected. It was armament hacky defense? Due to the recoil, Squard fell to the ground. Roger scratched his beard awkwardly. "If I told you I didn't do it on purpose, would you forgive me?" Squard picked up his blade again and hacked at him. Roger raised a hand to block, stopping Squard's blade with his bare skin. He said helplessly, "I told you I didn't do it on purpose." It was Alucard's bullets. But Squard was beyond listening to Roger's words, merely swinging his cutlass repeatedly in a rage, while Roger simply blocked all the attacks with his bare hands. After Squard had swung his blade over 20 times, Alucard put his sunglasses back on and walked into the bar. "Boring. I'm going back for another drink." "Hey, you." Buggy angrily looked at Alucard. He had already heard Nosden explain what exactly happened, and wasn't all of this caused by that bastard Alucard shooting wildly? However, Alucard paid no more attention to Squard. He went back into the bar, called Arya and the others out, and continued drinking, only this time facing the door, watching Roger and Squard's battle as if it were a performance. Chapter 95, Whitebeard Pirates 2nd Division Commander. For 3 consecutive days, Squard, captain of the Maelstrom Spider Pirates, attempted to assassinate and challenge Roger a total of 27 times. All attempts ended in failure. The Roger pirates couldn't bring themselves to kill Squard, and in all 27 battles, Squard was spared. This afternoon marked the 28th battle. Not only Roger, but even Gaban and the others who were originally guarding the ship heard about it and came to watch. Alucard, meanwhile, treated the whole thing like an entertainment show. He set up a chair at the bar's entrance, watching Roger and Squard fight, while Arya and the others served Alucard fresh drinks at opportune moments. That guy's actions are truly annoying. Many members of the Roger pirates gritted their teeth at Alucard's, in their eyes, extremely punchable behavior, but they couldn't act on it and could only feign ignorance. You're welcome to come seek revenge whenever you want, but before that. Roger, who was blocking Squard's blade, pressed his finger against the edge of the cutlass. With a forceful push, he flung Squard away. Improve your abilities a bit first. Squard was violently thrown dozens of meters away, his weapon dropping from his hand in midair. All right, the 28th battle is officially over, Shanks said, clapping his hands. Can this boring stuff just end already? That spider is really annoying. The captain clearly doesn't want to kill him, so he should just get lost, Buggy said disdainfully, looking at Squard, who was struggling to get up in the distance. I welcome him to try and take my head anytime, Roger chuckled. It's just that his current strength is too weak. Roger, aren't you leaving yet? How long do you plan to stay on this island? We still have an unfinished journey. Rayleigh handed Roger a bottle of rum. Roger took a few gulps, glanced at Alucard, and laughed. Hold on, Rayleigh. I want to see what happens when Whitebeard's people meet this guy. Heh. Alucard chuckled softly, not wishing to comment on Roger's gossip. Pair. Rayleigh answered the den mushy he held. Immediately, the voice of a Roger pirate's crewmate guarding the ship came through. Vice Captain Rayleigh? It's Whitebeard. The Whitebeard pirates have landed on the island. Alucard slightly tilted his head upon hearing this, his sunglasses reflecting a sharp glint from beneath his top hat. Finally, they're here? The Whitebeard pirates. Who's leading them? Don't tell me it's Whitebeard himself, Rayleigh asked, showing no surprise and remaining calm. No, it's the Whitebeard pirates' 2nd Division commander, Alanson Drew, the crewmate on the other end quickly replied. Oh, the one known as Thousand Blades, Rayleigh said with interest. A big shot actually came this time. Alucard rose, his chair making a slight sound. He casually threw the treasures he had plundered from the Gold Shark pirates' ship to Arya and the others, then walked with a sinister grin towards the docks. The immortal bastard seems quite happy, Buggy said after Alucard left. Shanks shrugged. You can't be cut no matter how much you're slashed either. You're hardly in a position to talk about him, are you? You bastard? Shanks, ultimately, this is all your fault. Buggy grabbed Shanks's collar, and the two immediately started wrestling again. Ha, let's go watch. When he and the CP0 fought last time, the red-haired kid and I got to see quite a show. Roger strode towards the docks, while Rayleigh and the others reluctantly followed. Their captain had a habit that was quite exasperating. He loved to butt into exciting situations. The Whitebeard pirates' 2nd Division commander, Alanson Drew, with a bounty of 360 million berries, was currently leading a contingent of the Whitebeard pirates' 2nd Division to New Kaba. Walking down the desolate street, Drew said to the crew members behind him, although I don't particularly like Cassian, he was still Pop's son. This battle concerns the honor of the Whitebeard pirates. Understand? Yes, Commander Drew, dozens of Whitebeard pirates' 2nd Division members chorused in response. That person is. Drew suddenly noticed a man with a large katana and a grim expression walking towards him on the lonely street ahead. He immediately recognized him as Cassian's good friend, Squard, known as the Maelstrom Spider. Is he here to avenge his friend? Judging by his appearance, did he fail? When we landed earlier, we saw the Roger pirates' ship. It might be related to them. Suddenly, the members of the Whitebeard pirates' 2nd Division started murmuring among themselves. Hey, Squard, what happened? Where are your Maelstrom Spider pirates? Drew quickly walked up and asked. Squard looked utterly lifeless, raising his head to look at Drew, tears welling in his eyes. Wiped out by Roger. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Everyone simultaneously turned to their right, towards the source of the voice. They saw that at some point, a man dressed in black and red, wearing rare dark red round-rimmed glasses, was standing there. He tried to get revenge on Roger nearly 30 times, but was completely defeated. Roger couldn't bring himself to kill him, and he ultimately left in defeat, Alucard said with a laugh, then directly addressed Drew. Who is the Whitebeard 2nd Division commander? Drew turned to face Alucard. That would be me. And you are. The one you're looking for. The one who killed Cassian. Alucard looked down, dissatisfied. Honestly, I've been waiting for you in this town for quite a while. Chapter 96, It hurts just to watch. You're Alucard. Drew looked at Alucard with cold eyes. State your name, Whitebeard pirate, Alucard mocked. Alanson Drew, 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard pirates. Drew pulled out 2 katanas from seemingly nowhere, looking gravely at his opponent. He wouldn't underestimate him. Mainly, he could feel from Alucard's aura that he wouldn't be easy to deal with. No more words were needed. Attacking the Whitebeard pirates or Whitebeard's men was tantamount to declaring war. 2nd Division. Oh, Ace's predecessor, or perhaps his predecessor's predecessor. No sooner had Alucard finished muttering than he raised his gun and fired. Drew saw this and raised his swords, deflecting the bullet with their tips. The moment the bullet touched the blade, he felt its extraordinary power. He quickly dispersed the force, not blocking it head-on but deflecting the bullet. The instant Drew deflected the bullet, he turned his head to look at Alucard, only to find the other man already in front of him, his white-gloved hand shaped into a blade, aimed at his chest. So fast? A normal person wouldn't even have time to stop the attack. So fast. That guy's no ordinary person. The 2nd Division members were startled, but didn't show concern, as their captain hadn't yet revealed his true abilities. Clang! Suddenly, a crisp clang rang out. Alucard felt his hand blocked by something. Focusing his gaze, he saw another blade extend from Drew's large robe, completely covered in black, clearly armament hacky. It emerged from his body. This was clearly not something a normal person could do. A devil fruit user, Alucard uttered these 4 words. A store fruit user. I can freely store things within my body and control when and in what form they appear, even covering them with armament hacky. Drew snapped. Suddenly, countless armament hacky covered blades burst from his skin, instantly piercing Alucard like a sieve. It's over, Alucard. A boring fight, Drew said, shaking his head and turning away. Countless close combat opponents had fallen to this move of his. It seemed this was just a rookie who hadn't heard of his devil fruit ability or combat techniques. That's why he fell for it. 1,000 blades, Drew, that was his epithet, not because he could wield 1,000 swords, but because he had 1,000 blades within him. Getting stabbed like a porcupine by armament hacky-covered swords in close combat was a common fate for enemies fighting Drew. Click! Suddenly, the sound of a gun cocking from behind him made Drew spin around abruptly. Alucard's black gun, Jackal, had been cocked, and a shot fired. Even with observation hacky, Drew's reaction was slow. He couldn't dodge. He didn't die. This thought flashed through Drew's mind, but a faster reaction was to defend. Although he could have simply used armament hacky for defense, Drew still used his devil fruit ability to conjure an alloy shield in front of him, then covered his body with armament hacky. Better safe than sorry, especially since he was aware of the bullet's power. Bang! The moment the shield blocked Jackal's bullet, Drew's eyes nearly popped out of his sockets. His instinctive reaction was, what power? Boom! Drew's body was struck as if by lightning, sent flying violently. He got up a few seconds later, coughing up a mouthful of fresh blood. The alloy shield had fallen away, and a bloody hole appeared in his abdomen. Captain. The captain's defense was broken. How is that possible? That's the Whitebeard pirate's defense, second only to Captain Yozo's. The 2nd Division members were completely stunned. They didn't know how long it had been since Drew was last injured. Even the 3rd Division commander, Diamond Yozo, renowned as the world's foremost defender, highly regarded Drew's defense. And now, he was coughing up blood from a single bullet? Your carefulness saved your life, Alucard said, racking Jackal and ejecting the casing. If that alloy shield hadn't changed the bullet's trajectory, his heart would have been struck. Cough, cough, Drew coughed twice, then stood up and looked at Alucard, who had been riddled with wounds but was now completely restored. I pierced every vital point in your body. What kind of devil fruit user are you? I'm not a devil fruit user. Hurry up and attack, Alucard said with a light chuckle. This guy. Drew gritted his teeth, knowing that this guy wasn't just difficult to deal with, but extremely difficult. He had pierced his head and heart, riddling his entire body, yet he couldn't die. Could it be a decoy, or an illusion? There was no time to think further. Countless bladed weapons emerged from Drew's skin, and then Drew's power erupted, surging out all at once. This was the true 1,000 blades. It was like an endless sea of blades, combined with armament hacky, turning into a terrifying killing move. There it is, the captain's signature move. It's a special move that can instantly kill a Marine Vice Admiral. Seeing Drew unleash this move, the 2nd Division members cheered excitedly again. He won't dodge. But what happened next was even more surprising. Amidst the mountain of countless armament hacky-covered blades, Alucard neither dodged nor flinched. He simply endured Drew's attack, slowly walking forward, ignoring the countless blades piercing his body. Monster? He's a monster. The crowd, who had initially been ecstatic over Drew unleashing his ultimate move, was now too terrified to speak after seeing Alucard's actions. Countless blades pierced Alucard's body, and before they even had time to be pulled out, new blades plunged in, pushing out the ones already embedded in him. Blood splattered everywhere. It hurt just to watch. Chapter 97, Whitebeard's 2nd Division Commander, Crushing Defeat. Are your weapons sufficiently prepared? Alucard asked abruptly. Drew was at a loss for words. Even after countless death battles, he had never seen a monster like this. The weapons he'd just unleashed had practically filled the street behind them. He couldn't even count how many had struck Alucard, yet despite everything, Drew could still see Alucard's body constantly healing. No matter how he attacked, he just kept recovering. Drew felt that the weapons stored within his body were dwindling. That last move had consumed far too many. Yet, the opponent remained completely unharmed. Damn it. Drew pulled a katana from his body and violently slashed at Alucard's neck. A flash of steel, and Drew felt his blade stopped by something, unable to advance even an inch. He looked up to see Alucard gripping his blade with his teeth. Crunch. With a sudden burst of strength, Alucard instantly shattered the edge of Drew's katana into fragments. That guy, a monster. Squard, observing the battle, could think of no other word to describe Alucard. A monster who couldn't be killed, no matter how much you tried. Fighting him only brought despair. Alucard pressed the muzzle of Kajal against Drew's chest and fired, the bullet piercing clean through his body. Under the astonished gazes of his subordinates behind him, Drew was sent flying more than 2 meters into the air by the impact of the bullet, then crashed to the ground. So the Whitebeard pirate's 2nd Division commander is only this strong, huh? Alucard half-turned, mocking him. Drew's subordinates were enraged by his words, shouting, "You bastard! How dare you insult the Whitebeard pirates, and we'll take you down. Just as the Whitebeard 2nd Division was about to rush forward, Squard, perhaps operating under the idea that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, interjected, "Hey, you're no match for him? Hurry and get Captain Drew to safety. His heart has been pierced." Hearing Squard's words, everyone snapped back to reality. Their captain was on the verge of death. Compared to fighting Alucard, Drew's life was far more important. However, seeing Alucard standing right beside Drew, many still felt their hearts pound in fear as they moved to carry Drew. "Go back and tell Whitebeard the name of the man who defeated his 2nd Division commander," Alucard reminded them as Squard and the others transported the severely wounded Drew. "You don't need to tell us, we already know," many thought internally, but none dared to actually say it aloud. The 2nd Division and Squard quickly carried Drew back towards the coast. A moment later, Alucard also left, and Roger's crew emerged from the streets behind the bar. "Soon, the victor will be decided," Rayleigh said. Roger's expression had lost its usual cheerfulness. He was stern. "From now on, we can't treat him like an ordinary kid. He's an enemy worth taking seriously." The pirate conflicts in the New World were constant. Battles between pirates, unless they reached a legendary level, rarely caused a sensation, like the recent fight between Golden Lion Shiki and Redfield. But a recent battle had stirred up a commotion across the New World. Alanson Drew, the Whitebeard Pirates' 2nd Division commander, known as Thousand Blades, had been severely wounded and was currently unconscious. The Roger Pirates, as witnesses, had seen the entire battle unfold. Drew was arguably one of Whitebeard's earliest followers. His status and strength were far beyond Crassian's. With Drew's defeat at the hands of the newcomer Alucard, the Whitebeard pirates began to gather their numerous subordinate crews, all converging on the Moby Dick. And sweeping through the New World alongside the news of Alucard was the huge news of the Roger pirates' return. These two pieces of news spread through the New World at an incredibly rapid pace. In a certain sea area of the New World, aboard the Golden Lion Pirates' Grand Fleet, Golden Lion Shiki, smoking a cigarette, listened to his subordinate's report and said unhappily, "It's just one of Whitebeard's brats losing. What's so special about that you have to report it?" "My apologies, boss. The ship's hull contained at least 500 people. This was the power of Shiki's fleet. What I'm more interested in is Roger. He suddenly left the New World a few years ago, and now he's back. I need to meet him." Shiki's mind was entirely on Roger. He questioned his subordinate, "Where is Roger now?" A subordinate quickly replied to Shiki, "According to intelligence, after leaving New Kaba, their next destination should be towards the Morgul Sea." "Good." Shiki waved his hand. "We'll head along that route. I want to see if that guy's gotten rusty after all these years out of the New World. If his strength has declined, I'll bury him at sea." Although Shiki wasn't interested, there was no doubt that the name Alucard had begun to be etched into the memory of the New World. One Piece, Alucard the Immortal. Chapter 98, Landing at Bazenbur. Chapter 98, Landing at Bazenbur. Bazenbur. This island was where Alucard and Vegapunk had agreed to meet for their transaction. Although Alucard knew that Seastone itself was still in the research and development stage, and Seastone weapons wouldn't be produced for several years, the fact that Roger was apprehended with wooden and iron handcuffs, instead of the most durable Seastone handcuffs, indicated that even Seastone handcuffs weren't fully developed by the time Roger died, let alone Seastone bullets. Even with his intervention potentially accelerating development, it would likely still take a few more years to finalize. However, Alucard had to find this island of Bazenbur now. After 4 months of searching, Alucard finally confirmed he had entered the waters of Bazenbur. During this time, Alucard frequently engaged in battles with pirates of the New World. Concurrently, his reputation in the New World grew stronger and stronger, with Alucard the Immortal becoming a nightmare for countless individuals. Boom! Just then, the sea surface suddenly churned with one colossal whirlpool after another. Alucard was already accustomed to this. In the first half of the Grand Line, the weather would gradually normalize when approaching an island, but the New World was different. You could be standing on an island, and a bolt of lightning could strike at any moment, and it wouldn't be surprising. Alucard was already used to encountering such groups of whirlpools. "I finally found this place, don't get in my way," Alucard muttered to himself. In an instant, Hidden Shadow took control of the entire ship, forcing it to advance through the massive whirlpools. If anyone else had witnessed this, they would undoubtedly have been terrified speechless. To think a ship could ignore such whirlpools and forcibly pass through them? How? Suddenly, a towering wave broke through the whirlpools, blocking Alucard's path. It was a colossal, skyscraper-sized sea king shaped like an ancient lizard. In the first half of the Grand Line, this would certainly be considered a dominant sea king of that area. But no, the types of sea kings in the New World varied widely, with many being communal species. This type, with a body that almost touched the clouds, might have many more lurking beneath the seabed. "Do you intend to eliminate me, the invader?" Watching the sea lizard's ice-blue eyes clearly burn with rage as it glared at him, Alucard stood up and said, "But I must go to that island ahead." "How?" Sensing the killing intent emanating from Alucard, the sea lizard roared, its incredibly massive body beginning its attack. Seeing the gigantic body charge, Alucard used Hidden Shadow to control the ship, executing a sharp turn to evade the attack. Then, his entire body transformed into bats, flying above the sea lizard. In an instant, he reverted to human form, drawing his twin guns and continuously firing at the massive body below. Gah! The sea lizard let out a unique cry of pain. The intense agony from the wounds on its back made it dive underwater, attempting to deal with Alucard in this manner. This method is too old-fashioned. Just as expected of a beast, Alucard plunged one of his hands into the sea lizard's wound, injecting the black light virus. In an instant, the sea lizard lost its mind, thrashing wildly in the sea. Red cells began to spread throughout its body. The extreme pain prevented it from thinking much, only struggling and violently flailing its body, trying to alleviate its suffering. This state lasted for about half a minute. The sea lizard's previously ice-blue body became tinged with a faint red, a result of the black light virus infection. Seemingly, the intensity of the pain had decreased. The sea lizard turned its head and bit at Alucard, who was standing on its back. It endured the virus a bit. As expected of a New World Sea King, it has some capability. Alucard leaped, dodging the sea lizard's attack, transforming into bats and flying in front of the sea lizard. In an instant, he turned back into human form, raised both guns, and after 2 bangs, blinded its eyes. Gah! The sea lizard's body submerged into the sea, then violently burst out again. Blood flowed into the seabed. In an instant, many fierce, bloodthirsty sea creatures began to gather. I don't have time to waste with you here. Get lost. Alucard condensed a giant sword of black light virus and plunged it into the sea lizard's neck, leaving it half dead. Alucard returned to his ship, sitting in his chair, bypassing the sea lizard's enormous body, and sped towards Basenbur. A minute later, the sea lizard breathed its last, not because of Alucard's sword, but due to the black light virus infection. As Alucard's strength increased, so did the infectivity and power of the black light virus. The black light virus directly obtained from Alucard was difficult for even New World Sea Kings to resist, leading to their death from unbearable infection. If Vegapunk were here, he might come up with something new. So this is Basenbur? This kind of place, a secret base for Vegapunk's past research. Alucard landed on Basenbur, which appeared to be an island entirely covered by a primeval forest. Alucard had initially expected a town. It seemed he had misjudged. Roar? Alucard, having docked his ship, hadn't even officially entered the forest when he heard roars from within. Immediately, pairs of blood-red eyes darted out from the forest. They were saber-toothed tigers. And they were even larger than ordinary saber-toothed tigers? First it was a sea lizard, now saber-toothed tigers. Did I just enter a zoo? This thought flashed through Alucard's mind. Faster still, he drew his twin guns. Chapter 99, Kaido of the Beasts. The New World operates differently from the first half of the Grand Line. Even with the world government's organization, intelligence transmission is far slower here. Generally, capturing pirates relies entirely on immediately dispatching fleets for decisive battles. Since most New World pirates have their own territories, finding them isn't too much trouble. However, among the pirates who hold their own domains in the New World, there's a rare, small fraction of individuals who don't fit in. They are immensely powerful, strong enough to stand at the apex of this world, yet they have no interest in territory and prefer to wander aimlessly. One such individual is Red the Aloof, who narrowly lost a battle against Golden Lion Shiki. Another is Roger, who has no interest in dominion, focusing solely on finding legendary locations. And then there's one last individual. Though he hasn't reached the heights of the first two, he's second only to them, a generation slightly younger than Whitebeard and Roger, known as Kaido of the Beasts, captain of the Beasts Pirates. He commands a vast number of subordinates but dislikes acting with them, preferring to roam alone. In some aspects, he's quite similar to Alucard, but their true personalities are entirely different. Near Marineford's G5 branch in the New World, 3 enormous marine warships were completely annihilated, and Vice Admiral Casal, responsible for guarding the area, was brutally killed. The one responsible for this incident was Kaido of the Beasts. The G5 branch lacked the power to confront Kaido, leaving them no choice but to let him wreak havoc and then depart. After seizing one of the marine warships, Kaido left once more, alone, bringing none of his subordinates. The surviving Marines immediately reported the incident to headquarters, hoping for an immediate dispatch of personnel to pursue Kaido. During the meeting, Kong rubbed his temples. One of the largest marine branches in the New World had been utterly wiped out. That madman Kaido was utterly lawless. In truth, before this incident, the Marines had arrested Kaido twice, but ultimately couldn't contain him, only letting him escape. To this day, they still hadn't found a perfect method to deal with Kaido. Which direction did Kaido head after he left? Tsuru suddenly asked. Rear Admiral Gemokasi stood beside Tsuru, quickly reporting, headed towards the sea area northwest of the G5 branch, but Kaido himself likes to wander, so we can't confirm his exact route. It's said the G5 incident only happened because he accidentally stumbled into the town. Garp, take your men and go. Kong remained silent for a long time, then turned to Garp, who was snoring soundly during the meeting. Garp. Kong slammed the table in rage. Pop. The bubble from Garp's nose popped, and he quickly woke up, saying, has the meeting ended? You idiot. Sengoku muttered softly beside him. Garp rubbed his nose, then shamelessly asked the furious Kong, what's up? You, take the Marines and capture Kaido. Kong was too fed up to dwell on Garp's habits. If it worked, he would have said it long ago. That hard-skinned kid, Garp reminisced. He had fought Kaido before. Though he defeated him, Kaido still managed to escape. He was one of the few brats who had ever escaped from Garp's grasp. Originally, if he hadn't done anything, there'd be no rush to deal with him. But since he destroyed one of the only two marine branches in the New World, it's unforgivable. The destruction of G5 and the killing of the Vice Admiral thoroughly enraged Kong, forcing him to play the Garp card. Oh dear, I've got myself a troublesome mission, Garp said, scratching the back of his buzzcut head. On the other side, after wreaking havoc at Marine G5, Kaido stole a warship and drifted across the ocean. He was a very strange man, pursuing battle, pursuing death, but also harboring his own desires, hoping to build an army composed entirely of devil fruit users to reach the pinnacle. Kaido, without a permanent log pose, had no idea which sea area he was currently in. However, the fierce cluster of whirlpools ahead woke him from his slumber. Looking closer, his ship had already been drawn into them without warning. You bastards! Can't even get a peaceful nap. Kaido roared, leaping from the warship into the sea vortex. He unleashed a powerful punch in the ocean, shattering the water currents in the surrounding sea area. For a moment, even the massive whirlpools ceased their rotation. When Kaido surfaced, he found that the warship he had been on was shattered by his punch, unusable. Turning his head, Kaido spotted a forest island in the distance and decided to head there for the time being. His body, even more exaggerated than Whitebeard's, swiftly swam towards the island, astonishingly fast despite its enormous size. Alucard, who had been closing his eyes, feigning sleep while sitting on a pile of large animal corpses, suddenly felt a powerful aura approaching the island. He had been here for over 2 weeks but still hadn't found Vegapunk's secret base. That guy wouldn't dare lie to me. If so, he must have hidden it too well. However, Alucard had discovered something else interesting here. Among a pile of skeletal remains, something was buried. Alucard glanced at a dark red, banana-shaped fruit with peculiar swirl patterns that he had placed nearby. It was a Zoan-type devil fruit. Chapter 100, Alucard vs. Kaido. What do you want, you lot? Kaido had just landed, his body still dripping with water, when he saw a group of ferocious beasts emerge from the forest ahead. Many of them were comparable in size to him, glaring at him menacingly. A bunch of beasts. Kaido silently appraised them. After taking a deep breath, he roared, "Get out of my way, now." His roar unleashed a gale so powerful it nearly snapped the massive trees in the forest. The animals, terrified by Kaido's immense power, scattered and fled. Deep in the jungle, Alucard felt the gale, his coat and hair whipping wildly. He rose and slowly walked towards the direction from which the gale had erupted. As for the Zoan-type devil fruit he'd found, he wasn't sure what to do with it, so he casually picked it up and carried it with him. Boring. I should go find someone for a good old brawl, Kaido muttered to himself after taking out the gourd tied to his belt and gulping down some sake. Whose territory is closest to here? Old Man Whitebeard's, or that Golden Lion's fleet? Wrong. This is my territory now. A voice reached Kaido. He turned to see a young man he'd never encountered before emerging from the jungle. However, Kaido's focus wasn't on Alucard himself, but on the object in his hand, that banana-shaped devil fruit. Kaido was all too familiar with such things, a Zoan-type devil fruit. Even though the original story was still a long way off, Kaido had long harbored the ambition of building the strongest pirate army comprised entirely of devil fruit users. He always seized devil fruits whenever he saw them, especially Zoan types, which he was determined to acquire. Brat, give me that devil fruit. Kaido didn't ask Alucard's name, he went straight to his objective. Why should a giant ask for an ant's name? This was Kaido's mindset. Kaido, of the beasts. Alucard uttered Kaido's name. Even before the Great Pirate era, Kaido was already a world-renowned pirate. That's me. Hand it over, Kaido repeated. If you do, I might consider letting you be my subordinate. Alucard's lips curled into a grin. He lifted the Zoan-type devil fruit in his hand, dangling it in front of Kaido. You want this? Kaido frowned, his patience wearing thin. He was about to step forward and simply eliminate Alucard to take the fruit, but unexpectedly, Alucard was a step ahead. He tossed the devil fruit into the sky. Kaido instinctively reached out to catch it, but Alucard was even faster, pulling a gun from his coat and firing. With a whoosh, the devil fruit was shot into pieces. Now, how are you going to get it? Alucard asked with a sinister grin. After a moment of silence, Kaido, surprisingly, began to weep loudly, snot and tears streaming down his face as he roared, "Wah! My chance to add another devil fruit user to my crew? It's gone, just like that." Huh. Alucard tilted his head in confusion. Is this really Kaido of the Beast's personality? However, before Kaido's sobbing could stop, a massive fist suddenly slammed into Alucard, catching him off guard and sending him flying into the jungle behind them. After smashing through several large sea rocks and snapping countless trees, Alucard's body finally came to a halt. He was covered in comminuted fractures, half lying amidst the tangled trees. Meanwhile, Kaido's crying hadn't stopped. Wiping his nose with his other hand, he wailed, "Damn it, I finally found a Zoan type. And it's gone." He turned to walk away, still crying, but the instant he turned, Kaido's expression shifted again. He snarled, "My mood's ruined? Damn it, I'll go challenge that old man Whitebeard instead." Bang 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 bang. Hearing gunshots from behind, Kaido suddenly spun around. Several bullets struck his face the moment he turned, leaving only faint bloodstains before falling to the ground, completely twisted. Alucard was already standing behind Kaido, completely unharmed, clearing the casings from Kajal. With interest, he said, "Oh, what tough skin. Are you a cyborg?" Kaido's impression of Alucard instantly changed. The corners of his mouth turned up, revealing his teeth. "Looks like you're no ordinary kid. Using you as an appetizer before fighting Whitebeard sounds good. This appetizer isn't very sweet." Alucard touched the brim of his top hat with the barrel of his white gun. "Kajal. It's poisonous. Who the hell do you think I am?" Kaido crouched low, instantly closing the distance with Alucard. With a furious roar, he terrified all the animals on Bazenber, making them freeze. "I am Kaido of the beasts. He. Alucard's shoulders trembled. The shadow beneath his feet rapidly spread, covering the entire beach. He removed his sunglasses, and countless shadowy hands began to emerge from the darkness. Unbeknownst to them, the previously clear sky had gradually become covered by dark clouds, thunder rumbling ominously within them. "All right, hurry up and attack. Kaido of the beasts. Brat." Kaido's face showed excitement. He launched a punch capable of shattering mountains, its mere fist the size of a normal person. "Ha!" Alucard roared, meeting the attack with a hand blade. Their first clash met in midair, and a shocking bolt of lightning struck from the sky, seemingly announcing the beginning of this battle.